Like,
He's been retired for 10
so far
years.
ago. Don't get me wrong, I love Chuck Liddell, but God, we're so far past that.
So much has happened where since.
Yeah.
You remember Mark Coleman?
It's fucking the oldest people. Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
The Game of Death fight.
Oh, dude.
Speaking of, I want to watch that documentary.
But when you're talking MMA and somebody starts bringing up Bruce Lee, I'm like, I don't understand what's happening right now. Like, that's just a different, complete world.
Well, it's weird because I like Bruce Lee movies, but also I can understand that he wasn't a trained combatant. Like, he was a great martial artist.
I think
and had
Chael
a good
had
mind.
the best assessment. He was like, Bruce Lee was more of a philosopher. Like,
Yeah.
it was really about his idea of taking the best of everything that
Right.
got us here today.
Yeah.
But to act like 120-pound Bruce Lee is going to beat up like Muhammad Ali is kind of crazy. Like,
it's fucking insane. And he was probably a great martial artist, and he probably would have competed very well. But the fact is, he didn't. And two, he wasn't a complete martial artist.
Right.
You know,
couldn't be
if somebody took him down, he was done. You ground and pound, it's over.
He hadn't
Submit,
he
it's
hadn't
over.
done wrestling yet. Like,
Yeah, he hadn't done any of that. He was probably a really good martial artist. He might have competed well,
Fast.
but in an actual MMA style fight,
Right.
Yeah, especially today's game. Like,
Yeah.
you know, UFC 1 Division 3. You know,
right, maybe.
But even then, like, Hoist Gracie.
Yeah, Hoist would have had him. Yeah.
But yeah, he wouldn't even like a Division 3 wrestler would just take him,
Especially a bigger
smash
one.
him on his head. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna take you to the ground. I'm just gonna beat on you. That's it. And you're not gonna know what to do because your fighting is all on your feet.
But I mean, it's weird that it's a reference because now you can look at those fights online because you can see like a karate master versus an MMA fighter.
You remember that?
I've seen that guy like compete against karate like fighters,
right?
And he just smashes them.
Oh yeah,
and it's that dude's not even the top 100 in his weight class because I don't know who the fuck that guy is.
He just comes at him with a barrage, like just
and
like school playground. Just
well, and actually, real quick, first I'm going to do this. So we're back for another episode of MMA Fools, and obviously it's me and Kyle, and then we got our boy Brandon Burnett.
Hello, how's it going?
Yeah, thank you for coming, brother.
No problem.
But so back to what we were talking about right there. Do you remember the UFC where the guy wore one boxing glove?
Yeah,
Art Jimerson.
Yeah, Art Jimerson. Yeah.
Yeah, he wore one boxing glove. How did you think that was going to help you in any way?
We're just trying things out.
Just figuring it out.
Yeah.
I'm going to wear steel-toe boots.
It's better that he did though. Because
whatever.
If he didn't do that, who would he be in history? He would just be some random guy.
Yeah, nobody'd remember Art. I remember Art Jimerson's name all the time. People were like, "The guy with one glove." I'm like, "Yeah, Art Jimerson."
Yeah,
like,
I never would have remembered his name.
He's infamous, really.
But I very much knew about the guy that wore. I saw the fight, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on here?"
It's better to be that guy than some random boxer who just got smashed by Hoist Gracie with 2 gloves.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a better position to be in. At least you're kind of famous.
Absolutely.
He gave it a shot.
He gave it a shot. One boxing glove. You know how hilarious
How
I
is
had
that
to
a
look to
tactical
everybody.
advantage?
It's not.
I can't see any single way where it's a tactical
No.
advantage.
Because you can't grapple. Not that he could, anyways. But you
Right.
couldn't even punch with a form that would make sense to me because, like,
Right. If anything, just go ahead and use both gloves.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, just go ahead and use both.
At least-
Because that,
And hope
you know what you're
Taken
doing.
down to the ground. I guess.
Yeah. That one free hand wasn't going to help you with the
UFC
goddamn
1
thing.
recap, right? UFC 1 recap, right?
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, I fully believe that Dana White saved the UFC by him and the Fierro brothers not only buying it, but really turning it into a sport.
Yeah,
Because it wasn't a sport before.
The novelty of that would have wore off pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, it's the same old sumo guy versus a boxer or whatever, like, and they're just beating each other.
And everybody's going to fight. Everybody's going to fight in one night. So by the end, you're getting
just
the
destroyed.
worst fucking
Yeah.
fights.
Yeah.
Like, this is
17 minute guard matches.
It doesn't create as much drama and much, like, it just...
It wasn't a sport. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There
it
was no
wasn't.
judging,
No.
right? At the beginning, no judging.
No, it was
Yeah.
I think it was either just no time limits and just.
I think they did.
Eventually, they did cut off a time limit, but it was just like a draw if no one won.
Yeah,
But we almost had to do that first to see what we needed to do.
Yeah.
Like, it had to start that way.
But
Just
I think Dana White was that visionary.
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
he was the perfect guy to make that happen. Because I also think his big ego is massively important in
It
dealing
is,
with
yeah.
all these fighters.
The UFC wouldn't be anywhere where it is today
Well,
without him.
well, he's done a good job at making the UFC kind of more important than the fighters now because you have somebody like Conor who's sort of transcended, but also he's not so important to the UFC now that they couldn't go on without him. That they could, especially with the ESPN deal, where I think they said that bare minimum now every card does the equivalent of 500,000 buys. For the UFC, that's a lot. That's a
Well, that's in a COVID world with no other game in town.
Yeah. So like they're
I
making
think
money
this
off the
is
back
gonna
end from
this
that
is
deal.
going to continue. Like
well, it's going to bring a lot more fans to it because it's the
Yeah.
only sport going on. So people are getting it. You know what I mean?
And luckily, they've had some exciting cards during the time. Like, there's just been some highlight, knockouts and highlight fights.
Oh, yeah. But I do have to say, what he was talking about wasn't their actual buys. The ESPN has to pay them for 500,000 buys, whether they get them or not.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yes.
So,
like, if O'Connor fights, of course, it's going to be $1.5 million.
Yeah, it's going to be well over 500,000.
But if they have Nunes versus, Spencer, which is obviously isn't going to, that would be maybe 150,000 buys 2 years
and that
ago.
sucks.
Right. But they're not afraid to do that and take the hit because,
the ESPN's paying
they got
them on
money
the
in
back
the
end.
bank. Yeah.
It's much better for it because if you don't get a thrill out of watching Amanda Nunes fight, I don't care that she's a woman. Then you're wrong.
Right.
She is maybe one of the best MMA fighters of all time.
Yeah. She is, and especially when you compare her earlier fights. She fought Kat Zingano and she gassed out, got pounded out in the third round. So to see her improve her gas tank and come into her own as a fighter, it's nice to see strides in someone's game like that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, she's evolved every time.
Yeah.
Even in this match, she showed she's playing games inside the game.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I would like to show you that I can go 5 rounds with probably the toughest. I mean, that's the toughest woman she's ever faced in terms of like she's just. I knew she was going to be there at the end.
Being able to take a beating.
Right.
She's the toughest girl in the meaning of she can take a beating because she did the same thing with Cyborg, but she's not very good.
No. No. Well, me and Kyle were touched on that before the podcast even started. It's just that these women that she's facing, most of them, besides like a handful, don't have the athleticism as the males do. Well, not to knock their gender. It's just combatant sports from a young age.
Yeah.
And growing up with those fast twitch muscles.
Yeah.
And it's nothing against that gender anyway because Amanda Nunes fights like a man.
Yeah, she does. Yeah.
She's got that whole flow, everything down. She's got those. It looks like she's got those fast twitch muscles.
Yeah,
she's just been doing it for that long.
The sport for women has only been viable for so long. So you've had to deal with some women who jumped in later in their life.
Right.
Well, and
because
especially
they're like now we can go do this, but they were 25 when it started because that's the only time the opportunity came.
Well, and especially in that weight class because they only created that weight class for Cyborg, and they I don't even think they have a full 10 fighters rostered for that weight class.
I think they have 5, and like Spencer looks like she could cut the 135. She looks like she
definitely looks like she could.
Yeah, and she could lose the extra.
She was husky in there.
Could Aspen Ladd go up?
Yeah.
You think?
I am interested by Megan Anderson still.
I think Megan's the only prospect out there that it looks like somebody that.
It's the only person that.
But she's not ready yet. She's not ready yet.
Well,
but there's nobody else for her to fight. There's nobody else for Nunes to fight.
And Amanda probably does want to hit the goal of at least the most title defenses of anybody before she walks away.
Yeah, and she could do it because the competition isn't really there. Yeah. She could just recycle and beat up these women, but also like Megan Anderson, she got out grappled by Holly Holm, which is like the most damning sort of thing you could say about somebody's game. Because like Holly Holm is of course
not a grappler.
Yeah,
at all.
like she's probably done enough grappling to grapple somebody who doesn't.
She's been in the sport long enough. Yeah. But she's not a grappler. But like she literally came from boxing. It's
not where
then
she wants to be in the
kickboxing.
fight.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. So if Holly Holm could do that to somebody, then of course Nunes could easily take her down like she did. They ran to me.
And actually, that's what I wanted to say. Actually, where I saw the most maturity in her as a champion was actually her last fight against Durandamine.
Right.
Because
she was getting lit up on the feet.
She was getting lit up. The very first stiff jab that landed, I said out loud where I was watching the fights, I said Amanda did not like that at all. You could tell from the first time she hit her clean with that jab that she was like, oh, shit.
Well, Durandamine is a high-level kickboxer.
Yeah, she's about probably the best striker Amanda's really faced.
I think she would knock out Cyborg if they kept seeing it. I'm not even joking.
It's a possibility.
But she adapted her game in that fight and took her down and ground and pounded her and did what she had to do. And she showed that she had that ability to adapt because that was not her initial game plan.
No.
She was going out there to knock her out like everybody else.
Well, in this last fight she did. I mean, Dana even said it. He was like, she did everything that you want to see out of a mixed martial artist today in that cage. Like at all phases, she took it everywhere, and she showed that she outclassed her in every aspect of the game.
Now, I do want to ask you this. Do you think we're actually getting better fights right now because there's no fans? Do you think the fighters are more clear-headed?
It's hard to tell because you can only gauge what you see, so it's hard to know how a fighter feels in there.
How many great fights have we seen since this happened? Like
all
of them.
I like
the 25-foot cages might be that might be a factor.
That changes your footwork.
I didn't realize I thought last fight I was like, is this cage smaller? Yeah, I noticed it last fight.
Striking 20%. So
it was the first time. It was the first time that I noticed it was last night. I was like, that cage. It was like
that for the Woodley fight too.
Yeah, the Woodley fight was that too.
Yeah, but I'm saying even before that though, the past couple cards we've gotten, we've just seen amazing fucking displays of pure
This is the
MMA.
time
Are they
to do
getting
it.
everything clear from their coaching?
Getting everything clear from their
and
coaching.
also they're hearing the other guy, what the other guys
Yeah,
are
the
being said
commentators
too. So
too.
they're all adjusting to each other.
And they're not feeding off of the craziness of the crowd. Like the crowd starts
Right.
booing, so you start going wild and acting like you normally wouldn't.
And the
you know
referee,
what I
the
mean?
referees as well. The referees also take a lot of cues from the crowd.
Yeah.
They'll stand up fighters faster if they're not working for positions.
But Herb got in the way yesterday or last night of Amanda. Like Amanda dumped her, and Herb,
for the
Herb
mouthpiece.
immediate. No, it wasn't about her. But she dumped her on her back, and like Amanda backed up, and Herb immediately got in the middle. And I was like, well, you didn't really know what Amanda wanted to do there. Like she might have wanted to dive on her, and you immediately let her stand her up.
Yeah.
I don't think Amanda was even calling for it yet. And
Well,
Herb, like,
maybe Amanda verbally said it even.
Maybe, I don't
you
know.
I don't-
because he's usually the best of the best.
Right.
I actually don't like the rule that they make them let them up because I feel like there's a lot of phases where it's dangerous to get up.
Yeah.
They let them up like if there should be fight, no stopping the action at all.
Well,
But
you want them to get them up, yeah. But like if you're wanting to play the game of like, okay, go ahead,
Yeah.
dude. like that's up to you.
Literally, the only time I'm okay with a stand-up is when they are both literally just laying there.
Yeah, oh yeah, for
If
sure.
they're doing anything, I don't want you to stand them up because I don't know. This guy's great at jiu-jitsu from his back, and this might be
Right.
the only chance he has to win this fucking
Yeah.
fight right now.
You
But if
could
they're
tell.
literally just laying there because they're tired,
And
Yeah.
not
Right.
just he's trying to advance and getting blocked. Well, let him keep blocking him.
right? Let him keep
Yeah.
blocking him. Yeah,
Because that's how you create submissions and scrambles and
Right.
and you have to be active. And the same thing against the cage and clinch work because I could tell when somebody's actually working in the clinch and not, and it's frustrating to see somebody not working in the clinch and they're just laying on each other on the cage. Especially heavyweight fights are very guilty of this.
Yeah.
It's the most dreadful thing to watch on TV because it's like it's literally
two grown men just standing on each other.
and like I understand it, like, and also it's very taxing on the body. So there is a
You're ruining the fight later.
yeah,
Like,
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also like, is it sporting or is it entertainment? That's the distinction between this. Like,
it's both.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
both. So it has to be a mixture. They have to keep the fight going in a pace that makes sense for
Yeah,
the
we're all
fans.
here to be entertained.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the same time.
And there's no way around it to a certain extent, but I do think that you have to, when they're
And there is
literally
a
just
clock.
laying on each other for a rest, you just got to stop that. You can't do that.
But there is a clock, and we would like to get to a finish and not, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we do these damn judges,
Yeah.
Even the Amanda fight last night was scored a little wonky. I think like
I actually didn't even listen to the
There
scores.
was only one 10-8 round, I think. Which I mean, I thought the early.
There was
split
only
too.
one
yeah,
10-8 round?
yeah.
At
That's
least
what
two.
I was like, man, she wiped the floor with it. The
I
whole
think
time
2
we-
is a low ball.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
She literally beat the shit out of her
Yeah.
the whole
But, yeah,
time.
4 10-8s probably.
Yeah. Took her down multiple times in
Yeah.
most rounds.
And the fourth round ended with her in a rear naked choke choked the life out of her. So like that should have
Yeah.
been
I
10-8.
think Amanda might have took 5 or 6
you know, we're
jabs.
you know, and that's actually towards the end of the podcast, so we should probably stop talking
sorry,
about that
yeah.
one so
Yeah.
much.
We can circle back around.
But so we had some scheduling issues and different things, and so we haven't done an MMA Fools in a while. So we're gonna backtrack a little bit. We're just gonna hit the high notes of these cards, though. So we're starting with Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. So man, there was actually
It's hard to skip any of the fights that
on that card.
yeah,
That card
besides
was
the
crazy.
Greg Hardy
Well, we
fight was
talked
kinda-
about the Gaethje results in the last podcast.
No, we haven't done
Remember,
one.
because Connor went on the big rant, and we talked about the Connor rant.
Did we? Oh,
Yeah,
we did talk
yeah,
about
yes,
this
we did.
results. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we did do this one. Yeah, you're right. We did do this one. But okay, so we'll skip over that one because we've already done it. So we got to go to Smith.
Oh, okay. Yeah, this is actually a really good fight. I don't know. You guys all seen
Yeah.
this,
Well,
right?
and interesting to see how it went down. Like, what happened to Anthony Smith? Like, I don't know. He went away after the first round, and that's not something you expect out of Anthony Smith.
Yeah. I do want to touch briefly. Just Andre Arlovski looked really good in that fight.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was surprised that he wasn't even ranked. I started to think, like, who are the top 10 heavyweights?
I mean,
Is he light heavyweight now?
no, he's still heavyweight.
heavyweight.
Yeah.
But I feel like he's sacrificed a lot of his like potent offense in terms of being more defensive, so he doesn't get knocked out. Because there's that stretch where he was knocked
Getting
out,
knocked out all the
4
time.
times in a row, and
Yeah.
I feel like he's not as exciting as he was, but also he's doing what he needs to do to win at age 41, 42
Yeah, he's certainly
years?
not
Yeah.
doing the things that made him Arlovski back in the
Right.
day.
Right,
But
but-
he's still there.
And he looked good.
Yeah.
He did.
And-
He's a vet, man.
Yeah.
And the guy he fought, it's hard to rank heavyweight talent because like Philip Lins, I think he was the
meat packer.
Yeah.
Was he really?
No, yeah, the meat packer. Just some scrub. The tire changer, Brett Rogers.
Yeah, he's just like I went to the real estate agent.
Yeah, but I think it was the World Series of Fighting heavyweight champion, if I believe. So,
no shit.
Yeah, so he has a little bit of, but there's organizations.
A little bit of clout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so he beat a decent guy.
Drew Dober.
That was a great fight.
Man, and Drew Dober looked amazing.
Dude, heavy hands.
I like him a lot, man. I remembered him from his last fight when I saw his face, and I was like, dude, I like this guy.
Yeah, he had a knockout in the fight before this, too. But he trained also with Gaethje. He trained with, I believe, Neil Magny and Overeem and Blade. So it's a great camp. So
especially Gaethje, man, because Gaethje in his last fight looked like the best fighter of all time.
Yeah,
that's how clean his boxing and stuff was.
Yeah, we skipped that.
I know we skipped it, but it was amazing.
Yeah,
we talked about it. You weren't here.
Yeah, it was really incredible.
Yeah, and the poise he showed too to fight the same fight for the whole time. And not be, and he got caught at the uppercut, but it's that's not that big of a deal. Could have
been a different fight if the bell didn't ring there.
Yeah,
though,
yeah. But other than that uppercut,
there was no offense. The right fighter won. It's not like he escaped one.
And you know what I didn't realize? Like he is a maniac. Ferguson, he's a maniac.
Yeah.
His corner coach, the one that was doing all the talking, do you know who he picked to do it?
It's
Eddie Bravo.
Yeah,
Bravo.
Eddie Bravo was his main coach for that. He was the one calling out instructions, and he even admits it. He goes, "I had no business being that. I'm a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, and I'm good at that. I don't belong being the main MMA
called
coach."
For the role like way before that.
Well, he was so sweaty by then and so tired that his legs were beat up.
In like the second round or something.
I guess it brings up a bigger point about surrounding yourself with a camp, because like I think Tony Ferguson makes his own camp. Yeah, so like it's hard. Like in comparison, Gaethje, he's in a room full of killers, and Ferguson, I don't know who's in his camp, and you trust that he has the wisdom to set up his camp in the way he needs to. But I mean, he looked good, comparatively,
he
but
might need some help.
Yeah, sometimes you.
And it's hard to say you trust him to make good decisions. I mean, he's a crazy person.
He is crazy, but the 12 fight win streak, speaks volumes.
Yeah, no, he's a great fighter.
His
but
insanity is borderline genius at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Until it isn't.
But literally, when he was doing the face-off with Khabib, Khabib was not wearing sunglasses. Tony had sunglasses on, and Tony is saying to Khabib, "Take off your sunglasses. Take off your glasses." Yeah. He's like, "I'm not wearing glasses. What's happening?" I don't know what's going on here.
I mean, that's the reason why he's so good. But yeah, and he also looked. I don't say he looked old, but he looked like he didn't have a plan B, and that he didn't have enough time to maybe adjust to Justin Gaethje's.
How many wins does this Drew Dober have?
I think he has at least 3 in a row now. I think he was a middling lightweight for a while, but
he's lightweight still, right?
Yeah. But I feel like he's sort of coming to his own. There's fighters who have this like losses. It's not like boxing where you lose once and you're.
Well, Drew Dober wasn't even ranked, and I'll tell you what, he's definitely got to be ranked now because he's looked very impressive. It's not giving me his win-loss here, though.
Or he's about to face a ranked opponent, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this guy was ranked. He was 15.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So barely ranked, but also, I think that lightweight's so stacked that top 12 guy can be top 5. It's just about the opportunities to get those fights. It's just hard. It's hard to get up there.
Well, and just in that guy's last 2 fights, though, he has looked
his hands
insanely impressive.
And those top 5 guys
heavy, and he's fast. He reminds me of when I first saw Cody Garbrandt. I was like, this dude hits heavy, but he's crazy fast, and people aren't noticing how fast he is. Drew Dober, to me, is also insanely fast with heavy hands.
See, I hate how it's set up now because no one fights backwards, and you don't really have the incentive to, because if you're top 5, you're not going to fight top 11. But that top 11 guy could be number 3.
Yeah, that's what we were saying last time about, like, ultimately that guy was coming anyway. So, like, you weren't avoiding anything. The guy, the cream's going to rise to the top regardless.
Oh, yeah.
So, it still serves you to beat those guys and proves you belong at number 3 or 4.
Right, for sure.
But the pundits will say, though, like, it's a shitty game to play with the media. And, I'm not attacking the media in general, but to say, oh, he beat an unranked guy. But, like, you see how many guys, like Conor McGregor beat Holloway early. And then that wasn't impressive. But
even though it probably should have been, he was already a monster.
Yeah, right. It stacks his resume looking back.
Retroactively, sitting with the Poirier fight,
Right. Same,
That's what people say. Oh, he never fought anybody ranked. Like Poirier was number 5 when he knocked out Poirier.
And that
Don't tell me
better now.
Yeah, but they forget that Poirier was ranked.
Yeah,
they're like, oh, he never even fought anybody ranked before he got. No, dude, he knocked out the number 5 in the first round.
That's why the rankings is like a soft science, because it's all about that night, that fight, that night. Where you go in the rankings for. Then you're stuck there. Like there's people like Conor's, should he be ranked? He beat Cowboy at 170. It's like he hasn't had a lightweight win.
He really be?
Yeah. It's hard to gauge where he's at in the top 5, top 10.
You're gauging on like
potential,
what
really.
they've done in the cage, like their highlight reel a lot too.
Right. Well, and you definitely like you can say like, well, I'm pretty sure if we put Conor up, like I'm just throwing a random name out there. But somebody like, if Conor fought Ali Quinto, we're pretty sure he's going to fucking knock him out. Yeah. So why would he be behind him?
Right. Might as well not have fights then. Might as well just do hypothetical results here.
Agreed. But I think the reason we don't get those fights though isn't so much even because of the meat or anything else. I think it's because of the fighters. The fighters don't want to fight that guy.
Yeah.
They want to hold position.
And I think me and Kyle talked about it. Like Conor should fight somebody like Charles Oliveira, who beat Kevin Lee recently, looked amazing. But Conor will never fight something like that because he's too big now. He's too famous, and he needs the headline of card.
It only serves Oliveira to fight that fight.
And like of course it's a good win if you know about MMA, but who wants to see Oliveira versus Conor if Conor fights once a year now?
Right.
And like now he's clogging up a ranking and not fighting around his ranking either, besides a title fight. So it's like.
And as great as I think Conor is, he's got to fight somebody.
Well, okay.
I think he's great. I really do. How do you feel? Do you think he's a great fighter?
Yeah, he's definitely a great fighter.
Yeah.
Since we're on Conor, though, the retirement, you seen that he retired last night?
Yeah.
I think I think it's obvious he's frustrated with not getting a fight. Like, there's nothing can everything's log jammed right now. Conor can't even fight for the UFC right now. He's not in the US. So.
No, yeah.
So I think he's just
I think he's
frustrated with the whole thing, and he's saying he's going to walk away, but we'll see whenever.
I think if they give him a fight, he's going to end up fighting. I think he is just frustrated because to say he doesn't have the drive is crazy.
No,
I've never seen somebody with more of a drive to fight. When I finally watched his documentary Notorious, like when you see like he took every last minute fight. Fighters don't do that. They literally canceled a pay-per-view because John Jones wouldn't take a fight with Chael Sonnen last minute.
Who's a very, very good matchup for John any day of the week, no matter what training camp it is.
He's a guaranteed win, and the guy was fighting at 185. And Jones is fighting at 205. Yeah. He's massively bigger than the guy as well, and faster still.
Yeah,
that was insane that he didn't take it. But that's his choice.
But like in the future, Conor can't really take a short notice fight because he's so big. The UFC needs to make money off Conor.
But
they want those highlight fights with him.
But I'm saying to get there, he took those last minute fights. Like his opponent would get like Jose Aldo, and literally in the documentary, Dana White walks in. He says, "I'm sorry to tell you this. Jose Aldo is out," and Conor's first words were, "Okay, who am I fighting?"
Yeah, he earned it. He earned where he's at.
Sure.
But now he does. He's got to fight somebody, and like you said, I think he's just frustrated.
You got to look at where he was in that point in his career too, because it's all a part of his story.
His hype was huge.
Yeah, his hype was huge, but also he wasn't quite there yet to the top. So you have that. Not that he doesn't have drive now. It's just a different drive.
Well, and I think
every fight was a stepping stone.
And I think he needed to make money. I mean, the dude was literally a failed plumber.
Yeah, he was living on the social welfare.
He was a failed plumber.
But I mean, he has to fight somebody in the summer. But do they want to save Conor for when a live gate happens? Because that's a lot of money.
A big thing too.
Yeah, like I mean, you have people flying from Ireland to come watch Conor fight if it's in the U.S.
But honestly, do you imagine what the pay-per-view would be right now if you had Conor fighting somebody decent?
It'd be huge.
The pay-per-view numbers would be astronomical with
would
nothing else going on.
And that's the thing is, remember you were saying, well, it's not like they're charging them to rent out the arena. So you're saving money there. Like,
it's all just promotion and paying the fighters and the production costs.
Yeah, in the arena, they might be paying them something, but they're not paying them what they normally pay them because they got nothing that can go in there.
Right. Well, where they're fighting now, I don't think they have to pay for anything.
It's the UFC Apex Arena in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah, they already own it. Yeah,
they're not paying a dime for that.
But I guess it's bigger brains than me to try to figure out the cost effectiveness of Conor fighting now versus next year, whenever there's a live gate or whenever that's going to be.
But you are going to lose Conor with that.
You're frustrating Conor with now he's got to sit for you, and he doesn't want to do that right now. I don't think.
He said he wanted to fight 4 times this year.
But I guess it's all about opportunity. Like Gaethje took that Tony Ferguson fight, and now he's number one contender.
Yeah,
interim title.
Looked like maybe the only guy that could beat Khabib.
Now
Right.
he's the man, if you ask me. I mean,
Right.
honestly,
And it's all
That was that
opportunity.
impressive.
yeah,
It really was.
It was. Yeah, like now to me, it's like I feel like it's up to Khabib to prove that he can beat Gaethje. I just because there's too many questions. Like what Gaethje does well, it makes it to where like I question if Khabib can deal with that. We
He has
haven't seen him
great
deal with
takedown
that.
defense because he's got
Right.
serious wrestling pedigree.
Yeah.
And he only way he uses it is for defense. He
Yeah.
focuses on the defensive aspect
The
of
X
it now.
factor is going to be Khabib's strength. It's just if he's that massively so much stronger than those guys, like he shows that he usually is.
Yeah, they said he does that shit to heavyweights in
Yeah,
training camp.
so-
Yeah,
like,
but,
like
you know.
he's got like that chimp build, like where
Yeah.
how their muscles are way more dense or
Yeah.
something.
I mean,
I
also
think he does. It looks apparent that he does. Like
Right.
he locks people up, man,
and they don't know what to do.
nothing. Like,
What did Connor call it? The mermaid move,
Yeah.
where he just squeezes
It's
your legs
effective,
together,
though.
and
What
nobody
can
can
you- yeah.
nobody can do anything about it.
That's the thing. Maybe that's it though. Is like
His arms are stronger than
puts-
people's legs.
He's at an advantage in a position that nobody really likes to be in. Like nobody
And you
really
don't
likes
drill
to
that.
have you up against that cage like that. You
No.
expend a lot
He
of
uses
energy,
it, though.
and he's the master of it. And nobody's working against it because nobody wants to really have you there.
right.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe it's not even that hard to beat. Like no, it's just a thing that I mean he carved out a niche until somebody figures it out.
Yeah.
I think the way he's going to be is almost like Ronda Rousey, flood him with strikes
Yeah.
But
because
his
you can't
defense
let
is-
him move forward.
His defense is actually like pretty good. It's a lot better than it was.
But most people let him walk forward on him the whole
Yeah.
time.
Well,
I
Gaethje
think
said
you
he
got to
would-
put him on his back foot.
yeah,
He's a
Gaethje said
wrestler.
Right.
Gaethje said
Put
he
him on
wouldn't-
his back foot.
He wouldn't give up the center of the octagon, so that bodes well. Because he always gets him against the fence. He doesn't really have a blast double. He has sort of single legs, and he has sort of
He
pressure that puts
slowly
against the
takes you
fence.
down like a fucking crocodile.
Yeah, and then people
It's fucking ridiculous.
people wear his weight too and get up. They get up. I don't think Gaethje will take the position on his back and he'll scramble.
Yeah.
So it's a different sort of grappling. And also Khabib, it's hard to know how his cardio is if somebody fights him differently because he fights the fight he wants all the time now.
And he looked a little tired in Ally coming to fight.
Yeah, he did. And Al did a great shot.
But that's a question of where was he at camp? Well, he was the one that was ready for the fight.
He was the one that was ready.
Yeah, so
Well, Al had a fight too. He was supposed to fight.
They were both ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Paul Felder, I think he was supposed to fight that night.
Yeah.
but Khabib wasn't. Even though Khabib definitely won the fight, he was not ready for Ally Quinta.
No.
That was the best display I've seen against Khabib was by Ally Quinta.
Right. But Khabib though, it's hard. Like Kyle said, it's like Gaethje has to. Khabib has to prove he could beat Gaethje because when someone fights once a year, it's hard to really like put them on top because it's like you fight
Gaethje's
once
on
a year.
monster tear.
Yeah, and you've
Yeah.
been fighting pretty often.
right.
So he's
And
the
he
most
just proved
active
that he can
person.
also be extremely calculated.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
before he was like the wild man. I want to
Yeah.
put on the exciting fights.
Yeah.
He
Well,
even said it in the Joe Rogan podcast.
He showed he can be there in round 5 after a grueling fight. I mean, even though he dished out most of the punishment, he had to dish out a lot of it.
Yeah.
So he was still in there in round 5, not winded,
Yeah.
ready to go.
We're gonna get this
Yeah,
card.
Evans and Ben Rothwell.
So actually,
Terrible
I-
fight. Terrible
Yeah,
fight.
yeah.
But I'll be honest with you. Every time I'm like, Bell Rothwell is done. There's no
Yeah.
way this dude is still fighting.
No.
He still comes out and it was a terrible fight. But I was still impressed by Ben Rothwell. Still
Yeah.
going out there doing it. Who I was really let down by.
Is Vincent Prue?
How were you
that's-
that sluggish, dude?
yeah,
You didn't
I
have
don't
to cut
understand.
weight. You literally were the most sluggish person I've ever seen.
And his offense was non-existent. He would like run and throw like sort of one pot shots that were ineffective.
they didn't even have good form on him.
I think it's
he looked
apparent you need to
sloppy.
get back down to light heavyweight.
or at least focus somewhat in training camp.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was even his style. Like he did not. There was no crisp punches
No,
thrown.
none.
He was throwing crazy like.
you're talking about a guy who fought John Jones. I mean, and pretty
won
well.
by-
Like,
yeah, he didn't win anything in
No,
that fight,
but-
but he didn't get finished either.
Yeah, to go up against Ben Rothwell and look like
Shit.
Yeah, just.
But
bad.
he's always been one of those people who's been more athletic than he is really a great fighter. Like
Yeah.
he has some good wins. He knocked out Corey Anderson with a head kick.
Yeah.
That was a good knockout. But I mean, if you can't do that consistently, it's hard to know where your skill set's at.
But
Yeah.
it's like Rothwell looks like a guy Father Time caught up to 15 years ago.
But somehow
Yeah.
still gets in there and wins
Well,
fights.
yeah.
I don't understand.
I feel like that heavyweight though really lends itself to people aging because
Oh,
you
yeah.
sort of carry your powers late in your life.
Yeah.
If you're 42, you still can be powerful. It just and
They
also,
call that old man strength,
It
and
is,
you're
yeah.
a giant.
Alexei Olenek's the same thing. It's like that dude's a bear. He's just a bear, and like there's no way that dude's not strong as shit. But like Ben Rothwell, he's never been the most athletic guy, so his slowdown's a little less noticeable, especially in comparison to OSP, who looked slower than Ben Rothwell somehow.
Well, what I like about Ben Rothwell is he seems to continue to be a good gatekeeper for the rankings, like right before you get to the rankings, and he knows that's his role.
Yeah,
he doesn't expect to get he just wants to fight.
Yeah,
he's just like, give me a fight. I got to make some money. Let's go.
You need those guys.
And I think he's great for it since he knows his role. Since he's not asking for title shots.
Right.
And this, he knows his role. He's gonna go out there.
So
there was
that one time when he tried to do that weird personality thing.
Oh yeah, the promo.
Yeah, he cut a weird promo.
But that was his last ditch effort.
Yeah,
to get
well,
there.
that was his best run.
I think he should embrace that more though.
At least for the entertainment value.
Psycho.
Why not?
Yeah,
Psycho Sid Ben Rothwell.
Yeah.
I mean, like, just be as cringy as possible.
Perfect. I hate it though. I hate Henry Cejudo so much, mainly because of that. I hate. I'm glad he's gone.
But I get the
I'm glad
act.
he's gone.
I don't know.
I understand the acts.
funny.
Like I understand Connor's act. But it's
It's
believable. It's smooth. When Henry Cejudo does it, it's not smooth. It's like, this is clearly an act, and you're a terrible
But
actor.
his awareness of it is what makes it okay to me. Like,
Yeah, like,
Henry
he knows.
is very aware that it's corny.
tongue-in-cheek a little bit.
yeah, it's very tongue-in-cheek.
Connor's act only gets old when he doesn't fight. When he's on Twitter and talks shit after every pay-per-view, it's a
And then I'm retiring.
Yeah, and it's just like, dude, if you just actually fought and actually said this shit within the confines of a training camp, and
when you were fighting all the time, it was great.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
It was, because it would get you hyped for the fight, and the Aldo press run they did was amazing.
Yeah.
And now it's like, dude, sign a contract with somebody, figure it out with the UFC, do what you got to do to make it look like you're actually an active fighter, because you're talking shit on the people who are out there actually fighting,
and you're not fighting.
Yeah, and it looks like you're just like trying to keep your name in the press.
You look jelly,
but I'll tell you,
yeah, for sure.
But I'll tell you what people always ignored with Conor is how he talked after the fight. They always just took the pre-fight and they're like, "Oh, he's a piece of shit." Like, have you ever listened to him after the fight?
You know how many people really watch the post-fight press conferences? I do.
I do.
But not a lot of people.
And they
watch
should, because then he's calm, collected, respect. Like in the documentary, you saw him immediately after the fight. He wanted to give Aldo another shot. Yeah. He's like, "Dude, we're gonna run this back." But then the UFC is like, "Hey, man, we're gonna pay you this much money to go up in this weight class and fight for that title."
And I don't know that Aldo
how can you pass that up at that stage of your life?
Did Aldo even want another piece of that?
I'm not sure he did.
I think that fight would have been a lot different the second time around.
It's obviously would have to be a different fight.
It would have to be.
Yeah. But I think the same result at the end. But
it just depends, because like we haven't seen Conor in a prolonged 145-pound fight. The Mendes fight, he kind of got gassed, and Mendes got gassed too. Right. But like deep waters at 145, we don't know how that looks. I doubt
he could do it anymore.
No,
145.
No, he's definitely too
He's
big.
155, 170 for the rest of his career if he fights again.
But back then, though, it's like I don't know if Conor took him in deep waters. Like that weight cut was bad for Conor.
He was poor back
he
then,
looked terrible.
Yeah, he was poor, so he could cut that weight.
All right,
we can't eat like a king.
Yeah.
And cut to 145.
But
we keep getting sidetracked, so let's go to Smith and Glover because this was crazy. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I like both fighters. It's weird because I was watching this fight and I really like Glover because I feel like he's the most humble guy that I could think of it.
Very humble.
At least in that weight class to root for as an everyday man.
And it's so unfortunate for him that he got into the UFC so late, because he was considered a killer forever, but he couldn't get into the UFC, and then he finally got into the UFC and he was kind of past his prime. So it's kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, and like I feel like he just like works hard and like does what he can with his talent and his skill.
He seriously reminds me of Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
Like his personality is like nice man. Like
it's hard to root against him, but I did like Anthony Smith a lot more now that he got more wins under his belt, and I've seen him in interviews. He seemed like a nice guy too. It's hard to root against either dude.
Yeah, he's definitely in it for all the right reasons.
Not only is he nice, but he is a good fighter. I was very surprised about what happened in this fight. So in this fight, after the first round, he got the shit beat out of him.
Yeah,
he
looked really good
for
the first round, and I thought he was gonna.
I thought he was going to end it.
I didn't think it didn't look like he expended so much energy that he should have gassed that much.
It didn't seem like gassing,
it. He really did.
Like he had a flurry in there, but I was like, why is he that tired?
Was this another bad leg kick fight? Because we've seen leg kicks so much more prominent since there's no crowd.
I think the uppercut sort of changed the complexion of the fight for Anthony. I feel like once he got caught, he sort of like gassed himself out worse and couldn't recover in a way that was, that put him back in the fight.
Well, and Glover was literally knocking his teeth out.
Yeah,
literally,
him hard.
Literally, he handed his tooth to the referee.
Right.
That
very
was
rare.
Later on, though. Glover had
battered
took advantage of that fight by then.
Coming into it, I thought if I had to put money on the fight beforehand, I was going to say that Glover was going to get knocked out.
Yes.
I just thought this.
And again, after the first round, I would have made that bet again.
I just thought Smith would be just Glover seemed kind of slow in his last few fights. He seemed a little.
He's
slower.
crafty now, though. He's like a crafty old vet.
Well, and he
wins
did actually
fights.
look slightly faster in this one too.
Yeah,
He seemed
looked
like
better than he has in his last 3 fights. Probably.
yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of been turning away like young lion type of fighters. No pun intended, because Lionheart. But yeah, but like he's sort of been fighting these like low rank guys like Ion Kudalaba he beat, and like he's sort of been dragging him in the ground and grappling him and using his like high level BJJ. So I thought if he had a chance, but I thought there would be no phases where that would be going on. So it was surprising to see him clip Anthony standing. I feel like that was very unlikely to happen before the fight.
Didn't he change his whole camp and everything though? Isn't he doing things different?
He's working out of a storage garage.
Yeah, he literally has renovated a storage garage to be a gym.
He's got a team of kids, but it's just like local kids. You know what I mean?
No shit. I thought for some reason he was fighting with some new people. I can't remember who it was now. They were talking about it pre-fight.
I
I think Chael said that in his podcast that he went there to train, and there was it was literally like a storage unit that he had set up with like,
no shit
necessities, but like which
it's fucking incredible.
Yeah, it lends itself to the everyday like man.
He's the Rocky man,
To me, that's like Joe Calzaghe, the most unknown boxer in history.
It seems to have benefited him, though.
Amazing boxer. You have no idea who he is? Yeah, he's one of the best boxers of all time.
I know 7 boxers.
It seems to have benefited him, though. I mean, he looked better in this fight than he has in a while.
Without a doubt.
Keep it up.
Yeah.
And I don't think you could sell him in a title fight right now, but like 1 or 2 more wins maybe, because light heavyweight's not as stacked as it was. So
right.
But anyways, it was a good fight. I think Anthony Smith sort of maybe it's like a mental issue that he had.
Well, I mean, how much?
Much
did that buck naked meth out guy take out of him?
Yeah, because it sounded like it did
sounded
take
like
a lot.
War.
Yeah, because Anthony Smith was very adamant about the fact that it was a really hard fight.
Yeah, the toughest fight ever. I wonder if he thinks Glover was a tougher fight than the guy now.
That guy's a top. That guy's a top 15 155.
Yeah, obviously he didn't even train.
Yeah, that's what we're saying. He might be a prospect. I think we were saying this last podcast. Like UFC, fucking call that guy. I did want to touch on what you said about Glover, though. Like, he might be a fight away from a championship. Yeah. He definitely is, because it's Reyes, Santos.
There's also
Blachowicz.
Jan. Yeah.
Those are the 3 guys.
If he somehow got a fight with Blachowicz in one, though, you would.
I think they're gonna do Jan versus Reyes. Maybe Santos coming back would be a good fight for Glover.
I want the Santos fight so bad.
Yeah. It's weird because like. Those guys
Santos did so good against John Jones.
I thought he won the
knees.
fight.
I thought he won the fight too.
I don't know.
Watching it, like I'd have to rewatch it. The rounds were so close, but maybe I wanted him to win so bad because.
I think there's a lot of emotion. Like he was doing so well with no knees that it's like
no knees.
Yeah,
that's a win. Like,
yeah, he had 2 knees.
What would he have done if he had 2 good knees?
He would have destroyed him. He had knocked him out instantly.
Yeah, it's just fucking insane.
But John Jones has looked like.
Slow.
He's diminishing a little.
Yeah, and his offense is not there. Like he'll come forward with like leg kicks, and that's literally it. His boxing has regressed.
Yeah, he's not.
And I feel like you have to ask it. I feel like you have to ask at that point: was performance enhancing drugs a thing? Because he's looked a lot different.
I think that's easy speculation, but his wrestling.
But it is pure speculation.
Yeah. His wrestling isn't there either, though. You feel like you look at his early fights, and like, of course, the level of competition.
I think the competition's a slight bit better too now.
Yeah,
but
and you have 10 years of John Jones.
But he looks so much slower.
And maybe he's bored.
He looks so much slower.
I don't know how much.
It'd be hard to be bored. Like, I can understand. Like, okay, maybe for the Santos fight you were bored. Well, then that dude. Fucking gave you a war. So wake the fuck up. Wake the fuck up.
But yeah, like I feel like his clinch work isn't there. Like that's like people talk about the Israel Adesanya fight as a prospective fight, and like, oh, Israel is too small. But like it's hard to get if someone has good footwork. It's hard to get in the clinch situations and to take him down.
Yeah, but
and Jones isn't doing it as much.
I think you forget because Jones hasn't really tried to wrestle anybody in a while. I think Jones would out wrestle Adesanya easily.
I don't know because his.
He wrestled. He wrestled Gustafsson.
He did, but Gustafsson actually, I think, hurt his leg in that fight, and that's why his takedown was so easy to get. Which I mean, it's fair play to John. He took advantage of that injury, but I don't think that fight is as like a blowout as people think because Israel. Like you look at middleweight, you look at Santos at middleweight, you look at Anthony Smith at middleweight. Those guys were like. Average middleweight.
Real quick, I do think we should clarify because we're saying this about John Jones and everything. I think maybe we're all in agreement here that he's, no matter what, still probably the greatest of all time.
For sure.
Resume-wise.
I don't like the guy. I hate him. He's the best of all time.
Yeah.
If not the most unbeatable.
Right. That's what I mean. He's the best. But go ahead.
Even if he lost a step, he definitely is the best fighter of all time.
Yeah.
And I mean, GSP is up there for me. I don't want to get into a discussion. That's a whole podcast. Is like the best fighter of all time because
GSP is hard to argue against.
Because he avenged both his losses, and he retired on top with two weight divisions.
I honestly think Anderson Silva's a good argument for it too. Like you can
They're
say
1, 2, and 3.
You can say he didn't avenge his losses, but he also broke his leg in that loss.
Yeah.
So there was after that everybody knew there's no real coming back for him at that point without a massive amount of performance enhancing.
And then probably like Mighty Mouse would be up there, even though his competition is weak. He don't
care.
Don't
care. Up there too.
Yeah, and
top 5 all
time.
time.
I would put Fedor up there still as well for heavyweight. He's probably still the best.
I'm not a Fedor believer though. I will say that.
So yeah, I think Kyle knows I love Fedor.
I think Kane would have took Fedor, and even
I think a lot of people would have took Fedor. I think even though he did fight some really good people in Pride, I don't think you can trust anything that ever happened in Pride.
Yeah, but that goes for anybody. Like Shogun's whole legacy is based on Pride.
Agreed. Rampage. Pride.
So there's a lot of people.
Silva.
Shogun's run to the title when he was fighting with Machida. That was
Shogun's actually maybe the only person that really succeeded as well in the UFC from Pride. Don't get me wrong. Rampage won the title, but Rampage won the title with 2 fights.
Yeah.
Like Shogun kind of Shogun worked through it. You know what I mean?
And even then, he was a diminished Shogun. He didn't look as good as he did in Pride.
Nowhere near as close.
But I guess the level of competition, you bring up Fedor and Pride in the heavyweight division, it was pretty shitty for the UFC then. There was like fucking.
Fedor was fighting the better pool.
Pride had a better heavyweight division.
At the time, Pride had the better heavyweight division. But what I say is, I feel like you can't trust anything from Pride. And
like fixed fights, you mean?
Yeah, but even though Fedor did beat a lot of those good people, a whole lot of his numbers for how many fights he won were total gimmick fights.
But
against like that giant
Bob
Chinese guy that never won a fight.
He'd fight those dudes like every month. Like he'd like a
Hong Man Choi.
But I'm just saying that's a lot of his record. That's a lot of his record. That's a lot of stat padding.
Yeah.
But he's got like Nogueira.
But he's got Nogueira. He's got good people. Mark Coleman.
Yeah.
But in comparison, though, I mean, Kane, like.
He's the greatest of all time of that first generation for sure. I don't think
you could really argue Stipe is better now.
Yeah, I think Stipe is.
I'd argue
there's nobody better than Stipe.
I'd argue a lot of people against Fedor.
Like skill wise.
I would argue Kane maybe against Fedor. I would argue Ngannou has the potential to be better than anybody.
Stipe,
DC. I mean. Yeah,
DC won that heavyweight tournament out of nowhere, and he beat all the guys that Fedor used to beat, and he did it handedly.
But if you look at the Crow Cup fight, like in the Nogueira fights with Fedor, that level of speed and athleticism and like grappling,
that's not in heavyweight.
Yeah, it's not like you.
They were almost light heavyweight.
You think about that versus somebody like 2020 Stipe. Yeah. He would knock him the fuck out. He just would. His casting punches are too fast, and like what's Stipe gonna do? Like he's like. To compare skill sets, it's like these heavyweights are slow now.
They're slower, but that's where because Fedor isn't actually a giant heavyweight either.
No, he's very small.
But what I would say is Fedor's style makes him susceptible to good boxers. Because
who's a good boxer though?
Because he throws. I mean, decent boxers like Stipe. Because he throws predominantly kind of like Eddie Weinland. These wide hooks.
They're fast though.
They are fast. They are fast. But you can get inside on that if you have decent boxing MMA skills.
Yeah,
especially you're the bigger man.
But then you look at somebody like DC who. His boxing is serviceable. Like DC's
he almost has to resort to the same thing in heavyweight. Like, I mean, he's almost his striking in heavyweight is a little like Fedor's. I think DC.
Yeah.
Not if you watch that original heavyweight tournament. What he did to those people was he got inside.
Knocking out Bigfoot was a good knockout.
He was just cutting inside.
The knockout of Stipe though,
cutting inside.
But you think if Cormier could land in the clinch like that on Stipe and knock him out, like. Why wouldn't a prime Fedor be able to land one and knock him out? It's not like Stipe.
It's a question we'll never have answered.
Yeah, like
this
is all hypothetical. It's just like skill sets. It's hard to sort of gauge skill sets from like 10-year differences.
Yeah, and it's always annoying to me that he never did fight in the UFC, and that was predominantly M1 Global that caused that to happen. But it's still absurd. It's a shame. And honestly, when Dan Henderson knocks him out, I'm like, man, some of these heavyweights are gonna fucking clean his clock.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Dan Henderson has an H-bomb. He has one of the most powerful punches of all time. But against normal heavyweights, you wouldn't expect it to be that effective. And it was effective. It was dropping him right on his face.
If we're talking, goats, though, I mean, now Amanda. I think Amanda and Shevchenko are working themselves on the list of top 10.
Amanda
greatest.
Nunes, is absolutely for sure. And
yeah.
Shevchenko,
She
I
beat every
do.
good-
I agree with you. I think she's the best women's fighter, technically.
Technically,
She
is
is,
most
yeah.
skilled. I think.
She's just not big enough to fuck with Amanda Nunes.
It's crazy that we're talking about those divisions, but like 115 women's is like actually the most competitive women's division.
Well, yeah.
The top 5 are all great fighters. Like you have Weili Zhang, you have.
I think
Joanna.
Dana mentioned, like, they were like, well, what's next for Amanda? Maybe a Shevchenko again. And he's like, I think you wait for Zhang to beat another opponent or so, and then you do Shevchenko and Zhang.
Yeah, I agree.
Which that's the way.
That's a
that
great
excites me. Yeah, I'd love to see that.
And man, God, that was such a crazy fight too. Wang versus Joanna.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we have to probably.
Yeah,
do this.
but this is good though. This is awesome. This is 3 real fans. So now we're on the fight night. Overeem versus.
We're not going to talk about Courtney Casey's barn burner.
Matt Brown. Matt Brown.
Yeah. Honestly, we're gonna skip.
Marlon Vera versus Song Yadong was a great fight. Just want to say that you don't have to talk about it. That was a great fight.
It was. It
I
was a
thought
good
Marlon
fight.
Vera won that fight, but.
Barbosa versus Aj was a great fight
I
as well.
thought Barbosa and Angela Hill won those fights.
Completely agree.
Yeah, Angela Hill for
Definitely
sure.
Definitely beat Claudia Gadelha.
Completely agree. But the main one we're going to talk about is the main event. It was Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris, and this was such a heartbreaker.
Yeah, it's hard to.
Everybody wanted Walt Harris to win,
Yeah.
right? He just came off of that.
For multiple reasons, though, because Walt Harris, you might have had a prospect in, and if he gets past Overeem, well, now you got another exciting heavyweight. So
Overeem is like he just has the most perseverance of any fighter. Like he's been put to the shadow realm how many times in his career? Like 14
it's not
times.
out of the question that Overeem could win the heavyweight title.
No, the thing is, he's probably technically the best striker at heavyweight.
Yeah.
He really is.
He just has a bad chin and very bad. He takes
gets
punches.
hit.
Not
He
well.
ate horse meat for way too long.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, he's not Ubereem anymore.
No.
He's still a big boy. But man,
He's not as cut.
They're in Strikeforce. Man, he was
Massive.
the biggest man I've
Right.
ever
He
seen in my life.
He might be also one of the most well-rounded at heavyweight.
Yeah, he has 19 submission wins.
Yeah, he's got a.
Yeah,
can
he
beat
is.
you
Well,
everywhere.
he doesn't even use the submission stuff really anymore.
No.
But his striking is probably the best at heavyweight. He just he gets caught.
And he's still quick enough to go with all that. It's not out of the question that Overeem could end up the heavyweight champion out of nowhere.
Yeah,
Like,
he'd have to. It's weird because
He'd have to have a tear.
I would never bet on him in a fight going against anybody. He's one of those fighters I would never put money on ever.
Because it's really easy for
It's
him
a
to
50-50.
just get clipped and be gone.
Every fight I expect him to get knocked out, no matter who he fights. I'm just like he's getting knocked out in this fight, and like he didn't get knocked out, but he was very close. He actually showed a lot more heart and perseverance in the actual fight.
You almost have to think the Rosenstrike one was maybe a fluke now, though. Because
They shouldn't have stopped that fight.
Yeah, you almost have to think that Overeem, because Overeem I think was winning that fight.
And he popped right back
He
up.
was definitely
He took a
winning
bad
that
fall,
fight.
but like he was winning the fight. He popped right back up. So like
After what Ngannou did to Rosenstrike, it's like, was that? I mean,
yeah.
well, maybe Overeem should be right there.
Yeah, well, and it was. It's tough for me to say they shouldn't have stopped it because in a way, I do agree with you. But I mean, he got fucking whacked.
Yeah, imagine if that had gotten punched again. Like,
Yeah.
But you can't.
Jesus
but
Christ,
you can only,
ripped his face off.
Yeah.
you can only go by like, it's all circumstantial because he got dropped. He got sat on his ass. He was popping up, and then Rosenstrike was walking away, and there was like literally 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
So he didn't you can't be rewarded for walking away. You can't force a stoppage.
You can't mimic a walk off.
It's like you trick the referee into thinking like this dude's done.
Well, and it's kind of how it's kind of
it's
actually
over.
kind of it's not kind of how it is how Anderson Silva ended up losing to Michael Bisping.
Right,
Michael
exactly.
Bisping was knocked out.
He was.
Yeah.
He was knocked out. If Anderson would have jumped on him, that fight was over. Anderson was like, he's knocked out. I'm walking
Well, didn't
off.
the bell
And
ring immediately,
And the ref
though?
didn't. No, the ref didn't call it. He got back up and they went back at it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mark Hunt used to do that a lot too. Whenever he would knock, like
He walked away.
and
But
They were
he-
done.
it's a different situation. But
Yeah.
some of those, like you watch this fight still, and you watch his knockouts, and like, yeah, he's knocked out, but he wasn't like some of them aren't even really out. Like there was kind of days on the ground a little
Yeah.
bit. And like
We're
you
not-
could stop
we
it.
saw
but-
And we're not going to jump into it right now because it's definitely for the end of the podcast because it's the fights that just happened. But we saw probably the 2 cleanest walk-off knockouts
Yeah.
in history
Yeah.
in this most recent pay-per-view.
But yeah.
So Alistair Overeem, I think we're in agreement. You never bet on him, but it wouldn't be shocking if
But don't
he
count
eventually
him
won the
out.
title. Yeah, wouldn't be shocking.
And he looked good, and I feel like he mercifully finished off Walt Harris
Yeah,
as
and-
gingerly as possible. He didn't have to really.
Yeah, and he was very respectful, man. It gave me a lot of love for Overeem.
Right.
It really did. The way he handled that fight
And
was incredible.
And I wish he didn't fight Overeem because I do like Overeem as a fighter. I feel like he's a good example of somebody. Somebody who just kept on working. He suffered so many setbacks in his career that it's a testament to his fighting spirit.
It's hard to be a Dutch fighter.
It is, yeah. I mean,
not a lot of support over there.
Yeah.
And he
Like,
doesn't
can't you
look,
just be nice like the rest of the Dutch?
and you think about how much of an anomaly he is as a fighter. He's been knocked out that many times. He's well spoken still. He doesn't look very old. He's like 40 now.
He looks
He
younger than
doesn't
most of the
sound
people.
punch-drunk.
He
Yeah.
doesn't sound punch drunk at all. He's very clear and concise still.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we can all be in agreement that Walt Harris also looked very out of shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it just
A little disappointing.
tense. He looked tense.
Tense,
He blew
sluggish.
his wad.
But come on. I mean, he had some real tragedy. For those that don't
Yeah.
know, Walt Harris, his stepdaughter, who he just called his daughter, there was no step to it.
He raised her, so that's his.
Yeah,
that's his daughter.
she pretty much got kidnapped and murdered, right?
Probably the weight of the world on the guy's shoulders.
Yeah. So that was tough.
Hopefully, they give him a better comeback fight and they let him clear out the
Maybe
cobwebs.
Rosenstrike.
It's not a bad
Good
fight.
fight.
Yeah.
I mean, his hands
Dangerous.
are fast. His hands are fast. He just needs to pace
It's all
himself better.
dangerous. It's fighting.
Well, and he needs to be in better shape. He was out of shape.
Yeah,
He was out of shape.
but I mean, what kind of training camp could you be?
Yeah.
That's the grieving process. Is this months right there?
During
Yeah.
COVID-19.
For sure. Yeah. And then all the nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to the next one.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I actually didn't watch this. So
I'm
I'm going to let you guys. I have to piss anyway because I have a 90-year-old bladder. So I'm going to let you guys talk about this a little bit. It's unfortunate that you guys won't have access to the computer. But is there any other fight you want to talk about besides?
Let's see what's up on it. Yeah. I mean, I could talk about random fights like this, but I don't want to.
Is
Yeah, because we still got to get to.
Is
We got to get to the
Antonina
main event.
Shevchenko related to?
That's her sister.
Yeah, it's her sister.
Well, I bet I picked her in the pick'em because I was like, oh, Shevchenko, that's good blood. She's gonna win.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She
I
looked
didn't.
terrible on the ground.
I mean, I knew Chukagian was a good fighter, but I was like, well,
We got Brock Weaver versus Roosevelt Roberts. I feel like Roosevelt Roberts is a good striker. He got clinched against the cage too much in that fight. I don't know if you remember that fight, Kyle, but he sort of got backed against the
I'm
cage.
going to give you guys these
Go ahead.
2-3 to talk about.
Yeah. Please not the top one. That fight was miserable.
is the next one up is Woodley, right?
Yeah. We could get there. But
yeah.
do you see the Billy Q versus Carlisle fight? Did you see that? He came out like a basically.
Was it Spike? It ended with Spike catching a flurry of punches, right?
Yeah, he sort of gassed out after he sort of slowed down in the second and the third.
Wasn't there was something wonky to it though? Like he walked away or something.
Yeah,
right?
after the first round, he thought the round was over faster than it actually was, and he was walking away, and he got hit with a punch.
Yeah, he got
behind.
clipped on the way out. Okay.
Yeah.
I knew there was something with that fight. I was like, something squirrely.
I feel like he
happened.
fell a little bit more than he got. Like he didn't get dropped. I think he sort of
Yeah.
like retreated downward just to get out of the way of punches. But yeah, that was actually a really good fight.
I think Billy was the obvious better fighter though. Huh?
Yeah, it's hard to have fighters that are front runners because if you don't pace yourself, like they're fun to watch and they could finish it fast, but if you don't, you're just like exhausted. You know, when you come out fast like that, we lost the fight. So we lost the screen.
Yeah,
but
well, whatever.
when you come out fast like that, it's like you have to either put them away or you have to rein it back a little bit and pace yourself better.
What about this Sakai fight? I think I tuned out a little bit on that one.
I watched it, but it was a plodding heavyweight fight.
Yeah, I think that's why I tuned out. It was just plotting and
yeah, it just
I was waiting for Woodley because that was the most interesting thing.
a lot of those fights heavyweight, it's like they don't really take the fight into like a favorable way. You know, it's like you see them like they run parallel and they fight the team fight, and it's like a game of edges and like inches where like no one is really distinguishing themselves as the winner.
Yeah, and they're both waiting on each other to make the move.
Yeah,
because that's the way heavyweight is. It could end at any moment with one shot usually, so you have to be very measured in what you go for. Like
either like a heavyweight fight either ends really fast or they gas it out and it's fucking boring.
Right.
It's like at the end of the fight, I'm like, no one won, no one lost. Who gives a fuck about this? Like no
sometimes
one cares about this fight. So
A bad heavyweight fight will be the worst fight you've ever seen.
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
the skill level. It's sad that the heavyweight isn't really a marquee division anymore. I don't think they don't really stress that as much as they do.
Unlike boxing, which it is. You know,
Yeah.
it's weird how that works.
Well,
with
and
it.
I even feel like in MMA, like if you got the top 3 or 4, then it's a big marquee. Other than that, nobody
Yeah.
gives a shit.
yeah, it just like very unathletic. guys who couldn't make it in football, guys who,
Yeah.
But what about Woodley though? You think Woodley may have hit the wall?
Yeah,
Let's jump up. So obviously Gilbert Burns
what happened in the
completely
fight, right?
dominated.
Yeah.
Tyrone Woodley, from what I understand.
After Woodley has been completely dominated by Usman, but I mean
he's lost 10
Usman's
rounds
a
in
monster,
a row.
but he's that's the best way to put it. He's lost 10 rounds in a row.
And that's a lot of fight time for somebody.
For probably the second best champion at the division has ever had.
Well, I'd play GSP, Matt Hughes, then Woodley.
Okay.
I mean,
Matt Hughes.
Relatively, I think Woodley could beat Matt Hughes if they fought in their prime.
But resume wise,
Hughes was a good champion, but he's right up there with him. But I mean, Woodley though has fought the same fight. He backs against the fence. He looks to counter.
He's looking for that power punch.
Yeah, and you can't
he never
do
brings
that.
it really.
No.
Yeah.
And how long can you
He's
stare
gun
at a
shy
fighter?
with it.
You can't stare at these fighters that are working on you the whole fight. You just can't because they're racking up points.
They're scoring points. Yeah.
And eventually he's so transfixed by the output that he can't really find the perfect punch he needs to win the fight. And he has in the past, but I mean, when you have somebody who's studied, these people will have high-level camps.
Yeah.
They're not going into a Woodley fight, leaving openings that he could find as
Woodley
as well.
just doesn't. Even the last two fights, he just hasn't looked present.
No.
Like he doesn't have a fire inside him to win those fights anymore.
Completely agree.
Or he's hit a wall. I mean, who knows what's going on, but it just seems like whatever was there, 3 fights ago is just not there anymore.
Yeah, I didn't see this fight, but from the fights I saw previously, he doesn't look like he even really wants it. He wants to talk the shit, but he doesn't want to go for it when he's in there.
I guess though I could look at his fights now and realize though that the wins he had before these last losses, the stuff he's been doing has been it's the same shit, but it's just different fighters. The Damian Maia fights, he stuffed 18 takedowns from Damian Maia. Damian Maia doesn't have the skill set to take advantage of his bad tendencies.
It was never
he just doesn't.
Big challenge.
I love Damian Maia, but I mean he's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the full skill set.
Wonder Boy was probably the biggest challenge, and then they almost nullified each other the whole time.
Yeah, and that Till fight was his probably best performance.
Yeah.
Nothing really happened until Till came forward anyways, and then he got caught with that counter and dropped. So maybe
it seems like the division is just head and shoulders above where it was when he was reigning champion at the same time.
And the new crop of guys though, if you notice, are cardio machines. They have high output. They have good wrestling. They have good chins, and that's hard to beat for a guy like Woodley who will gas out if he's in a prolonged grappling exchanges. He doesn't throw a lot of output. He'll get outworked. That Colby fight's a bad fight for him.
Yeah, it's a terrible fight for him.
It's just hard to beat those guys.
Because Colby's all pressure.
Yeah, and he's all output.
Yeah.
He doesn't throw heavy shots, but he throws a lot of shots.
I don't know how much longer Woodley's career goes. I don't see him wanting to be a guy who's gatekeeping stuff, and I don't know if he's going to get back there. I mean, he might very well turn it around, but
he's 38 though.
That was what concerned me the most. I was like, man, it might just be the wall, dude. You're 38 years old.
Yeah, it's hard to make any big adjustments to your game, especially the lower you go.
But you've been fighting that long too. Like at that age, if you started fighting when you were 32, who knows? Maybe.
Yeah,
but
you could.
at that age,
he's the fighter
you've
he's
been
gonna
fighting
be
forever.
Yeah. And then you have
Romero though.
He's fucking.
It's just a freak of nature.
Yeah, but like Woodley though, he's fighting against a guy who's never been to the top, who's on his way up, who's streaking and has Gilbert Burns has knocked at Damian Maia. He's on his way up. It's about the hunger too. Eventually,
am I surprised Burns did that? No, because he was on a tear headed towards him. It wasn't really surprising that Burns. It's not like Burns came out of nowhere.
No,
but
I really didn't know much about him, to be honest. I can't even lie. Yeah. I didn't.
He, I think he's one of the most decorated BJJ guys in the whole UFC now. He's like ADCC champion. He was at lightweight for a while. He came up which is a good testament to weight cutting and how terrible it is for the sport.
So bad.
These guys are depleting themselves.
Who was the other guy that Woodley was supposed to fight a month?
He's supposed to fight Leon Edwards.
Leon Edwards. What's up with Leon Edwards?
He's stuck in Europe. He's stuck in England.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he. Reading today that they might have him fight for the title against Usman. He actually lost to Usman. It's the only person who's ever lost to.
Now, does the Burns fight make you think that Woodley would have lost to?
Yeah, I think so. Just because, I feel like anybody now that can replicate that sort of, if you have the style towards that high output, conservative, but pick your shots well on Woodley, you can get him in a trance. He lost to Jake Shields in a striking fight.
That's insane.
Back when he first came to the UFC.
That's insane.
Yeah,
that's maybe one of the worst strikers in MMA history.
He couldn't even
great fighter.
bust a grape. Yeah.
Yeah, great fighter, but he was all jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and like there was a striking fight he lost with just a basic. He lost to McDonald the same way, where he just got jabbed and looked at him for a while and got jabbed and the fight was over. So if you get him out of his rhythm and in a trance, you could sort of work on him and win the fight. I think that's always been a tendency of his. He's had favorable matchups where he could pull it off, but certain fighters are just bad matchups for Woodley. So
yeah, I will say, you said that you thought Leon Edwards was gonna fight Usman for the title, but they recently, Dana White has said, "Hey man, Gilbert Burns is maybe gonna get that fight."
Yeah, well, what I think it is that Gilbert Burns is hungry and he wants that title shot regardless. They're using Gilbert Burns as they're trying to
a negotiating.
Yeah, with like a Masvidal who's asking for X amount of dollars to fight this title fight. You have Burns who will fight him for the same contract.
Yeah,
it's easy decision. Say, well, if you don't take the fight, we're gonna give it to Burns.
Yeah,
it's a power play.
And I'll say, as much as I love Masvidal, like I love his personality, I love all that. He's on a little tear, but I mean Ben Askren.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well,
what are we talking about?
Can you blame
what are we
it?
talking
Maybe
about?
Masvidal knows what's up, and he's like, I better get paid for this because
people love watching me fight.
Usman's gonna take everything from me.
Right.
He probably knows. I mean, Masvidal's not the kind of guy who would admit that anybody's gonna beat him. But man, you can't feel good like you're just gonna run through Usman.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. It's a bad matchup for anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, especially like Masvidal's grappling is good, but Usman just has that pressure and he's hard to beat. And he doesn't have the greatest striking, but he's good enough to feet. He's not getting knocked out as fast as someone like Askren would.
Now also think about the fact that Usman, if he had two good knees, because he has bad knees.
Yeah. Does he?
Yeah, he's got terrible knees.
He has to work
really
out
bad.
in a pool. Like that's where he does cardio.
He doesn't run. He doesn't do a lot of things because he has such bad.
Connor has Connor doesn't do any red work too. That's why.
That's probably
there's
your.
Well, there's the thing.
Yeah. If you look at any boxer, any high level athlete, you gotta run. That's just how you get into fight shape, and you gotta do.
Well, I think the pool seems to be working for Usman.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be working for Usman.
His cardio ceiling might be higher than Connor's, anyways.
Right, which I would have to say.
Wrestling all your life too, I think you have a certain level of endurance in your body wrestling.
Right.
And that comes with its drawbacks. Your body's beat up from wrestling too all your life.
All his Irish ancestors drinking whiskey all the time.
Yeah. Well, Connor boxing. It's like. It's weird coming from a striking aspect in MMA because you just don't have a lot of the skills you need to succeed. Like you don't know how to cut weight if you're a striker. You don't have the wrestling. You don't have the hours in the room. The wrestling room.
Yeah,
it's hard to catch up to that gap. I think as a wrestler, you can learn striking faster.
I think I agree. I think wrestling is the best base to start with.
Yeah, if you started that when you were in 6th grade, you got 70% of it taken care of at that point.
Yeah, you have 15 years of combat. Experience before somebody who's
weight
doing
cutting,
karate.
the whole routine, everything.
It was somebody constantly touching you. You know what I mean? Like there's very few parts of a wrestling match where you're not touching the other person. You know what I mean?
But I guess
the grind for sure.
Yeah. The other way too, you see wrestlers who, if they can't get that takedown though, they'll gas out because they're out of their comfort zone too. I've seen it time and time again in MMA. They'll shoot for takedowns. They're not used to being on their back.
They want it so badly that
Well, I think it's because they don't put enough focus in. Those are the wrestlers that don't put enough focus into striking, and they think I'm going to be able to wrestle these guys and just win.
Yeah,
which is what Ben Askren did his whole career.
Yeah.
And then when you start putting him up against strikers, it's like, oh my God, he's just getting punched in the face repeatedly. Yeah. Even the Robbie Lawler fight, he was getting fucked up.
His chin's actually pretty good. Like that knee caught him, but like
and there's not a person on the planet that wouldn't have went out from that knee, man. I don't think anybody survives that knee.
That Lawler ground and pound was like something vicious.
Yeah, it's a testament to his chin that he didn't go out.
Yeah, like he came back and was in the fight. Of course, the fight was like fluky and weird. Yeah, it just was. It could have went on.
You could argue whatever you want with that.
Yeah, and like I wouldn't say that it's not a clear win, but it's not like he lost a fight. They could have probably stopped it with the ground and pound. Honestly,
yeah.
If they did, I wouldn't say that's a bad stoppage. But
I would say if that fight did continue, he was losing that fight.
Who Lawler versus
if the referee would have allowed Lawler to look like he was probably going to get up and suplex him.
Yeah. It can go either way. It depends because
it depends on if he was truly going to go out or not. Like,
yeah. But I feel like they should let him go out. Like,
I do too.
Well, let him go.
Yeah, especially since he said he was like talking why
Right.
it was happening.
Yeah.
The body language was pretty weird.
There was some weird. It looked like it
I don't
looked like
blame
maybe
the referee.
it looked like maybe there was a second where
He
went out but he woke immediately back up.
Pressure's not equal. It's not like if you shift a little bit your arm,
Yeah.
that pressure can relieve just enough to bring you back up.
Yes.
It's not all like one static amount of pressure. So it's hard to say whether it went out.
Nobody can really be blamed
Because
for what
it did look weird. No,
Right.
I don't blame the ref. I don't blame anybody.
All right, we're on this card now, right?
Yeah. I didn't watch prelims, so we're gonna start right at the top.
All right. That's fine.
So we're gonna start with Sean O'Malley versus Eddie Weinland. And-
Great performance.
Yeah.
I think Weinland. I haven't seen a lot of his like recent fights. I know he was a contender a while ago, maybe about 8 years ago.
Any relation to Scott Weiland?
Yeah, his brother. He was on heroin during this fight. We talked about it. It's sad, but no, yeah. Eddie Weinland. He's a good gatekeeper. He's
he's
He's been around for a long time.
He's kind of shot, and
he still has definite knockout power.
he does, but he sort of fights in that archaic old WEC sort
not
of file.
crisp.
Yeah,
He's got like that old timey eye. Like
Yeah.
he almost goes to
Yeah.
this sometimes.
But
does.
he throws those big looping hooks all day.
Yeah,
That's all he's got.
it's a buffet for somebody like Sean O'Malley who's young
Yeah.
and a great fight, great striker. It's
yeah, he was just waiting for that moment the whole time.
he
Yeah,
he did what he needed to do against Weinland in the way he needed to do it
Yeah.
to make
Yeah.
a point.
He made statements.
Right.
I will say he for sure made a statement when we were talking earlier about we may have seen two of the best walk-off knockouts in UFC
Right.
history. This was one of
Yeah,
them.
you thought there's no way that anybody's going to top that tonight.
Yeah.
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 That looked smooth. That looked like a movie. Like, that was cool.
Yeah, and he literally just stood over top of him for a second and then walked off.
Well, the guy, you could tell he was out. His face turns and he goes, all
oh
the way
yeah,
down.
he was for sure done.
But I did like more so than the knockout. The setup for the knockout was beautiful too.
Yeah,
with the way
he fakes
faded
that little uppercut.
and came over the top with it. And
Well, and actually, what was even crazier than the fake uppercut, when they did the replay, they were showing that his hips were actually showing kick as well.
Yeah, he
His hips were showing that he was going to
he
kick.
shifted his hips forward.
Yeah, but it was incredible. I love Sean O'Malley. I loved him from the fight that I saw where everybody thought he broke his foot in the fight. Like, I think halfway through the second round, and he still won the fucking fight,
Yeah.
and clearly won the fight.
That guy had the worst fight IQ I've ever seen in my life. He literally had Sean O'Malley on one leg and took him down. I don't know how. Like I don't know if you remember the fight. He spammed takedowns, and you should have kicked the leg. And
Yeah.
And that guy was low level, but that's where he was then too.
Yeah,
And I mean, if Connor's going to retire, how nice that we have another one.
a Sean O'Malley. Yeah,
You have a
but
Irish
probably a
name.
nicer one.
Yeah,
I heard he likes weed a lot too. That's
He
what I-
loves weed.
That's
He's a
been
video
his,
game.
His issue in MMA. It keeps running into snags.
he actually had the steroid positive test too that were like in his system.
Jeez.
Well, I mean,
But he also makes a living video game on Twitch.
Right.
Like
Really?
he makes a living playing video games on Twitch as
they
well.
should just let him fight with smoking weed while he fights.
I know
just
if you
put
were,
just put a blunt in his
I
mouth.
know if you were going to buy a stock in a fighter, though, it would be
It would be
O'Malley
him, and you should have
right
done it
now.
a month
Yeah,
ago.
you should have did it
20
his last fight.
25 years old too. And that's
Yeah.
so young for the division.
I will say that when I first saw the way they were exchanging, I was a little nervous because I was like, O'Malley looks good, but he also looks kind of blocky, and like he's not moving very fluid. Like at the very beginning, he looked very fluid. He came out with that kind of Conor McGregor, John Jones, hands on the
loose.
ground, and then threw that weird kick. And then for a little while, he looked a little bit more tightened up and kind of squared off.
Well, he's
Yeah.
got.
But then he obviously
He made
figured something out.
adjustments.
You
Yeah.
see where the good
obviously
ones
figured
figured,
something out.
the good ones figure him out. I think, I mean, he's just letting him do his thing and open up and like, all right, I got you.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
not a lot of guys in the division like based on his striking prowess because like bantamweight's not really grappling heavy. There's grapplers. There's someone like Jimmy Rivera.
It's also not knockout heavy.
Yeah, and he has a lot of like accuracy. He reminds me of like Israel Adesanya in terms of accuracy.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more flashy and less like staticky.
And I will say that's something again about Conor McGregor. People like he's got a lot of power, but he's also very accurate.
Yeah.
And the accuracy I think is what kills people.
It matters, yeah, because you not expending energy to throw punches is a big deal.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
more
look
you
at
miss-
Gaethje, you know.
Yeah, yeah. And Sean O'Malley looks like he's got just all of that intertwined.
I'd like to see. He needs a few different types of fights before I could see gauge him being champion. He needs to be in like a 3-round sort of back and forth, more competitive fight.
I actually still think he needs 2 or 3 fights.
Yeah, I think you need to put him, maybe even a guy at number 12 right now would be okay.
I think that would be good.
But maybe, even if
somewhere
even
right
if
outside 10 or above is what I would like to see.
Even if he smashes a
10 to
12
15.
guy, though, I don't think you leap him into 5.
No.
You go 8.
Yeah.
You see how he does, but to throw him up there right now, you're wasting a meteoric rise. That you're wasting a build of a star.
And who else is in this weight division? I'm sure you know off the top of your head.
Well, there's Jimmy Rivera. There's Rob Font, who's a great boxer. He's a like number 10. There's also a Sunchild coming off the loss, of course, to Garbrandt.
Yeah,
he's a good gatekeeper.
Marish. Well, that's
so then you obviously have Garbrandt.
Yeah, then you have those people in the back end. And John Dodson's also a bantamweight. He also is.
I think the Dodson fight would be good for.
Man, I think that's a great fight.
I think it's weird because I can't find a fighter who would present the challenges that I need to see from O'Malley.
Same thing with Ngannou. Like, I want to see him wrestled, but DC's the only guy.
And Blades, too, who already beat twice.
Yeah.
So it's you have to get in that top 7 to even find a stylistic matchup for Sean O'Malley.
But I'm not even worried about stylistic just because of the people that he's fought now. Even if it is somebody who is also known for their striking, I still want to see him against another really good striker.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't fought that level of competition.
Rob Font's a really good striker.
What happens when he gets hit a lot, too?
Yeah, you don't know.
Can he be?
You don't know how, like, if he doesn't land that knockout shot, how his power and his technique will carry throughout the whole 3 rounds. Right. Are you as accurate in the 3rd round? Can you put a guy away who's durable? If it doesn't come naturally, what are you going to do? What if you're tired? These are all things that you need to see from a fighter before you put him up there, because you have somebody like Francis. Of course, this is a different division, so it's kind of hard to compare. But, you didn't know his wrestling was that bad and his ground game was that bad until he actually got to the title fight.
Right.
And now it's like you look like a wasted prospect. Like Kyle was saying, you don't want to waste that development on somebody because...
they want to put him against Garbrandt, and I'm like, well, if you put him against Garbrandt, now you go from 2 stars on the rise, one back on the rise, whatever, 2 stars on the rise to 1. Yeah. Why do that?
And
Why
actually,
not?
that's what I was just
you
thinking
could avoid
about.
it easily. Yeah.
It's just what I was thinking about Dober, too. Like, Dober just beat a top 15 guy, so maybe that fight makes sense, and I would love to see it. But you can also build both these guys at the same time.
Yeah. Do it later.
And it's going to look better whenever they meet higher up. Than they meet
it's gonna sell like crazy when they're both 1 and 2 or 3 and 4.
And
that's a good call.
But you look at somebody like Aljamain Sterling, like if he would smash,
he's exciting.
He would take down O'Malley.
So that was the only fight. Is that the next one?
No. Magny.
All right. So let's say we are big fans of O'Malley, right?
Yeah.
Like he looks incredible. Yeah. We want to see a couple more fights before he gets to a title fight.
Yeah. I want to see him
3
properly.
or 4. I'd honestly like to see a 3 or 4.
I'd say Rob Font, who's number 10 or number 9 in the division now. Great boxing, young guy, not really worn out. Weinland's a good striker, but like I was saying, it's more of an archaic, old WEC type of striking.
O'Malley's definitely put himself on a fight night main event, though.
Oh, yeah.
He can be. He can be up. There's no way you ever put him on an undercard period.
That's not
again.
co-main at least. I mean,
I'm saying even
for a fight night. I mean, you would want.
I'm saying even a pay-per-view. You're never putting him on an undercard.
No.
Yeah.
Well, you compare next week's main event, which is Jessica Guy versus Cynthia Calvillo, which is a terrible main event. I mean, O'Malley has 10 times the star power either of those fighters have.
He could probably fight on that card.
Yeah, he's ready. He should fight both of them actually.
At the same time.
But it's this card has done a great job building the bantamweight division in a time when people are watching, because this division is more exciting.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's just as exciting as lightweight now. I think me and Kyle talked about it earlier on Facebook.
It creates some of the best fights, so what a good time to do it when everybody's paying attention.
It was actually smart to stack a bantamweight card like this because it was one of the lesser divisions. Before this card, I think it started to get bigger with Cejudo as champion. Yeah. But like you think about 2 years ago.
But then all of a sudden you pay attention to these guys. You're like, there's a fucking
killers,
ton of killers in this fucking category.
Yeah. So like I'd say a Rob Font or Jimmy Rivera would be a good fight if he does want to take that top 10, leap, because Jimmy Rivera is a great grappler, can phase well in and out of striking and grappling, durable, doesn't really get put away easily, and like I just want to see him in an award like that before, because you get to the top. And it's like if you face
smothered,
Jose Aldo, and it's like it's Jose Aldo. I don't care if he's 33
it's
or
a different
34
level
now.
of striking.
It is, yeah.
Kyle, you really brought a guru over here. You really did. I mean, I had invited him to come on the podcast for Gathering of Fools fairly recently, and it didn't work out. But I knew he was an MMA fan. I didn't know he had this much knowledge.
I was like, yeah, I mean, he could be able to hang with us, if not more.
Probably more than both of us, and we're big fans. He's got like an encyclopedia of knowledge going through his head.
Only sport I like is MMA, so I guess I have a lot of mental.
I got a lot of football taking it up too.
Right.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, you're like the poor man's Joe Rogan. You only watch fights.
Yeah. Well, I always say I always bring up Junior Seau as like a favorite player. I know he's dead, which is terrible. That's a terrible fucking joke. But like Junior Seau is my favorite, and he's not. He's been dead for like 10 years.
I love Junior Seau.
Yeah. I
don't even know who's playing today.
Yeah. Literally the last time I played.
But I hope it's Junior Seau.
Yeah. Fucking Steve Young and like is my frame of reference for football. Like playing with my dad on Tecmo Super Bowl when I was like a little kid. But anyways, yeah.
That's fucking great. All right, well let's.
This next fight was close as shit though.
I actually didn't pay enough attention to this one.
It wasn't that great.
Magny, as good as he looked in his last fight.
He looked good agaast Lee.
Yeah, his last fight he looked.
His last fight he looked kind of incredible. I was
he poured it on him too.
Yeah.
He was potent with his offense.
This he didn't look as good. I mean, I think he won the fight. It's close though.
His ceiling has been.
Yeah, it's just like you're seeing about his ceiling every time.
He can't really
like
establish
it's like
power.
he does something great, and then all of a sudden the next fight it's like, okay, now you barely won or you lost.
Yeah.
Okay,
and like he doesn't have enough power to really. Not
peppers
stop
people
fighters.
with a lot of shots. Though.
He's just technical.
It's a Diaz kind of deal, like.
But
Diaz will eventually. The Diaz will eventually rock you with those pitter pats.
And I don't think he could. The pressure isn't as immense as a Diaz fight.
Yeah.
Like he has the output, but there's not enough pressure that like gets him tired enough to really get
not as accurate with shots either, probably.
Yeah.
And I don't know. He's a good fighter, but he's like one of the better gatekeepers at welterweight.
Yeah. Hopefully he knows that role. But it was so crazy though because the last fight I saw him and I was like, man, he looks like he's trying to become a contender.
Ahead,
Like, hey, maybe he needs to take the next step finally. Yeah. And then all of a sudden now you guys are telling me this one did not go so well.
It's weird he actually beat Kelvin Gastelum at welterweight. That's a weird. It's weird because Kelvin in my mind is a top level fighter.
But yeah, he won the Ultimate Fighter where I thought initially that nobody was ever going to touch Uriah Hall.
No.
Yeah.
Uriah Hall looked like he was the second coming of Anderson Silva, but with crazy power.
Yeah, and Uriah Hall is like the biggest mental case I've seen in MMA.
It's the only reason I think he's not the best.
Yeah.
I really would have wished that fight would have happened with him and
Jacare.
Yeah.
Well, Jacare is a step slower than he was.
I think it's the twilight years for Jacare.
But it would have been nice to see him fight somebody of that caliber because it's like Uriah Hall. One fight looks like the best fighter you've ever seen, and then the next fight,
he doesn't want to be there.
And the next fight looks like he doesn't even want to fight ever in his life.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's getting older. Like, it's weird that I think about Uriah Hall as like a newer fighter in my head.
I do too.
I've been watching him so long,
Same,
but he's been around for
because you're waiting
9 years
for him to take the step.
He's one of those fighters that you've been waiting for him to take the step the whole time. And you're like, well, he's gonna do it, right?
Probably in another couple of years
because he's got too much talent to
he's
not do it.
34 now, and
that's fucking crazy.
That's probably around because Ultimate Fighter. I think I watched like season 10.
2013. I think he was on there with.
I think that was like the last season I watched.
Chael Sonnen.
Yeah, I believe that's who it was. And I was rooting for the other guy that he was fighting when he did that crazy roundhouse fucking kick. Yeah. Because the only reason being is because I moved to this area from St. Louis and that guy was from St. Louis.
Oh, wow.
It's the only reason I was rooting for him. I was like, oh, that guy's from St. Louis. I'll root for him.
Very
he looks like this guy should kill him.
Yeah.
But that's I'm gonna root for him. He's from St. Louis. And then he pulled off the most impressive kick knockout I may have ever seen in my life.
Sickening. It was a very sickening knockout.
It was disturbing. Like afterwards, you're like, he might be dead.
Was he like the guy on the ground?
He was just going.
Yeah, that's.
And then he's awkward. He's like
breathing like Darth Vader, but like it was actually a real struggle.
Everybody in the room was like, they were all like,
he's dead.
My favorite part of that sequence was like it was real quiet, and he's just like, "Sorry, Adam."
Yeah.
Like I mean, it's a nice gesture,
and that is who. But that also is who he is. He's very quiet and monotone, and but I did love
that probably was his downfall. That knockout though, and destroying that guy's.
Oh, it might have been his downfall.
I don't want to do that to people.
Like
I'm a peaceful guy. I've been a video game nerd my whole life, and I just almost killed a man.
Yeah, it's just like if he would have won less spectacularly, he would have had a better career, maybe. You know?
I did love the after he did the knockout though, the Street Fighter. He did like the Hadouken.
Then the sorry though, you got to do.
He hit him with his full foot, right?
The heel. It was the heel. No, it was a spinning. Fucking,
right.
And he hit him with the heel and just.
The only cleaner one I've seen in a while is the Barboza Terry Edom knockout when he wheeled.
That was back in the day too.
Yeah,
it's been a while. I remember being in some shithole bar watching that. Like they were illegally renting fights at the same.
It was insane. It was. Those are probably the two best kick knockouts I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean Mirko Krokop back in the day, but they weren't as spectacular of a kick. They was just.
This is really old school. The Eve Edward knockout where is it maybe Matt Serra where he sort of pushes him. And like he's turned around, and he comes out the side of his head with a fucking.
I don't recall.
Yeah,
that.
I don't recall that one at all.
Look it up when you guys have a minute, but it's pretty awesome. But yeah, Eve Edwards versus Matt Serra, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
he knocked Serra out.
I think it was. I would have to find her that shit, but it was an Eve Edward knockout.
Yeah.
You probably could look it up real fast. I don't know. Fuck it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Actually, I'll try to look it up real quick. That's a good idea. Let me get to
look it up.
Let me get to YouTube.
It's probably
here.
on YouTube because all that shit's lawless UFC pre-Zufa. No one cares if it's just on YouTube.
All right, so it was.
I'd imagine it is. Yeah.
Eve Edward versus Eve Edward head kick.
Is it IVE or
YVES?
It's
YVES.
Yep, Edwards. If you just type in head kick, it would be. He's fought
head kick.
Yeah. He's fought fucking everybody. He fought Masvidal back in Bodog, I think. Josh Thompson, actually, yeah, that's it right there.
That's it.
Yeah, play it. Yeah, I thought it was Matt Serra. I don't know why. I know they fought though, so it's actually a pretty spectacular knockout.
I'm actually looking forward to seeing this. Oh, I forgot we don't have the sound.
That's all right.
Oh
yeah. Fucking sick, dude.
Yeah,
that's
that
a
was
great
crazy.
win too. That's like prime fucking Josh Thompson, who was
I'm gonna rewind that a little bit so I can catch it. I was trying to worry about the sound, which ended up being techno. So who the fuck cares? That was crazy. Yeah,
that song was actually playing in the arena.
He just put his hand on his shoulder and kicked his own hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that's a great knockout. But that's one of the better head kick knockouts.
Look at Joe Rogan's hair. Did you see that?
Well, I was looking at
that testosterone. When you start taking out your hair and your head gets big and your hair falls out and shit.
When I was looking at the young pictures of Dana White the other day, and he just looks like a fool.
Yeah, he has
trying
like
to
a
hold
gap
on to
in his
that
tooth
hair.
back in the
Yeah.
day. Like he looks like and he's so meek and quiet, like in comparison to who you develop.
And real quick on Joe Rogan, I do have to say, I don't care TRT or not. It's insane that at 50 some years old, he has the highest recorded kick power of all time.
He still does?
Yeah. Nobody's beat it. He did it recently in jeans.
Yeah. That's a weird thing to fucking cultivate too. You think like very specific, like the strongest kicker. Yeah, just randomly Joe Rogan, the comedian.
Yeah, like he's not even. He doesn't fight. Like why does he?
Yeah, but he's trained his whole life. Because I mean, he was a Taekwondo national champion.
But why isn't some fighter passed him up with that kick? Like, why is it that kick that he's so good at?
Yeah, like you think Kung Lee or somebody.
Well, that was just a regular like body kick he was doing. What he's actually famously known for is his spinning back kick. And because he actually
taught GSP it.
George St. Pierre. It's a funny story because they say it on this podcast when he had George St. Pierre on. He's telling George St. Pierre like, "Hey, so who's this coach? Faraz Sahabi?"
Yeah.
So he's like, Faraz Sahabi approached me and was like, "Hey, I need to find somebody that can teach George St. Pierre a spinning back kick. Do you know anybody?" And Joe was like,
"I happen to know the best."
Honestly, weirdly enough, this is gonna sound crazy, but that's like my thing. Like I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
And he said so he had me train him. And George St. Pierre, he's telling him the story on the podcast, and George goes, "Oh, he played you." He's like, he knew you were the best at it. He told me before he asked you that, hey, I'm going to get Joe Rogan to teach you the spinning back kick.
But yeah, it's like you think like a Barboza would fucking
somebody,
yeah, like just a man who fights for.
Maybe they have too much else to work on, and Joe's
what's that guy's name?
Yeah, just do one kick.
Yeah, Joe's down there in his basement doing one kick for 10 hours
just on elk meat, just hyped up.
But that spinning back kick isn't the one he recorded it with. He just recorded it with like a normal like body kick, and that's what he recorded with. But you would think maybe somebody like back in the day, he was probably too old before they had the technology to test it. Though they used to talk about Pedro Hizo,
his leg kicks.
His leg kicks. Like you would think maybe that was the guy. You know what I mean? But they might not have had the technology to record it.
There's just fighters who like were around before the Ultimate Fighter. That's like Pedro Hizo. He like falls through the cracks in any discussion, and like even myself, who I love MMA. I've not seen a lot of his fights. I've seen clips. Yeah, and like
I've just heard people talk about his leg kicks.
Yeah,
they talk about him like the craziest thing you've ever seen.
It's sad because these guys like busted their ass when there's no money, just like tough as shit.
So I was saying, man, if UFC was like if I was 7 years old and UFC is where it was now, that's what I'd have aimed for. But back then it wasn't like I'm not going to the NBA of fighting. There isn't one. Yeah. So like I didn't. It wasn't something I thought was like a career choice.
When did you start watching, Kyle? Do you remember?
Heavily was around Liddell Rampage.
Yeah.
That was probably when I started heavily. I was slight, you know what I mean? When it first started as a kid, when it was illegal, I was really into it and would rent them, you know what I mean? But it became really hard to find after that.
Well, it went into like the dark age.
So yeah.
How about you, Dave? When did you start watching it?
I'd seen many beforehand, but when I truly started watching MMA is when I saw Anderson Silva fight.
Forrest 101?
No, way before that. Chris Leben.
Oh yeah.
Because what I did know of MMA is I loved Chris Leben because he was just like this barbarian.
Yeah.
You know, he just went out there and laid it all out there. Like
he didn't lay in a punch in that fight.
He knocked out that one guy. I forget the guy's name, but the guy backed up because he thought he had Leben rocked, and he put his hands up like this, and then Leben just walked at him like a zombie and knocked him out. He just walked forward like, and knocked him out.
Leben has some good wins though.
He had some good wins.
He knocked out Wanderlei, which is a good. I mean,
he didn't do great in the UFC, but it was still great. And Chris Leben put on a lot of exciting fights. I forget who the two were, but he beat two people in 2 weeks. In the UFC, he beat two people in 2 weeks.
He beat Brian Stan.
Where was
it Brian Stan? And then right back Sexyama?
Yeah, he triangled Sexyama at UFC. The Carwin Brock card, that card.
Yeah, but before that was the same card as that. When he beat Sexyama was the same card as Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen 1.
Was it?
Yes, I watched it. I watched it at Marky Tiberio's house. Silva but he fought like 2 weeks before that and also won. Yeah. And then took that fight.
Where is Silva Leben in relation to like UFC 100? Like how
before
long
that?
Before?
Way before.
How long before?
I mean, let's look it up.
I think that fight was 2005. Was Silva Leben because he won the title. In the
100
next fight
is probably 2008 or 9.
Yeah, 2008. I started watching. I think
because 100's when I really was into it. Like when 100 started, because other people started getting friends of mine started getting into it after 100.
Yeah.
So like I had places to go to really watch it. Like I started really getting into it, Rampage, Liddell, but like I didn't catch them all because not everybody was into it. But after 100, I'd always had the place to watch the fights after that.
It was a kind of a bubble with MMA with how big it was for a while.
Yeah, it got big and then kind of went, and now I think it's back. Like I think it became even like hardcore fans when it blew up to where like it was more than one pay-per-view a month. It was like, man, this is getting hard to keep up with. I kind of tuned out for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because I come from the days when it was one pay-per-view a month and then it became like 3 events a month and I'm like, I don't have time.
And then you have to have certain channels to watch every fight. And
and it was very spread out. Now everything's in one place. It's a little easier. I can go back and just play it the next night if I miss it.
So Chris Leben versus Anderson Silva was UFC Fight Night 5.
2005?
It was I don't see 2006.
Okay.
Fight Night 5, and it was the right before UFC 64.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how long I really started paying attention. When I first saw Anderson Silva, I was like, what are we talking about? This dude's living in the fucking Matrix.
Yeah. Well, because after 100 was, I think 101 was Forrest Silva, and that was the Matrix.
Forrest Silva was 100. That was one on the undercard of 100.
No, it was 101, I believe.
Well, let's find out.
Yeah,
I mean, it's right. We're right here.
I believe it was 101. Because I think I watched 100 at somebody else's house, and I rented 101
it was
myself.
UFC 101.
Was it?
Yep, yeah. UFC 101, 2009.
Who main evented that card?
Let's take a look.
Silva and Griffin, or BJ Penn and Florian.
Yeah, BJ Penn, Kenny Florian.
I thought Florian was going to win that fight. I was like, oh, that was actually the last good.
That was the height of Florian's career, probably.
BJ Penn used to be so good.
Oh yeah.
Oh man,
he was
so
GSP
good. It's
level,
crazy.
Yeah.
What happened?
It's
like
sad.
all of a sudden, like he fought Frankie Edgar and was like, "I'm never going to be able to beat that guy." So now I suck.
That fight was the first fight was really close. The second one, Edgar won pretty convincingly, but the first fight was very close.
Frankie Edgar is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, he's hard to root against.
He's just a workhorse, man. Yeah. I mean, he was a dominant lightweight champ and never belonged fighting there.
He's fighting.
No,
he's actually
never belonged fighting there.
He's actually fighting Pedro Munoz, the one who knocked out Cody Garbrandt.
Knocked out Cody.
Yeah, he's fighting him at 135 now. He's cutting down. So.
It's just so tough to watch a fight. I mean, he's still really good, but it's like, dude, you're not going to regain where you were at. Like you people should give you more recognition for what you did.
Right.
Your fight, your 2 fights against BJ Penn and your 3 fights against Gray Maynard are some of the best fights in UFC
to reign
history.
at lightweight at your size for as long as he did.
He never belonged fighting there. Like he's now in his older age, he's still able to make the cut easily for 135.
Right.
What are we talking about?
He had no choice.
He
at
never
the time.
belonged fighting there. They just didn't have a weight division. And you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy is he was on MTV True Life. I Want to Be a Cage Fighter.
I think I remember that back in the day.
Yeah.
Well, so was Pettis.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was.
It might have been. They might have did 2 of them, and Pettis was on the second one, but he was on one.
And Poirier was on some sort of like MMA documentary back in the day too.
Yeah.
About like that regional fight scene in Louisiana, I believe.
But MTV True Life, you don't expect anybody from MTV True Life to make anything.
I used to love those shows.
Yeah, but you didn't expect it to like actually see those people become famous, and he became the champion in a weight division he didn't belong in.
Those Benson Henderson fights were really good too.
Yeah, the Benson Henderson fights were good too.
Benson Henderson's underrated. I know Kyle doesn't like him.
He just bored me to tears.
But he was like, I think about matchups and like
he's got the biggest legs I've ever seen.
He was like Woodley of the lightweight division.
But he actually like stylistically, Prime Benson Henderson matches up really well with Khabib. His grappling was like another level though.
Where is Ben? Where did Ben?
He's in
Bellator. Yeah, doesn't do great.
I think he's about to fight. I think he has like two wins in a row. I think he beat Miles Jury his last fight maybe. But yeah, I think he's not doing
good
great.
for him.
I know. Yeah, fucking
good for you. You beat Miles Jury. Crazy.
That's the best competition there though. Fucking, what can you do?
Yeah, I agree.
The pool is very
I can't
very.
beat Miles Jury. I don't know.
I did pull up this. I found this clip right here of Pedro Hizzo's leg kicks. This was him. Actually, it's not amazing because it's a journalist that he's doing it to, but it's still crazy to see.
Thiago Alves had nasty leg kicks too.
Oh, it's not actually the video. Look at that.
Thiago Alves was a pit bull, man.
Yeah,
he was obviously on steroids. He was so juiced up.
Yeah, fucking clearly. Let's skip ahead just a little bit here. All right, this is Pedro Hizzo. We were talking about the crazy leg kicks.
How you gonna shit on Fedor and bring up Pedro Hizzo, who Fedor knocked out as when they were old men together?
Yeah, but the only thing I know about Pedro Hizzo is he has crazy leg kicks.
Yeah, he was champion for. I think he got knocked. He got knocked out by Barnett, I believe.
He's definitely got some accolades. All right, they're doing all this bullshit. No,
he did it.
He kicked him lightly, but he kicks him with this pad in a minute here. Hold on, let me go back. There we go.
Oh, he just got him with the shin.
Yeah, he was just letting him know what the shin was going to feel like. In this video, I know he picks up the pad.
Now it's all calf kicks. There's no
leg
kicks like that ever again. Wow.
Flipped him.
That's amazing.
Probably didn't help the guy jump, too.
He did jump, but, he was scared.
Yeah.
But still. And you could also tell he wasn't throwing full force there.
You gotta think about even like foot stomps. You take for granted how much that shit would hurt. Or,
I
knees to the thighs and shit like that.
I think foot stomps are the worst thing in MMA. Like if somebody did that to me, I'd freak the fuck out. Don't stomp on my feet. Are you out of your fucking mind? What's wrong with you?
It's like when people like are kneeing someone's thigh against the cage. I'm like, that looks like it's like a little bitch move there a little bit, but also
dude, your thighs
even the knees,
hurt.
when they're in side control and the person's on their stomach or on their hands and knees, and they start fucking rocking them with those knees to the ribs.
Yeah.
They're up looking at it.
Golly.
Yeah, it's surprised you don't see fights end with those sometimes.
Yeah, like I feel like I'd take 2 of those and be like, no, he's not doing that to me anymore.
I mean, body strikes in general are pretty underrated at MMA. Like, there's people that use them pretty well, but then you look at somebody like Donald Cerrone, who every time he gets hit in the body, he like loses and like curls up.
Who is the guy with
Matt Brown too? Always gets
the
hit in the
silver
body.
hair. He did it twice in a row, I think.
What?
He had silver hair. I can't remember.
Are you talking about Dennis?
No, not Dennis Seaver.
Whatever happened to Dennis Seaver? His back body kicks were.
Connor.
He fought Conor McGregor. Was like, I don't want to
play
do MMA anymore.
That was a fucking fight though. That
he had a killer.
Melvin Gillard.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That dude was the biggest front runner too.
Man, I thought he was gonna be something great. I thought he was gonna get it together. He's gonna get it together. He's gonna get it together.
He would get rear naked choked by a fucking turtleneck sweater. Like he would tap out because he would always get rear naked choked no matter what. And same thing with Rumble Johnson's. Dude, if he doesn't win the fight, he gives up and just gets rear naked choked. Like he
gave up against DC.
That was the worst fight IQ I've seen in a while. Like watching that fight was so frustrating because he was doing well on the feet. Then he shot a fucking takedown on Cormier. Like,
why?
What
are you doing?
But Melvin Gillard fought Israel Adesanya actually and lost.
Really?
Yeah, well, I believe that.
Yeah, but like it was a blown up like fucking fat version.
Was
of
it some
Melvin.
other organization?
Yeah, right before
Yeah.
Izzy came to the UFC, he fought Melvin. But yeah, that's where he's at in his career, just fighting fucking 185-pound fights for no
taking
reason.
checks.
Yeah, whatever he could do.
Well, I think he ran into Joe Lozon, and Lozon dropped him and then choked him out in that fight.
I like Joe Lozon a lot too. I like him a lot.
Well, his fucking son was like sick for a while, and it's whenever I see kids, especially I have a kid. I don't know if you know. Carl also has a kid, so he probably relate a little bit. But when you see someone with like sick kids, or their kids are like needs like
something's going on.
Yeah, you're just like, all right,
Yeah,
how am
you
I
can
gonna root?
excuse them going on a skid there.
Yeah, and you can't root against somebody whose kid is like has cancer. Like you just
Yeah, you just can't.
Like,
you got to root for that person.
Yeah,
like you're fighting for way more than we can imagine.
Yeah, so it's hard to like somebody like that always endears them to me. So I always root for them going on.
Let's try to get back on track a little bit.
Sorry.
It's all right. No, hey, dude, I fucking love it. I really do. So we got Aljamain Sterling.
The next, Magny.
Sterling.
Yeah,
which is not
Aljamain,
much to talk about with Aljamain Sterling.
And Corey Sandhagen, which a lot of people were high on Corey Sandhagen, and Aljamain Sterling basically
railroaded him.
Well, and we had to because it was our stream was skipping. I mean, we paid for it, but we were streaming it from my brother's phone.
So you gotta say on your podcast you paid for it.
And we did. We did pay for it, but he was streaming it from his phone to the Google, whatever the fucking Google stream service one is.
You have all this technology in this
Chromecast
room. And
Chromecast, yeah. He was streaming it to Chromecast, and it was just skipping. So we tried to back out and go back in, and by the time we went back in, it was over. Yeah. So I'm assuming he just grappled him right away.
He came out really fast, like real fast. Like
Any strikes?
A little bit of like
a little bit of setup, but he just overwhelmed him and took his back.
He tried to get into cage and shoot a takedown, and Corey sort of circled out a little bit, but also gave up his back. And Aljamain got a backpack on him real fast.
Yeah, did he locked at a body triangle?
He was locked around his waist, and he was going nowhere.
I think it was like a minute 24 it ended, I believe.
Yeah, which is crazy. Just straight up ran up on you and submitted you. Yeah. That doesn't happen too often, where somebody just runs up on you immediately and submits you.
And that's also
especially against a guy who was. I mean, he's good. Yeah, that's not supposed to happen to him.
Yeah, like. He's beat a bunch of good guys. He beat John Lineker, who's a very good bantamweight. He beat Sunchild too, his last fight.
Sterling did? Or Sandhagen? Sandhagen, yes. Yeah. Right.
So, but also I like that kind of win too, because Corey Sandhagen doesn't really look as bad as he can. Like, you could always improve your BJJ enough to not get in those positions. Yeah. When you're getting starched, it's kind of like a bigger detriment to your skill set. And
it doesn't throw him down the rankings.
Yeah, he's young. I think he's only 26, 27 maybe. So he has time to grow as a fighter.
But Aljamain has put himself into the unquestionable number one contender.
Yeah, he has to be fighting for title.
It's honestly kind of crazy that it's going to be Jose Aldo versus Jan.
Why? Yeah, I don't understand why Aldo's in the picture.
I do believe that Aldo, and I do believe Aldo won that fight that he won, but that still doesn't put him as the number one contender.
No, if you're going to make Aldo a contender, I don't understand why you just don't give Cruz a shot, because of what Cruz has been through. And it's like,
it becomes
he was in that fight with Cejudo, and Cejudo's gone, so that question can't be answered.
Yeah.
So let's see if
God, you forget that you have Cruz still in this mix too. This is a fucking great
this decade.
I mean, who knows what Cruz is going to decide to do,
but Peter Yan too. I mean, he last beat Uriah Faber. Like, I mean, it's very underwhelming to have these fighters fighting in like hungry ass like Sandhagens and Sterlings. Then you have Peter Yan who last fought Faber. And it's
why is he above Sterling?
Right, and like
his striking does look extremely impressive.
I'm not saying he's not that quality, but
you haven't beat the same quality of talent.
But they kind of suck. The guys under you have kind of sucked the air out of your acclaim. You know what I mean?
It does. It was sort of how Ferguson was getting too, because his wins started to look bad in retrospect because he wasn't fighting often. He beat a Cowboy who also got beat by. And
that 12 streak doesn't have a whole lot of
He got beat by
beat
by Connor with shoulders.
Right.
That's crazy.
So that Cowboy win kind of looks,
suspect, maybe.
I guess you could always play like the devil's advocate about someone's streaks though, and come back and sort of discredit wins. It's easy to do that, especially if the fighters go on to lose after you beat them. Then they look like shit. Like that Ferguson versus Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee hasn't been the greatest fighter since then. He's had like a good win.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of question of Gaethje may have exposed Ferguson a little bit.
There's a big question with that.
His boxing.
I'm gonna piss real quick. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah, his boxing looked shoddy in comparison to Gaethje's.
Without a doubt.
And you got to think that Ferguson wasn't fighting the best people either.
I think we looked at Ferguson's win streak and like Barboza was on there.
That's a good win, but also
a decent win. But it wasn't. You didn't see anybody that was like
Pettis, who was also
superstars or anything.
Pettis was a good win, but Pettis hasn't looked.
But
great
Pettis
either.
was giving him a great fight.
He was.
Like
yeah.
I felt like Pettis had every chance to win that fight up until he broke his hand.
Yeah.
And I like looking back, like. After Gaethje, looking back, you start to wonder maybe Ferguson was a little overhyped. I mean, it's his toughness is unquestionable, but like as far as his technical abilities, that might have been a little overstated.
And whenever you can't get the fight into where you want it, and I feel like Ferguson's grit sort of wore on people. And whenever you found a fighter, he couldn't do that.
That was his game. Yeah. He beat everybody by just being there longer
and being more persistent as time went on.
And he couldn't do that with Gaethje.
Because he was getting rocked when he came in. He just was getting outworked in the boxing range, and you can't. Whenever you're getting busted up, you can't have that kind of fight. And whenever that dude's taking less damage, Ferguson always give more damage than he's taken.
Right.
Always.
Right. So when you're taking the total amount of damage and the guy's picking his shots precisely, you can't expect that he's going to be so worn down in the fifth that you're just going to be able to throw him down and elbow him.
And someone like Pettis, who the mental game of Pettis, he's so skilled, but you look at that fight, and he just kind of like. His hand broke, which obviously that's a shit end of the deal. It just, MMA is full of shit like that where someone breaks, you can't help it. It's a fight. Fair play to both people, but mentally too, he kind of checked out a little bit. Like it's just once his hand broke, fair play. What can you do when your hand's broke? You can't really fight to the fullest extent. But Gaethje wasn't checking out that fight. He wasn't getting discouraged or whatever, even after the knockdown. So I mean, it's easy to discredit wins and. It's a game you can play with everybody. You can go back and say, well, Dan Hardy, he went on a losing streak after GSP, but that was a good win at the time. You could do it with a lot of fighters, and it's not fair to the fighter because they can only fight the best people possible.
I will say that fight against GSP was the craziest thing I ever saw because I don't know how Dan Hardy did not
he's
submit.
Tough as shit.
He's tough as shit. He was ripping his arm off.
Yeah,
he was literally yanking on it.
Yeah.
Like, how are you...
He should have just broke it. GSP's too nice to break Dan Hardy's arm for no reason.
He's too nice because he definitely could have broke it.
He knew he was winning. He knew that he could just take it down again. But fuck, I mean,
he literally walked up to him after the fight was over and like grabbed his arm and like shook it. Like, hey, is this arm okay?
Yeah, I think after the fight too, they were talking. He's like, I don't know how you didn't tap out or whatever. And like I said, Dan Hardy went on a skid, and fighters go on skids after big fights like that. And you could always say, well, he wasn't a great win, but at the time that was a good win. It just was objectively. That time his ranking, his spot was good,
Yeah.
So you can't, you got to take for the fight for what it was. Like Barboza too, Ferguson versus Barboza. That was a great win at the time. Barboza lost a bunch since then, but Barboza was still that Barboza in a good ranking.
The thing with Ferguson,
and he's still that Barboza.
Yeah.
He's just
limited.
With Ferguson
bad
Gaethje, though, I wonder why Ferguson didn't try to. I know Gaethje's wrestling is what it is, but. Why Ferguson has been in many positions
because he's a crazy person.
Where he's on his back and he cuts people. Like Ferguson being on his back isn't the worst position he can be in. No. So why, when he saw that he was losing the stand-up game, why didn't he try to take it down earlier? And
because he's a crazy person.
Throw a Hail Mary there,
Because he's a crazy person.
And also,
it was scary when they finally did call the fight. When he was shaking his head like that, I was like, something is
brain
wrong.
damage.
Something is wrong. Stop this.
I think he was trying to just keep himself conscious.
And it's hard to shoot it on somebody who has good footwork, who's peppering you shots, who has a good understanding of distance. It's hard to really get in on a shot like that and actually initiate grappling exchanges. Because I think he went for like a little bit of grappling and close clinch work.
I think he wanted to here and there.
But his wrestling is more about scrambles. And same with Gaethje. Gaethje isn't really an offensive wrestler. I don't think Ferguson really shoots for takedowns. He took down fucking maybe.
Did he take Pettis down? I know they were on the ground.
I think they had a scramble. It's always scrambles.
And right. He's not clearly going for a takedown.
Yeah, it's always like
just not his thing.
Slip or things happen. Someone gets rocked. That's a lot of his.
His thing is his awkward stand up.
Right.
His awkward stand up is what his thing
around
is.
The fight. But whenever Gaethje fights a disciplined fight where he's not in bad position, his feet aren't getting tangled up, he's not taking bad shots and having these weird sort of angles and out of place, it's hard to really get in on somebody without getting fucking rocked in as soon as you come into the boxing range.
He just looked like the best fighter I've seen in a long time in that fight.
Yeah,
he really did.
And
it was ridiculous.
Those leg kicks are really going to fuck Khabib up if he could land a few of them.
Yeah,
fuck everybody up.
And he lands them from weird angles. He lands them close.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people can't land them close.
Telephone booth and actually whip leg kicks.
Right, and he's because he's just good with that hip action, and telephone booth, and he can still hit you with a serious leg kick.
What I don't
hook you in the
what
face.
I don't like about the Gaethje fight is that it's going to be a really, really obvious who wins as a few minutes in, because if Gaethje is on his back, we've never seen really Gaethje wrestle a lot.
Right.
He has. It's a big question mark in his.
It's a question mark in the MMA world.
If he can
it's
keep
not a question mark in
scrambling
just,
up.
Yeah.
Right. If he accepts position on his back, I don't think his BJJ is there.
Or
to threaten.
Or if his defense is good enough that he just can't be taken down by Khabib.
Yeah.
Because it's a possibility.
Yeah.
You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
It's a possibility.
Especially in open match.
Do I find it likely? I feel like no matter what, Khabib's going to take him down a couple times during the fight.
You're going to end up on your butt at least once.
Yeah.
It just depends on what you do when that
But it's like Chuck Liddell. Nobody could take Chuck Liddell out.
Yeah.
They couldn't because he just completely sprawled. You went for his legs and he laid down.
And he was good at it too. That's why
he was good because he was a wrestler, but he was also a kickboxer, and he just used his wrestling specifically to sprawl, like just throw his legs behind him as fast as he could and lay down on top. But
Tito was like the best fucking guy he fought as a wrestler. Like that weight division back then was pretty putrid.
Chael always says he's like Gaethje's actually wrestling the whole time. You know what I mean?
Because wrestling is not just
his wrestling is keeping you from wrestling him. Like that's the whole point.
I know when he was more reckless, he got taken down by. I think Poirier took him down to Alvarez. So it's not like he's better now. So I'll just chalk that up to being reckless and being in bad positions foot-wise.
And we'll see what happens when the crowd gets back, because I feel like he is somebody who really benefited from listening to his corner and being able to hear them that clearly.
I trust his camp too will do their homework on Khabib. Khabib has
I mean, he's got the best.
When they just did that podcast, him and his coach on Joe Rogan, and it was really awesome to hear.
Whitman's a great coach.
He's a great coach, man.
He's got a lot of champions.
He's got a lot of focus. He
Rose,
realized
Rose too. He did great things with Rose.
Yeah. He realized that when he was trying to do this mass amount of fighters, he wasn't doing his fighters justice. So he closed it back down. I was like, I'm going to focus on a couple fighters so that I can really.
Sort of how like Dwayne Ludwig and T.J. Dillashaw. Sort of that sort of close one-on-one.
It's your guy.
Where it seems like Mark Jackson and Winklejohn fell apart.
Yeah. Well, that camp is. They have nobody good now. Like the Winklejohn.
Seems like they fucked everything up.
Yeah, like Condit's there, who's fucking who he is now, and then like there's like maybe Dotson's there. I don't even know. Like Holly Holm, John Jones, like we've talked about earlier, looks worse every time.
You got to think some of those guys are thinking like, should I get out of here?
On here? Like Cowboy left the gym. Cowboy seemed like
they were widely considered the best for a while. And now it's
whenever
like,
I was coming up, watching it for the first time.
And now it's like, you might not want to go there to train.
I heard they sort of like became a easy access to people coming in to train, and you would train with whoever. Like you'd come in, it'd be goddamn John Jones versus a guy who's been there for 2-3 weeks, or you'd have fighters like that. Where you can't do that. You have to sort of
that doesn't iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, it's you just fucking like trying to make a quick buck off your name now in the notoriety that the UFC brings you.
And it seemed like it went bad.
Right.
But so Aljamain Sterling, very impressive.
He should be fighting, dude. Him versus Peter Yan should be the fight.
Yeah, it should be over Jose Aldo.
Yeah. Just
but it's not.
So.
It's not. It's not what it is. And then Jose Aldo might fucking clean house with Peter Yan, and then we'll be like, well, they knew something we didn't. But
I'll watch the shit out of it.
And then it'll be Aljamain.
I'm gonna watch it. Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard to shit on weird matchmaking if the fight's good. Right. Like I didn't think Ferguson should have fought Gaethje, but fucking I'll watch Gaethje versus Ferguson. I don't care about.
Well, and let's be honest, like Dana White and whoever he works with to make these matches, they do a good job because we get some great fucking fights.
We do.
There's no way around it. We get some great,
especially now with the COVID-19 going on.
My God, there's just so much.
Yeah, they're miracle working out there right now. They're putting fight cards together.
They're putting people out of their weight class that are like, yeah, man, we want to fight. We want to make some money. So they're not fighting in their weight class, but it ends up being a fucking crazy great fight. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's really underrated about what fights and sports in general. No matter what you like, brings to people to gather around and watch something and have sort of a competition. I think people are naturally competitive and they like seeing people compete in anything. People will watch fucking bowling if it's on. If there's nothing else on.
There's nothing else on. Just to put something on the TV.
Yeah, and fights,
especially in a bar.
And fights are it's nice for the UFC to have this sort of growth. I feel like they'll come out of it better. Than they were, and they'll have a little bit more shine on their product than they did before. So,
and I think again. Yeah, I don't care who hates him, who doesn't hate him, whatever you feel about him. I think you got to throw a lot of credit to Dana White.
Yeah.
Dana White's been pushing from the beginning. Hey, we're going to keep fighting.
I dread the day when Dana White isn't the guy anymore.
I dread.
I don't even know who can really replace him.
I hope he does it till he's fucking 90.
Chael Sonnen should replace him.
Yeah.
That's not a bad call.
Yeah,
That's not a bad
Chael's
call.
the ultimate. Like he
Wow.
always sides with the promoter. You know what I mean?
He does. He's a company
the heel
man,
for the
even-
promoter, but like he knows the business, and I don't think he'd get anything by old Chael. So
And I think
No,
that, I think
and Chael's also not going to back down from a fucking
No.
soul if they
No.
try to intimidate him in any way.
And I think that DC is lining
And I think
himself
that's
up
a
to be
big-
higher up in the UFC as well. DC's become he's a big part of the UFC product now. If you think about
Yeah.
DC's presence in the UFC, he's an active fighter. He's on a lot of the
well,
broadcast.
look at Cruz is that kind of that.
Yeah.
way, too.
Cruz,
Yeah, both. But I think DC's higher up
Yeah,
on that.
he-
And I think
he's a
DC's the
company
more
man through
inner,
and through.
more-
and I think
yeah.
he's the more entertaining out of the
Yeah.
two as well. And probably got bigger cojones. He's going to say whatever the fuck he wants to say.
Cruz is a good commentator, but also he's actually really annoying sometimes. I
He
like
can
him.
be kind of biased sometimes, or like once he gets on something, like
He'll fixate on that
Yeah.
regardless of what's going on. Remember,
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember the Rose Namajunas versus Andrade fight where he's like, "There's no way that that Andrade could lift her out of this slam," and then she gets her neck slammed. Like
Yeah.
like he said that literally 10 seconds before, and she's knocked out. And it's like stuff like that where it's a narrative that, and I think the commentators all kind of do it. Joe Rogan has this shit that bothers me. I like him as a commentator a lot.
I think he's the best of all time.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
times where I'm like, Joe, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I still think he's the best of all time.
Yeah.
And like you said, you don't look forward to when Dana White isn't running it. I don't look forward
No.
to the days where Joe Rogan is
Yeah,
not
me neither.
commentating. I feel it'll
Detract
take a
from
little
the
bit of a
quality.
hit for me because I
Well,
think Joe Rogan does know his shit.
the spectacle of the
Sometimes-
big cards too. Like it's special when Rogan's there. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you have like a fight night card, it's
Yeah, it's fine
It-
for him to not be there for those, but like I'll miss him in like those Connor fights and all.
I
that
miss Mike
stuff.
Goldberg a lot too, though.
I
feel
do.
like him
I
and
miss
Gold-
Goldie, man. I do.
I
miss
agree
Goldie.
completely.
Yeah, I feel like just
I
the
think it was
voice.
perfect.
I don't know
think-
why they got rid of Goldie. I would be happy if it was Rogan and Goldie.
Well, they
every
got rid of
time.
him because he didn't really know what the fuck he was talking about.
But-
But he was so perfect.
He
Him
worked
and
with
Joe
Joe,
Rogan
yeah.
were perfect.
Right.
Because Joe Rogan knew all the technical aspects.
Explain the grappling.
Goldie knew fucking nothing.
Yeah.
But they made it perfect. It
Yeah.
was really good. I think that was the best combination.
And maybe it's nostalgia, speaking, because there's people that probably started watching 3 years ago that have no idea that Mike Goldberg was a thing.
No.
So me, I feel like the booming voices of Joe Rogan and Mike Goldberg are like classic UFC to me. So I don't.
Yeah.
Well,
I,
they
I
just
don't wanna
played
be-
off each other perfectly.
They did, and
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like it's all biased, but also it might be a little bit for
Yeah. And DC and Rogan actually play really good off each
Yeah.
other. I like
Yeah.
that.
I don't mind
like
that crew at all
combination.
either. That when
John
it's
Anik's
Rogan,
pretty good.
Anik, yeah, I like
Yeah,
Anik.
Anik's growing on me every
Yeah,
fight. He
yeah.
gets a little better to me every fight.
But like Cruz, I feel like is combative with the other announcers.
Sometimes, yeah.
And I feel like DC puts him in his place a lot.
It's like he can't get rid of that competitiveness.
Yeah, and he wants to be right, and you could tell
Yeah.
that pervades all of his life. Like he's a competitor,
Yeah.
and he's kind of a fucking snob about stuff.
Well, he
Yeah.
took it so far that he accused the ref in his fight of
Keith
fucking
Peterson or
drinking.
whatever, right? Yeah.
He
Yeah.
smelled of booze and
Yeah, they both went too far. Started with Dominic Cruz,
Yeah.
and the ref's retaliation was also too
I don't-
far. It's
I
like both you guys, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be a conversation.
I was reading online someone about the Ascension knockout. They're like, Ascension was getting up. He Cruz. They're saying like about Cruz saying he was getting up. Like,
Yeah.
Ascension was getting up, and the referee smelled like booze and cigarettes. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah, Sunsal was about to pop right back up.
yeah. He was ready.
Speaking of that, we should
Yeah,
probably
let's get back to that. So
that's actually a great fight to really talk about because there's a lot. It was very impactful just by what happened because I feel like there's a lot of meat in that fight.
Yeah, a lot of things are set up and a lot. It caused a lot of motion.
I mean, Cody Garbrandt has to
I
jump.
thought he was getting knocked out. Like in me, I'm like, dude, there's no way.
You thought Cody was gonna get knocked out?
Yeah, just because of how he's fought.
Yeah.
And I can't tell if that was a big enough. I couldn't tell if that was a big enough flaw in his game that you could actually correct it. And his confidence coming into the fight, I didn't know. It's hard.
Credit to Cody. He
Yeah.
fought a brilliant fight.
He did.
He fought a
and
brilliant
waited for
fight.
his moment.
And again, though, does the crowd play a factor in
Yeah,
that?
Maybe.
right, maybe.
And
I think he was just getting over. He'd get tagged and just get over emotional.
see
and
red
come,
and
yeah.
come in. But Rafael Sanchal is not really a power hitter. He's not somebody who's going to knock out
Back to
somebody.
that mic a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not going to knock out somebody in the way that his last few knockouts have been. So he is a little more safe because Sanchal is a counter striker in the same way Cody is, and that's why I think it wasn't boring. It was more tactical than a Cody fight.
Yeah, up until
Yeah.
the final moment, it wasn't
barn
a
burner.
super exciting fight. No, it was a very technical back and forth, but I mean, dude, the last sequence was so weird because I was like, there's a big pause, and I'm like,
There's a
what is
huge
Cody
pause.
doing?
Very
What is
awkward.
Like they're very awkward.
Cody
looking at
ducked
each
for
other.
no reason.
They're
Yeah.
both looking at each other like, go, motherfucker, go. And then like,
And did Cody ducked for no reason.
He's powered up. He's like powered up down there.
Boom.
It literally was like. By the way, this is the second walk off we're talking about. That might have been the most.
This is the
impressive.
better knockout.
This is the
I
better
think,
one.
like.
Yeah.
But it literally like the only thing that would have made this knockout better is if when Cody did it, he went Tiger uppercut. Like
Fucking
even though it wasn't an uppercut, it was
Pose or
so
something.
crazy.
It came from downtown.
He had his hand on the fence and leaned back and then just exploded up with a hook.
But they both look into each other's eyes for a moment, and they're like, you move, and then all of a sudden Cody just explodes like a cobra strike, like pow, like it's over.
First he ducked.
Yeah.
First he ducked for no reason.
He-
It was like he's not really throwing anything. Oh, now he threw something.
That was the coiling up of the cobra, dude.
It was weird. It was like Cody ducked and then he threw a kick
That was maybe-
or a punch or whatever it was.
That was maybe like the cleanest knockout I've seen in a while.
Yeah, crisp was pow, dude. It was so fast. It was as fast.
Live was way better than the actual slow-mo.
Yeah,
Yes.
the only one I can think comparative in speed is he knocked out Liddell.
Rashad Evans.
Rashad Evans when he hits Liddell, man.
It's like a baseball
It's so
pitch,
fast. Like
yeah.
the fist comes so fast. Like those are the two fastest like knockouts. I've
That's
ever
what I said about Cody when he was fighting Dominic Cruz for the title, right?
seen.
Yeah.
When he was fighting
2016, I think December.
when he was fighting Dominic Cruz for the title, I said a lot of people know about Cody's power. What they don't understand is how fast he is.
Yeah.
Every
It's
fight I saw, I
insane.
was like, man, his power is crazy, but he's so fast.
The power comes from the
He's
speed.
So fast.
And that was sort of his downfall too, because I feel like more not this fight, but beforehand he was playing a game like 50-50, you know, like I'm fucking faster than you, so we're going to get this pocket, and we're
And he
gonna
started throwing those crazy
I'm gonna
looping
wing him.
hooks.
yeah, and he started winging them like and like having that game of chance like that. And this fight wasn't like that, so I feel like he's sort of reined in his style and made it work for him better and safer. You know, you can't go in and wing hooks and come and. His chin, I don't know if his chin is bad, but as much as he was out of position in
He was
his
out of
firefights,
position, got caught perfectly.
in his firefights, yeah, and didn't.
And I mean, two of those are to a roided out Dillashaw, so you kind of have to give him a little benefit of the doubt.
Pedro also popped for steroids 2 years back.
Munoz, okay, so
Yeah.
you got three.
Yeah.
I mean, this does a lot for Cody. You know, what I mean?
Oh, it does a
considering
shit ton.
all the all
and
the
just
factors.
such a crazy clean knockout.
He
and,
went
the,
from-
and the only reason he's ranked number 9 is just because so much shit happened
And he
while
hasn't
he
won in a
lost
while. Yeah.
lost those 3 fights.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he'd still be top 5. Except these other people did crazy shit, so they moved up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can't really give him a higher ranking just because he hasn't won in a while.
Yeah.
It's hard to.
Yeah.
It's hard
But
to
he
rate
doesn't.
somebody.
He never fell out of the top 10 because you know his skill level. you
Yeah,
know.
and
It's a very soft science to the ranking. It's not even
you were talking about
quantifiable.
the regular speed of the knockout was better.
Yeah.
But the only thing that was better about the slow-mo was you could see
His
the
eyes.
fucking
The
line
eyes,
in him,
yeah.
dude. He was like, yeah, I'm murdering you right now. He's
This
never,
is the
nobody
moment.
has ever looked more savage
Yeah.
than when he was throwing that
Because it
punch
was-
when they did it in slow-mo. It's like, oh, he's a savage.
Because
Yeah.
when
He's
he
gonna
when he
kill
leans
you.
down, he never even takes his eyes off of him.
No.
He's-
He was like down like this, and his eyes were looking
still
up
locked with him,
right,
like-
right at his
There-
jaw.
There's not been that many. Like I can't think of another knockout under those conditions in which somebody's staring, like murderously at the other person for like 5 seconds.
yeah.
Like
Time stopped for a minute.
Yeah, and it's just like you can't fucking find that anywhere else. That's why it was so bizarre because it was just like
That's why it's so good. That's why I was like, dude, that Cody knockout is going to be played on highlights for years to come.
And
Like,
for years to come,
And-
dude.
and-
That was insane.
and-
Dude, just the way he ducked down and everything, and then just exploded.
Yeah.
Exploded.
it looked like a snake striking. Like
It looked like
Wow.
Happy Gilmore
It-
winding up for his drive.
it looked like Sean and O'Malley losing knockout of the night. You know,
Yeah.
he's like fuck. And
She's
then-
like back there like,
Are you kidding me? He just did that? What the fuck?
Come on.
but
I think they both got a bonus.
yeah, they
though.
did.
Oh, yeah.
Performance of the night for Sean, I think. But I mean, even so, I mean, fucking give them all. I mean, give everybody who gets knockouts like that. I don't care how many. If there's
Yeah.
5 knockouts like that,
Find
give
an
5
excuse to
bonuses.
give
Give
him
every
some
5.
money.
And Dana White is the type of dude that will.
He usually
Yeah.
He'll
does.
give.
Yeah,
If you
for
give
sure.
5 crazy knockouts, he's giving every one of you a bonus.
Yeah.
Like now, if you have a good fight but it was a boring fight, he's not going to give you a bonus.
One thing I didn't like about Cody in that fight, though, That knockout was great, but against a better striker, that position would not even like. You just a more dangerous guy. I don't want to be like, oh, raining on the fucking. But
I agree. He looked weird and blocky the whole fight.
Yeah, and
he was the one that I really remember.
But his son's out, he's a guy that's hard to really like look good against. He's an
very
awkward
defensive.
guy. Yeah,
and we were talking about that night about how
weird.
he was standing. He was standing almost like a gorilla.
Yeah,
like a gorilla, like he's standing like this.
I think it's just tough to look good against that guy.
And Cody's I feel like Cody's fighting style still is like he doesn't have a far away game. He has to sort of. If you
he has to be in the mix.
Fury in the pocket.
Yeah. If you notice, he'll rush in and use his speed to get in and then angle out, which is good. But that's not always going to work against a Peter Yan. It's just not like
Right, they're just crisper and cleaner.
Yeah, and like you have to have a game that sort of can set up that inside game. So I feel like going forward, he still has a lot of work. This is a great performance. Not knocking it, but
But he's still very young, and we could see a
Mark
second
Henry,
reign of Cody.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And I will say this as well. I actually had went back and watched a few of Cody's older fights. And even though I always remember thinking of him so impressively when I was watching those older fights, I'm like, you are so square.
Yeah.
You're so square all the time.
He is, yeah.
And when you move, you're still just like a square target that's moving around. The only time he didn't do that was in the Dominic Cruz fight.
Well,
that was the only time.
And he can't really lead as well. He doesn't lead as effectively as he counters.
But was it good because who Cruz is? Was he able to do that?
Because Cruz doesn't have the power. He just doesn't have power. So there's not a threat. When you have somebody.
So he was looser because he's like, dude, you're not gonna knock me
keep
out.
tapping me with that.
Cruz doesn't sit down. Cruz has never sat down on a punch. I don't think in his whole career.
No.
Fucking he's like,
he throws punches with both feet off the ground.
Right. He's floating around. Yeah. Not even
like literally neither of your feet on the ground, but somehow you landed a punch. I don't understand, but you did
backwards
it.
And stuff.
And it works for him, but it's just different. I think styles make fights in MMA.
And that one was one for him.
Yeah, and he was a good style.
Cody.
And you got to think too that the Team Alpha Male scouted Cruz so well, and Cody came up in that camp.
Yeah.
And there's the TJ fight.
It was their mission to beat Cruz for years.
And Uriah Favors fought him how many times? And there's a lot of footage on how Cruz fought. So he fought a perfect fight for Cruz. And when you can't lead though, and then your only source of leading is getting in the pocket and exchanging hooks, it's hard to find success every time you do that against somebody who hits hard and also has a good understanding of boxing.
Yeah.
So the Dillashaw fight, and he wins because his speed is so such an equalizer and such a powerful aspect of his game. But once that speed goes, I don't know. It's like if you get old, you get old.
Yeah.
Where's he going to be at 35? He's probably retired at this point.
You know he's gonna have to be on a lot of these, right?
He's down for whatever.
Yeah, I'll be on every MMA podcast.
He's got to be on a lot of these because the way me and you are really obviously true fans and we love the sport, but he really has more of an analytical breakdown than we have, and I think it complements it so well.
Yeah.
I really do.
Oh, cool, thank you. But I just know that fucking it's hard to gauge where he's going to be coming forward because he, has the skill set to win. But high level fights, these guys are all going to be scouting his game too.
Yeah, and I think he's too square. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he's going to have still a hard time in the top 5.
His reach is only 65 inches. He faced somebody like Aljamain Sterling, whose reach is like 71 inches, and who has a good kicking game, a good jab. That
submission.
Yeah, and when you can't.
It's not great to bum rush you to choke you out.
It's weird. I didn't root when Cody in his first rise. I didn't root for him much, but I root for the guy to come back.
You were kind of not a fan.
No, I like him.
But I root for the guy. Like I like to see somebody fall and come back. And
it's a good story.
He's got the skill set to do it. So I would kind of like to see the guy overcome himself. And you know what I mean.
And it's sad as fuck too to watch a guy who's like 28. If he lost yesterday, fucking his career's done.
Yeah, he's going to. Well, then again, it might take a rise because he might go to Bellator and just fucking destroy everybody over there.
But I don't think they would have cut him, but his career would have been in the dumps after that.
He would have been better off being cut, honestly.
I guess biased too. He's a local guy, so he reminds you of just a meathead Ohio dude. So which is cool because
it's easy for me to think he's a shithead.
Yeah, but it's also
that's what Kyle was really. He thought he was a shithead.
It's also endearing though a little bit because it's it's like.
But then you have Bones, who is clearly a shithead.
Yeah. Well, he's actually a bad person. Like
he's
Cody,
a bad person.
Cody seems misguided.
With Cody, but that was my thing. Is I was like, I feel like that dude's gonna let it get to his head, and in some ways, I think it did. Like maybe not. It was big ego shit, but like it became too much, or like, he didn't. I don't know. He was 25 and he was at the top of the world all of a sudden. Like,
yeah, it's a lot for
not a lot of people, especially a young guy. It's hard for that to, not a lot of guys succeed. Look at Jones. I mean, what he's been through, like ever. And he got there at what 23.
Yeah, Jones is he's benefited by his weight class being a little more shallow than bantamweight was. You think about the people surrounding. He had time
to fuck around a little bit.
Yeah, and Jones was so much better than his competition that it took a good 6 years for them to catch up to Jones.
Like
Jones
leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
Leaps and bounds.
Yeah, where Dominic Reyes now grew up watching John Jones. And that's a big.
And Santos is just a fucking black Viking.
Yeah, fucking black Viking.
Seriously,
fucking sledgehammer.
He's got Thor's hammer right on his fucking chest.
I'm proud of the fact that I called that though. I was like, dude, that Santos guy, he's gonna be the biggest challenge.
And he came from middleweight.
Yeah,
and I thought that going into the fight as well.
I don't know how he made middleweight. I don't know how he made. He's a big ass light heavyweight.
That's it.
Actually, I have a couple of things now that we've gone through the fights. I have a couple of things that I wanted to get into.
We didn't get to the main event. But.
Oh, we didn't get to the main event.
Nunez.
Oh no, we sure as fuck didn't.
Oh, wait. First of all, who'd you like to see Cody face next? Just asking you guys.
Who would I like to see Cody face next?
Playing a matchmaker here. Like I think Cody should fight. Because I don't want Aldo to fight for the title. I want to see Cody versus Aldo. I think that's a good fight. I feel like that's a winnable fight for both guys.
But I think Jan Aldo is already a thing.
It's not been signed yet.
It hasn't been signed.
No, it hasn't been signed. And like,
okay,
that's what I fucking hate about.
Well, let's do this though. Let's assume that that's signed because that is really
close.
It's been talked about. It's very close.
I think Dana was like, it's done.
Yeah. So let's assume.
All right. Well,
let's assume that that's it. So then, who would you have Cody fight?
Realistically,
Moraes.
Who?
Moraes.
Yeah.
Marlon Moraes.
Yeah, he's coming off a win.
Moraes, however you say his name. Yeah, Marlon.
See, I think Marlon could fucking sleep Cody, dude.
Marlon's nasty on the feet.
Yeah, like he's explosive.
But he seems to be one of those people that's good for 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good fight. I think that's a good fight. Assessment of where Cody is.
I think that's a good fight. But also, if that's happening, then it's not bad to honestly have Cody fight either Aljamain Sterling or Corey Sandhagen.
Yeah,
Sandhagen would be good. Maybe.
Well, I think.
I think Sterling should just wait for the title.
Yeah,
fight.
I think he's earned his spot.
I think he
there's
should.
No reason to fight anybody.
But
else.
how long are you going to wait?
Well, they could realistically do that fight in fucking November, maybe. And depends on what this fight.
Both of them should be pretty fresh.
Jan fights, because if Aldo and Jan fight by hopefully August, they should be fighting on Fight Island. That fight needs made. They need a champion in that division.
Can't wait for Fight Island.
It's gonna be sick.
That's gonna be a documentary.
Bloodsport.
Yeah,
that's gonna be. That's all I think of is Bloodsport. That's all I think of.
Dude, they need to have access to the fucking island. Like they need to have a week where the embeddeds need to go into the island and shit like that. They need to have them set up in rooms. We need to see all the the competition of it and it needs to be like fucking Mortal Kombat the movie or whatever.
Yeah. That's what. Have you ever seen Bloodsport?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I haven't seen it since.
Oh man, you should watch it again because to me it's exactly what this is.
Pull it up, dude. Let's watch it.
We'll watch it right now
during the podcast.
We're gonna watch an hour and 45-minute movie. You guys ready?
No talking.
No talking. Everybody shut up. No, but for real, you should watch it just because it's one of my favorite action movies from back in the day.
Right.
But the real reason is because to me it's what Fight Island is. It's like these people had to secretly get invited to the Kumite, and nobody knew where nobody knew where it was. We still don't know where Fight Island is.
We have a breakdown of Bloodsport, the fights on Bloodsport, and see what the fuck.
That would be good.
I think the rumor is it's Abu Dhabi or something.
Yeah,
I heard that rumor is
he's
that it's
announced
Abu
this
Dhabi.
week. I heard of the
and it sounds like it's going to be Abu Dhabi,
Probably.
but still, there's been so much mystique behind it.
Cody was talking about doing a bantamweight tournament on Fight Island, which he said in the post-fight presser that sounds pretty good.
How baller would it be?
Dude,
be the best tournament of all time.
It'd be invigorating for the UFC. They haven't done anything like that.
And it'd be the best tournament of all time.
It would.
Are you talking? But we're talking multiple week tournament though, not like
multiple.
He said like 2 months. He said like 2 months.
It'd be multiple.
Cody said 2 months on the island, which Cody's not a fucking matchmaker or a.
I honestly think if you're gonna take even if you're gonna take the top 6, you're gonna have at least 3 months on your hand.
Yeah.
But fuck it. I mean,
fuck it.
Make a spectacle of it while you can, because it's going to be back to normal next year, maybe.
And there'd be nothing I'd be more excited for.
You got to think about next year.
Have your alternates, and then all of a sudden somebody like fucking DC comes in and wins the whole fucking thing, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Yeah. We had the top 6, maybe most talented guys we thought we had in the UFC, and this random ass guy came in here and whooped their asses.
I remember seeing fucking
ruined all the Ravens.
I remember watching fucking Jeff Monson versus DC, and I'm like, dude, DC is really good. Like, Cormier is really good. He wasn't in DC then. He was just like Daniel Cormier, some wrestler dude. You know?
Don't forget that Monson, I mean, he's a weak fighter.
Yeah.
I mean,
Who all did DC beat? Barnett during that?
Yeah,
he beat Barnett.
He slayed the fuck out of him too.
No,
he beat Barnett. He beat Monson to become the alternate.
He beat Bigfoot?
He knocked out Bigfoot in the finals.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. He knocked out Bigfoot in the semifinals.
Who did he?
Barnett for the finals.
Barnett for the finals.
Beat
and made them both look like they didn't belong in the ring with him.
Josh Barnett.
I think Barnett beat Sergey Karatanov in the semis.
Which is a very serious heavyweight fighter for who knows how many years.
Fucking hands of steel or whatever.
Yeah, like just stones.
I remember
cinder blocks.
Dude, that was hype as shit back then. That tournament
that tournament was fucking fire too.
Yeah.
Like, because it was even crazier. It was like you were so excited to see Fedor and Alistar, and then all of a sudden they were both out.
Yeah,
but this dude DC just came in and was like, "I'm way better than all of these people."
Dude,
that's what he did.
He made it exciting. I mean,
he made it. He saved it for sure. He was so much better than Bigfoot Silva. He was so much better.
TRT Bigfoot Silva on steroids too.
Yes,
that's the best Silva there was.
He was so much better than Barnett.
Isn't it crazy how fucking Bigfoot Silva is one of the only? You think about Kane's record. He fought Bigfoot Silva 2 times in like fucking 2 years. Like, why?
Yeah,
why? That pissed me off because like Silva had the win against Alistair to sort of put him in that position, but he beat the shit out of Silva when he first came to UFC. Kane versus Silva, and like it wasn't even competitive. It was like a goddamn mauling on the ground. So
not many of Kane's fights were very competitive,
and that's what I hate about like circling back around a little bit about Kane's record. It's very not a lot. It's like fucking. JDS
for a lot of injuries.
Yeah, JDS for fucking
double
3
ups
years
in short amount of time.
Yeah, and it just like he only fought like 3 dudes really.
But it was very arguable that him and JDS were the top heavyweights at the time.
And he made
And honestly, I know a lot of people like to hate on Brock Lesnar, but don't.
That was a good win.
But here's my thing: Brock Lesnar was a beast in MMA.
He was the champion.
He was.
I gotta piss.
Yeah, go ahead. He was a beast. He literally he might not have had the best striking, which he definitely did not. But if he got you on the ground, you weren't doing anything about it.
No.
You. Oh, I got you. Go ahead. I'll fix it.
Edit. Radio edit.
But yeah, Brock Lesnar, I think, is still more impressive than people give him credit.
Yeah, for being so unskilled in the hands, he was still a formidable opponent.
He was so dominant. If he got on top of you on the ground, that there was nothing.
He was a problem in one way for sure.
Yeah, if he got you on the ground and he was on top of you, there was nothing you could do. He was a way better wrestler than you. Yeah. He was way stronger than you, and he was probably full of steroids. But but he was. I still think he's better than people give him credit for. I mean, until Stipe, he had like the most title defenses or something stupid.
Well, what, 1?
Yeah, what? 2. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't an insane amount, but it's still crazy that he was able to do that.
It was 2.
Yeah, I think it was 2.
I think he defended it against
Shane Carwin was 1.
And Mir won, right?
I don't know if he'd won. I think he did win the title and then fought
from
Mir.
And then fought Mir again.
No, he didn't win the title from Mir. He won the title from Randy Couture.
Randy Couture.
Yeah, and then fought Mir for the second time and won. I believe you're right. And then beat Shane Carwin. Yeah. Which Shane Carwin
and then
again
lost to Cain Velasquez.
Yeah, and then Shane Carwin again had him in deep trouble. And he got on top of him in the second one and performed a great submission.
Yeah,
he performed a great submission.
That
an
fight
arm
upset
triangle.
me so much, because I was rooting for Carwin. I hated Lesnar back then because I grew up watching wrestling and like I had gotten into MMA and was like, I like this because it's real. Get these wrestlers out of here. I just got over that shit.
But the only reason I didn't hate it is because Brock is literally he brought a lot of attention to the sport, and also he is the freak of freaks.
Yeah.
That dude is a freak of nature. How big he is, how fast he is. If he could have learned the stand-up game, he for sure would have been the most dominant heavyweight.
The only other guy
learn it.
like that is like Bobby Lashley, but that dude is not nearly the aggressive animal that Brock Lesnar is.
No, not at all. Like Brock, if he could have learned the stand-up game, I think would have been the most dominant heavyweight of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Because on the ground, once he had you on your back, there was nothing you were going to do.
Yeah,
there was nothing.
He had a very good top position.
Yeah.
And
he was an amazing wrestler, and he was fast.
Yeah.
He was very fast
well,
for how
Mark
big he was.
Hunt, I mean, he was pumped full of steroids against Mark Hunt, but dude, he was the most
ripped I've ever seen.
agile as shit against Mark Hunt.
He just is. He's extremely fast. He has crazy fast twitch muscle.
He can do a shooting back press, dude. He can jump off the top rope and do backflips. Like he's agile for that stuff.
He kind of missed.
And he has to cut weight to make the heavyweight weight limit.
Yeah, he kind of missed the whole. Like he should have came in MMA earlier, but there was no money in it whenever he was younger. There was less money than there was whenever he got into his 30s, and
he brought money to it.
But he sort of built that bubble a little bit.
Yeah.
But and obviously this is all just a hypothetical situation. But for how analytical you are, would you agree that if Brock could have learned the stand-up game even remotely, he would have been a serious problem for a long time?
Yeah, I think that if he came in earlier, because I think that there's a ceiling on how well you're gonna transition
also
to striking.
His ability to take punches. He couldn't take them very
I don't
well.
think he sparred much. I think he set up his camps himself. He didn't really.
I don't think he took a lot of shots in camp.
No.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
because he was breakdancing in that Cain Velasquez
sort of
fight.
He get, oh my god, he's punching me.
It's wacky to see him do that too. Like what the fuck? Like, he's so big.
Yeah, you're so big, and you are definitely a tough motherfucker.
He has a good chin. Like it's weird. He has a great chin.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't get knocked out to where he loses mobilization. He just clams up like, I don't want you to hit me anymore.
Wow, yeah, like,
and
there's no defense for it.
In the Overeem fight, he was dealing with that
diverticulitis, and he got slammed in the gut with a kick. So.
That was like horse meat Overeem too. That was prime Overeem, and then he popped for steroids.
And that diverticulitis is really bad. I actually I just had a friend that my friend Tommy Haggerty, we call him Tommy Two Phones on the podcast. He just went through a bout with diverticulitis. I mean, he was in the hospital for days.
Yeah, I had a friend that had that happen too.
He didn't end up having to get surgery, but he was in the hospital for days.
Can't eat nuts anymore.
Yeah, can't eat seeds, all this weird shit. Yeah, and he said it was very painful.
Yeah,
and Brock Lesnar was fighting like
Yeah,
with that scenario.
Who knows for how long his whole career? Maybe I don't know how long he's had it. Probably since
We should probably cover Amanda so we can
get a fuck on.
Oh yeah, and I had like just like 2 or 3 things to touch afterwards.
Yeah,
so Amanda Nunes, Felicia Spencer.
Yeah.
I'd say probably went about how we expected, except even more dominance than we probably expected.
I was expecting her to have Spencer. She's tough. But her striking, literally, I mean, I don't know.
It's non-existent.
Yeah,
I knew she.
It's worse than Ronda Rousey's probably.
I knew she could take enough though that I thought she would at least get her shots in.
She did better against Cyborg than she did against.
I think that fucking Ronda Rousey can come back tomorrow and beat Spencer. She'd probably take her down and tap her out. Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, it's just the skill level for her.
Yeah.
Because they're both bad at striking.
Yeah.
I said for years before she actually lost, I said as soon as somebody really tests Ronda Rousey's striking, she's going to be abused.
Yeah. And Misha did well with that second fight against the other fight against Ronda whenever they fought in UFC. She actually did well, but she kept initiating grappling exchanges and actually was getting taken down and shit. But
and you can't initiate grappling exchanges with
no
Ronda Rousey.
to.
You just can't do it.
That's not the avenue.
She's going to judo throw you, and then she's going to rip your arm off.
She did good, but until she, it's like until she fucking didn't, and then she got beat again. But once Holly Holm, whenever that fight was signed, I remember saying like, I don't know, if I would have put money on it, of course Rousey was so dominant before.
Oh no, I would, I for sure. It's the one fight that I wish that I would have actually put money on, because I say I'm going to put money on a fight all the time, and I never do.
You never bet before?
No, never bet on UFC fights, and I always say I would 100% bet on this. And on that fight, I said I would 100% put all my money on Holly Holm.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't see. I going in, I didn't really know who Holly was. So if I'd have known her kickboxing pedigree going in, I'd have been like, oh yeah, she probably
boxing
can beat her.
and kickboxing. She's a striker, pure and simple.
In grappling, you don't know how well she's gonna do in the grappling, and like she did a great job in her camp. Thinking about it, that was one of the last impressive Winklejohn.
Performances.
Yeah, like with the fighters actually performing well.
But I knew for a fact even before thinking about what she would do with her grappling, I knew for a fact that she was so good on her feet that she was going to be able to keep Ronda away from her. She wasn't going to engage in a grappling scenario unless she had to. She was not going to bum rush her like what that one girl did, Kat
Zingano,
Zingano.
yeah.
She wasn't going to do that. She's like, no, I'm going to stay on the outside and I'm going to punch you in the face.
And you're going to come in and
because
burn
you can't strike. She was one of the worst strikers in MMA history.
It's amazing nobody it took so long for somebody to realize, like, just make her strike with you.
It's insane to me because I said it for probably 5 fights before she finally lost. I was like, listen, she cannot fight on the feet at all.
She doesn't want to, obviously.
But that goes to the level of the competition she was facing. There's nobody like Holly Holm before Holly Holm came up. There wasn't.
No, yeah, that was when it took the step.
Yeah.
Or at least not that we knew about.
Yeah, there was, of course, Kat Zingano could have fought a better fight. She has good striking. Yeah. But also, she wasn't as disciplined. She'd be wild and have these crazy.
Well, and Kat Zingano was known for taking people to the ground and pounding them. So she thought maybe that's what she should do.
I don't remember that fight. She beat the shit out of Misha Tate and like broke her nose and stuff.
But you don't do that fight against her because she's going to take your arm off.
But I mean,
she's going to take your arm off. You can be a terrible striker, stand on the outside, and beat the fuck out of Ronda Rousey.
Amanda has basically erased Ronda from the history books.
Amanda
is everything Ronda was built to be. Like Amanda is the female.
And she's
goat.
not fucking polarizing like Ronda Rousey.
No, she's so nice.
Yeah,
she's such a sweetheart.
Yeah, she's just sweet, and she's very endearing to the fans. I feel
she went and put her belt on Felicia Spencer after the.
I did see that.
She walked over and put the belt on her and was like, "You're like the toughest person I've ever fought." You're like, as far as like you took every shot I gave you.
After the last 2 fights I've seen Felicia Spencer have was Cyborg and
against the two
Nunez,
the two
most prolific knockout. Yeah, and she doesn't go out.
No,
and
she wasn't really rocked like maybe a little bit.
She was never out. Like
we've had a lot of fights recently where I think a lot of people would say, "Hey, the corner should have thrown in the towel." After that fight, even though Felicia Spencer got the shit beat out of her the whole time, she was never out. I never thought.
I was more worried about Anthony Smith than I was her in this fight.
I wasn't worried about Felicia at all. She was still very aware. She was very aware.
See, I disagree because I feel like though. The corner's responsibility is that there's no avenue to win the fight.
I agree with that.
They should have known by the end of the 4th round, like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree with that.
Yeah,
like,
she
probably
no
didn't want to go back
victory.
out there.
There's not. Like, she was not getting off anything in the fight.
But I was very much more concerned about the previous fighters taking as much damage as they did. Felicia Spencer looked like she was still with it. She was still throwing punches. She was still calculated. But she just didn't have the skill level to compete with Amanda Nunez.
Well, can you quantify like damage in the way that like how much more damage she took and whether or not that was worth the moral victory of going the distance with Nunez?
It's probably never really worth it, but to the fighter, it's everything.
Right.
You know? In that moment, it's all they got left to win.
Yeah. But the corner though has a little responsibility of protecting their fighter and saying, okay, there's no way she's gonna win this fight. There's no way.
I agree.
They probably should have.
But I agree. But
I mean, I'm not mad they didn't stop it, but
because she was okay, she was aware. Now the damage going forward might be more than she should have taken.
I think she's lucky she was facing Amanda too, because I think Amanda.
I think she throttled it back
faster.
Towards the end. Yeah, I think she throttled it back towards the end. But also for Felicia Spencer, she's never going to beat Amanda Nunez. No. So going out on her shield here, and she's still coherent enough and capable of doing it, might be the highlight of her career, because she's never going to beat Amanda Nunez. That's never going to happen.
No, and there was nothing that was going to happen past round 3 that was going to turn the fight around. Never. And
so the highlight of her career might be the fact that she went 5 rounds with Amanda
greatest
Nunez.
Fighter.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might be the highlight of her career.
If you want to worry about damage about MMA, just like you don't even fucking watch them, because they're all getting damaged.
That's the point. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. If we're gonna be like good Samaritans towards their health, like these people are signing up to fight. They know what the fuck's up. Every fight they get into every gym war they get into is gonna be X amount of damage, that you can't really figure out until you're 55.
And that's why they make a lot of money.
Yeah. And in the Tony Ferguson fight, I think I agree with they maybe should have thrown the towel, because Tony Ferguson, one, has a chance to come back and possibly do better against Gaethje, or somebody else, because that division is so stacked. Somebody else might have the title, and then he might fight them. But in Amanda Nunez, in that fight, there's nobody else that's going to beat Amanda Nunez. No. So if you can't beat Amanda Nunez, you're never going to fucking get there.
Right? Yeah. There's no other avenue that you're like, oh well, hopefully she gets beaten.
Yeah, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, Khabib and Gaethje are going to because I feel like Khabib can match up better with Ferguson can match up better with Khabib than he can with Gaethje. Just it's a different fight completely. Just
he's not going to be taking shots from Khabib the whole time.
He might be ground pounded, but also there's a different guard game. It's a different avenue of his his skill set could be shown.
Yes.
But I just feel like Nunez, she can't really. It's losing its luster because you're watching that fight and it's hard to justify paying $60 again to see her fight anybody.
Yeah,
it's
well,
hard.
you at least can't be putting them as the main event.
Yeah,
you
That's
can't.
got to be a co-main.
You want to see the Amanda Diaz fights because you want to see how great she is. You're not like looking like,
But it's
okay,
not
this girl's
competitive.
gonna beat her.
It's not selling the card though. The reason I bought this card was Cody, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I for me the buy potential was in Sugar Sean and Garbrandt.
Yeah,
That's why
Cody,
I wanted,
Sean, and then maybe
Those-
Aljamain too.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to see
Amanda
that
was
as
a
well.
seller, but it was, you know, what I mean, it was just the cherry on top because, like, I wouldn't have bought that if had Cody not been on it, and it was just Amanda. You know,
Yeah,
maybe Sean, but like Sean
you would
was
have
the
found a
first
way to
fight.
stream it.
Yeah, probably.
Can you fight? Like, can you imagine though being a fighter in Spencer's like position where you fight and then you look at your performance and like her corner has to have seen her skill set and had to have tape and like what was the avenue of victory because
None.
she like that's what I mean, it's bizarre
None.
to even imagine a scenario in which you're cornering a fighter and she's fucking gonna get
How do you
thrashed.
fake the funk?
Yeah,
there?
right.
Like, how do you like? We got this, champ.
like what are you gonna fucking like take her down? Yeah, like
So what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah, just
Nothing.
just get Homer Simpson
Try
until
to-
I think maybe you'd be honest with your fighter. Hey, guess what? We don't think there's any way you can win this fight.
Yeah.
So how do you want to train?
yeah.
What do you want to do?
Yeah.
Because
What'd
You
you
have
like
to
to work
know.
on out there? Because,
because you're
Yeah.
fucked.
yeah.
just not be in a position to not get punched as
As
often
much.
as you could. Yeah, it'd have
Yeah.
to just be like a fucking defensive shell.
I think I would literally ask the fighter, like, so how do you see yourself winning this fight?
Yeah.
Because I don't see an avenue.
And then you see somebody like Megan Anderson who fought Spencer, lost.
But I think she has a much better chance
She does.
against Nunez than
It
Felicia
still
Spencer
doesn't
did.
bode well to somebody who lost against Spencer because
Oh, and I still think Nunez
that's why there's
destroys
nobody
her.
out there for Nunez.
Yeah,
There's
because,
just
yeah.
not.
In that weight class, especially.
The only thing you could do that would be interesting is do like a best of 7 with Shevchenko.
yeah,
Like, there's nothing
they
like.
could fight every week and they're like, all right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
I would literally watch them fight.
Because I
every
feel like
week.
Shevchenko could win a few after the
I think
best
she
seven.
get, you know, I mean, if you put them up again 10 times, I mean, she might get a judge's tilt a couple times, but like,
Yeah.
you know, it's Shevchenko.
she might catch her.
Yeah, Shevchenko
I-
just don't have the size to do
She doesn't
it,
have the
man.
size, but if she caught her with a perfect punch, she'd clean her clock.
She also is a smaller counterpuncher, so it's hard for her to, you know, beat Nunez whenever Nunez is long and rangy, has his long punches she does. So like she could, but her skill set isn't that great of a match, you know.
Well, I thought
Size
I
difference,
thought
skill set
Cyborg, and this may sound terrible, it may sound sexist, but it is what it is. I thought Cyborg fought like a man, and then when I really started watching Nunez fight, I'm like,
Once
no,
you started-
she fights like a man,
Right.
Yeah.
Because
So does Shevchenko.
Cyborg threw those crazy punches.
She's like Wanderlei Silva.
Yeah, she threw those crazy. Exactly.
Yeah.
She threw those crazy punches like that made you think like, oh, she's a man. But Nunez has those crazy hooks, but also has that just clean inside if she wants to go inside with
Right.
a strike. She's
a
the
lot cleaner
total
striking.
package. She is. I wouldn't mind seeing her fight a smaller guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Fight,
I really wouldn't.
fight
Yeah.
fucking some random top 20 bantamweight or whatever.
Right. Like what is her go to weight class?
135.
135.
Like
so,
a tall, lanky 135 guy.
So yeah, see, no, I'd say she fights at 135. I wouldn't mind seeing her fight a
neither.
125er. I wouldn't
Or
mind
if she
it.
goes up to 145, her versus Chase Hooper, that guy who fought Alex Caceres, just have him beat that dude up.
Yeah.
She would bomb.
She would
She
fuck
would
that
bomb
dude
on
up.
Hooper,
Is that the white dude with the fro
Yeah.
that
He's
does the
sweaty.
jokes with Ben Askren?
Yeah.
Yeah. She would kill that guy.
Yeah. I would have watched the shit out of
I would
that. That'd be
totally
more
watch it.
compelling than any woman's
Anything
fight.
she yeah.
Any woman fight that she's gonna have ahead of her,
Do you remember when
that's gonna be more
you remember when
compelling.
Rogan was like, Ronda Rousey could beat, some men. I'm just thinking, dude, that
He
Did Joe Rogan say that?
Yeah.
He jumped
That's
on that
fucking
hype train at
crazy.
some
Yeah,
point.
Yeah,
'cause you
that's
just think
fucking
about-
bananas. I can't believe that.
because all those guys that
I never would have thought she would have beat any man.
no, because that division, all those guys are as good at grappling. Like you just have to be. Like you're not gonna get tapped out by Ronda Rousey. And like
Yeah.
it's nothing against her and her skill set. It just those guys are just
Yeah,
fucking.
she's not moving your arms. Like,
No.
Yeah.
You just pick her up.
Yeah.
It goes to show you just like the level of competition with the men and women is just so vastly different that it's hard to even. It's like watching the NBA and WNBA. Like
Right.
I don't watch basketball.
But
if
people
those-
like Nunez and Shevchenko are
Yeah.
close that gap. Like,
Yeah,
It does, yeah. They're closer.
I would say especially Nunez because of the amount of power. Skill set wise, I think Shevchenko the amount
and
of
speed.
But the amount of power that Amanda Nunes brings to a fight is serious.
Yeah, I don't think she could beat any guy in the UFC though. Any 135.
You don't think that Fro guy at 125?
Yeah, she could probably beat him. he's a boy. Though.
I love that
He's
guy.
20, look like he's 14.
I love that guy.
Yeah, I like
don't
him
get me
too,
wrong.
actually.
He's hilarious. He's a great guy, but I do think Amanda Nunes might put a hurting on him.
Yeah. I would say that, but also like man's strength versus woman's strength.
It's just different.
It's hard to know.
It's a different thing. It really is. That's not a sexist thing. It's just we're built different.
Yeah.
We're literally built different.
Your hands can grip. I mean, they're built to grip harder.
We literally have different ligaments and things like that. We're just different.
If I went up against Spencer like in a grappling match, I don't think I'd win, but I would not be afraid to. Like I would not be like, oh, she's gonna beat my ass. Like, I would just be like,
against who in a grappling
Spencer.
match?
Like,
yeah.
Like
I wouldn't
probably,
be scared.
She'd probably choke me out or whatever.
She'd probably win because
we
we don't have the skill set.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
not terrified of being in there with her.
Yeah, but if
I'm
I
not scared.
If I fought against like any other guy in that division, any guy,
That'd be terrifying.
any guy in the regional scene, like 135.
But you would be scared of getting into any scenario with Amanda Nunes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd be like, she's gonna smack me. Like
she's gonna smack me real hard, and then I'm gonna take my ball and go home.
Hopefully, she'd see that I'm not even close to her and just take it easy on me.
Yeah, just relax,
I would
lady.
fight her for a lot of money though.
Yeah, or for a charity event.
Yeah. No.
No, you want the
Depends
money.
on the charity, really.
If I'm gonna get embarrassed, I'm taking the money.
Yeah, it'd have
Taking the money and going home.
Well, it would have to be an incentive for me
to take that embarrassment. Yeah.
But yeah, that fight went worse, probably worse for Spencer. I thought it'd be a little more competitive actually, just based off of grappling.
I honestly
I
really
thought her
didn't think it
toughness
would.
and her ability to be in the fight in the 5th round was gonna get her a little further.
She
than
just
what
had
it did,
no
but
entries.
She had no offensive.
Her
options,
striking
and-
was some of the worst striking I've ever seen in a UFC. I'm not gonna lie.
Her,
Like,
and Ronda Rousey.
The only jab she successfully landed was
her, Ronda
lunging.
Rousey, and Ben Askren.
Looks like Lomachenko compared to fucking her. Though. Really, because Ronda had some power at least. Like I couldn't imagine.
Yeah,
like,
if she
Ronda
clipped you randomly, you
knocked
might
out
feel
Betch
it.
Correa. She knocked her out, and I would never like. Betch isn't good either, but she knocked out. She has a knockout. Spencer, could you imagine her knocking out a woman?
No. I couldn't imagine her knocking out a much smaller woman.
Yeah, I could.
She just has no technique in her striking, zero. And not that Ronda Rousey did, but
The only thing she got through with were long lunging jabs where she had to throw her whole body behind her jab.
I will say she did catch Amanda Nunes with one jab in the fight where Amanda was like, okay, she caught me with that one.
She was
Yeah.
like,
She was like, okay, she caught me with
She
that
also
one.
whipped her head back when she sort of ran with the elbow in at her. It was like
Yeah, I think it did.
it might have been an accident, maybe. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but I mean, her head went
But
backwards.
it's close to a perfect performance as you can get. I mean, you nullified your opponent.
Once she was on her back,
That should have been
Spencer-
all. I feel like every round should have been 10-8.
10-8.
Yeah, just because
Every
of how
round.
non-competitive it was, or how not of a chance she had. But once she was on her back grappling with Nunes, and I was like, dude, this is her wheelhouse, her bread and butter, and she can't even get anything off on the ground.
And this is when she got cut.
Yeah, and you can't even at that point. It's like it should have been clear to her corner that this is not going to go. Because was she going to magically take her down and choke her out now? Like she fucking was on the ground and she looked like she never even trained in grappling in comparison to Amanda.
Yeah.
And that's just how good
It
Amanda
really,
is.
I think you said last night, it looked like a professional female fighter versus a soccer mom.
Yeah. And Nunes, and you got to think.
I would
that
agree
too.
with that
Yeah.
assessment.
And if she did that to Megan Anderson, she took Megan Anderson down, choked her out real fast.
Right, but it shows you that her top game is where it's at. She has nothing off her back.
Right.
It's top game.
But it's probably her size that she don't. I mean, she's a big
Right.
girl.
Right. Well, Megan
Why?
Anderson's not
Yeah,
small.
no.
She's huge.
No, yeah.
She's I
There's
think
not-
she's sexy as well, but that's a big bitch.
Yeah, she could hold me like a baby. Whatever. Small
If
enough.
you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not.
I'm just saying, if it was Megan Anderson, I might be willing.
Yeah.
I do want to just a couple of side notes that I wanted to get into, and this one isn't even MMA related. The first one, but did you guys saw the Mike Tyson training
Comeback
videos?
thing.
Yeah.
The training videos. I mean, he
Looks
looks
fast, man.
fast.
Yeah.
And the gut is gone.
Well-
That gut got huge for a while,
Yeah.
and it is
Haven't
gone.
seen
Did
That's
you
the-
also see the Holyfield one? See, this is the thing. The Holyfield one, it looks like the Holyfield looks like a guy who's fast for 50 some years old. Tyson still looks fast.
Yeah,
Like,
and that's my thing is they're supposed to have a charity fight with those two, and I think Tyson's gonna hurt that man.
Holyfield's way more washed up than Tyson.
I don't want to see
way more washed up.
Holyfield's way more punch drunk too.
Yeah.
Like I can see it when he talks.
Yeah, and honestly, I know it's just a training video, but with how disappointing the heavyweight scene is, I wouldn't be upset to see Mike Tyson fucking fight in a heavyweight actual fight. I'd watch it. I'd watch one. I wouldn't even mind seeing him fight Wilder, only because Wilder isn't a boxer. He's a power puncher.
Yeah.
Fury is a good boxer, though.
Fury is a great boxer. I don't want to see him fight Fury. I think Fury would pick him apart.
Yeah, it would be bad.
But I would like to see him fight Wilder.
Yeah,
I'd pay to watch that fight, Tyson versus Wilder. I'd pay because I think Tyson still has what looks like speed and power.
That carries you a lot, and
and I think he definitely is a way more technical boxer than Wilder.
Did you see that Tito Ortiz called out Tyson? Like,
don't get hurt.
Who the fuck wants to watch that fight?
Why?
I'd watch it. I'd watch it.
They box. If they box, I'd watch that shit.
If they were boxing, I'd pay to see Tito Ortiz get knocked the fuck out.
Dump him if it was MMA, but
right.
It's hilarious that he knocks out like the ghost of Chuck Liddell and thinks he's like can actually strike now.
Yeah, like
that was actually sad as shit.
And when you watch that fight, Chuck Liddell was definitely not even close to a shell of himself. No, he was not even resembling who he used to be.
His former self,
dude.
Yeah. It was really sad to watch. I watched it and I'm like, once he hobbles. He doesn't even have his hips look like.
What about Ken Shamrock? Can we put Ken Shamrock against Tyson? I
think Ken Shamrock.
I would enjoy watching Tyson beat the fuck out of Ken Shamrock.
But I think Ken Shamrock today would beat Chuck Liddell.
He would knock him out.
You think?
Yeah, I do. I think Ken Shamrock is, for whatever reason, still in better shape than Chuck Liddell.
I saw those Chuck Liddell training videos before that fight, and like he looked like he was moving in like underwater. And I saw people were saying like, well, maybe he's trying to. And
I think both of them in their prime, Chuck Liddell is leaps and bounds the better fighter.
That's why it's
leaps
sad.
And bounds.
That's why it's so fucking sad.
But Ken Shamrock would destroy him today.
Because Tito is somebody who would hang his hat on a Chuck Liddell victory from 2018. Like that's
he's a fucking
pitiful.
Shitty dude.
Yeah. Like it's a shitbag way to like look at anything like that. You know.
Yeah. But I think Mike Tyson, I wouldn't mind. I think he looks crazy impressive in those videos. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight an actual boxer. Might do his charity match first. See how bad that goes for whoever you fight.
Do you think he needs money? Do you think he needs money?
No. He's very wealthy from marijuana.
Yeah.
Very wealthy.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
But how you can make a lump sum with one of them?
But a good portion of the marijuana in California is Mike Tyson.
Really?
And he also his place that he has, the ranch, is actually like a marijuana resort. He's okay.
Yeah,
he's okay.
He didn't seem like he wanted to. Like watching his interviews with Joe Rogan and all that stuff.
He didn't want to fight again.
Yeah,
and for some reason he found a drive.
Curious to see him.
He found some kind of weird drive.
He didn't even like.
He was doing hallucinogens. He said, "I don't even want to train anymore." That's what he said in the Joe Rogan interview. I don't even like training because I don't like that person I was. So maybe he has somehow found in his old age an intermediate, like, oh no, I'm a nice, peaceful guy, but I also like to fucking just channel this anger every once in a while.
And you're getting 50, like this is the end of the line of ever being able to do it again.
Yeah, you have to cash in when you can.
But I don't know if I've ever seen a 50-year-old look as impressive. Even when he was still really chubby and he was showing like MMA fighters how to like switch position and punch. It's like, dude, you're so quick. Yeah. Like, you're fat and out of shape, and you're quicker than I could ever hope to be.
Yeah.
The way he changes his foot, like, the way he changes how his feet are and changes angles.
He has 40 years of boxing experience now.
Dude.
Like 13 years old, he started boxing?
Yeah. I can't lie.
It just depends on...
I want to see a charity fight, and I want to see what he does in that charity fight. And I hope, even though most charity fights are like, hey, we're just going to have a friendly little thing. I hope he goes out there and mauls whoever he does fight in that charity fight. Yeah. And then I wouldn't mind
seeing him. I hope he kills somebody for cancer.
Just fucking sacrifice Evander Holyfield for cancer.
Yeah.
It's a worthy cause.
He just mauls him. and then I wouldn't mind seeing him fight at heavyweight. Let's be honest.
It might be to get Evander a payday, though, because they're like best friends.
And Evander's check. And Evander Holyfield is actually struggling for money. Yeah.
He's actually in the cocaine industry. He does that. Yeah. Mike Tyson does weed, but he's selling coke. He's slinging coke. That's what. But it depends on how. Because you think about Mike Tyson, you think about prime Mike Tyson, and of course he's not going to be prime, but also his style changed a lot since you look at his last few fights and you just like, dude, I don't want to see that.
Well, the thing is if Mike Tyson has half of the speed that he had when he was actually fighting,
Can he George Foreman
but gains the
Wisdom.
mental knowledge and the wisdom. If he has half that speed and way more wisdom, that's dangerous. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, he is dangerous.
George Foreman did it at 50-some years old.
And he was nowhere near resembling quick. No. He just had one big punch, and he is going to kill you with it.
And heavyweight is
There's nobody there.
Yeah, like the
There's
Klitschko
Anthony
brothers are
Joshua.
gone.
There's Anthony Joshua.
There's Ruiz.
But Ruiz is like kind of a flash in the pan. Yep. He really blew his opportunity to become something big by not training properly, coming in overweight from what he was before. There's Tyson Fury, who I think is leaps and bounds by far the best boxer in heavyweight.
Yeah.
And there's Deontay Wilder, who just has a big hand. He's actually not a good boxer.
He's a terrible boxer.
He's not a good boxer.
Wilder showed you that in the last fight.
I don't really
That's
know
what I'm saying. So Tyson, I think, could have at least be top 5.
I don't think he's won. I don't think Wilder's even won any rounds ever. Like think about his fights. He just loses every round.
Right.
He
He just
him out.
knocks you out.
Yeah, like he loses.
He does it quick or he does it late, and he knocks you out.
They set up fucking.
And I love Deontay Wilder. Don't get me
he's
wrong.
very
And I love his story. He was literally delivering Budweiser. He was a Budweiser delivery guy,
a big dude,
and
right?
was like, "I got a kid, and now I need to fucking figure out how to make a decent amount of money." So I'm gonna box. And they found out he could just hit really hard. He's the smallest heavyweight.
Yeah, he's like 218. He's like 218 or something like that.
When he weighed in for the first Wilder fight, he weighed I think 209.
Yeah, he's smaller than John
for
Jones.
a heavyweight boxer.
He's smaller than John Jones.
Yeah.
Size wise.
But he just has this crazy knockout power.
I think Francis would knock out Wilder.
I agree.
I just think I think he's way bigger and it's just as harder.
I think Francis should have the ultimate bargaining chip in the UFC because he could go into heavyweight boxing and it'd be okay because there's just not that many.
Yeah, and he's bigger than in the Wilder Fury fight. Was the first one was close. The second one obviously was a blowout. But the first one was it wasn't close from a competition, but he knocked him down.
Yeah.
So like it was close.
Wilder won like every round, and then
he had knocked him down. Yeah. I thought he won the fight. I thought Fury won the fight.
Yes.
But like you think that he has a longer reach than Wilder, I believe. Francis does. He's bigger.
Fury. Yeah, he's like 6'8".
Yeah, he's huge.
Fucking huge.
And he has good footwork and good head movement.
He's by far the best technically sound boxer in the heavyweight division.
I think he'd knock out Joshua too.
Yeah, I think he fucks Joshua up. I really do. I don't think anybody's going to come close to him, and I love that story because he came from beating the guy that was considered to be unbeatable,
Klitschko, yeah,
and then decided to go on a coke bender and hated his life.
He got it from
was in depression.
Evander. He got it from Evander, I think.
Man, you're all about. Is this a real thing?
Yeah.
Really, I was going to say. I was like, man, he's really about this Evander.
So we defamation from Evander.
Yeah, we should clarify that is a joke. That is a joke.
Legal team. He doesn't have
we got
a legal
cease and desist letter here from Evander Holyfield.
He can't afford a cease and desist letter in 2020 against anybody. But
I think he's just that story
mental
is
health
crazy
issue,
too.
yeah, like his mental health issues.
Well, it's just crazy because he said Wilder was the person who inspired him to fight again too, because he was like, I sit on my couch and this guy was talking about how he's the best fighter ever, and I said, wait a minute, I think I'm the best fighter ever, and I'm gonna stop eating these Cheetos and snorting this coke and drinking this whiskey, and I'm gonna fucking get up and I'm gonna start fighting again.
He looked shoddy in his first comeback fight. He looked rusty, but he also was in the process of slimming down whenever Fury came back.
And a fight broke out in the crowd.
Yeah, I said, did it? Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, a fight broke out in the crowd for Tyson's first fight back to boxing. A fight broke out in the crowd, and he literally stopped fighting for a second and watched the fight in the crowd.
I mean, he's a fight fan, dude.
Yeah, they literally, both the fighters were like, holy shit, there's a fight going on out there.
Watching fighting is universal, dude.
Yeah, you want to watch
people in a fight will stop to watch a fight.
It's about as interesting as an undercard for a boxing fight. It should just be fights in the crowd.
Yeah.
But to me, he's just leaps and bounds above the heavyweight division.
Thinking about a boxing card versus a MMA card, maybe because I'm more familiar with MMA than I am boxing, but like they just literally stack. There's nothing besides the main fight in boxing. From like I never know who anyone else is ever. And,
yeah, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, just like who?
It's hard.
I
feel out of love of boxing.
Do they do that though because they want you to like look? You should know who these guys are too.
They just protect the best fighters that they think are the most marketable. They protect them way more than the UFC does. They protect them way more than any.
They fight
sport
cans
ever
into
has.
like they're 20-0. They'll fight cans.
It's fucking
if
insane.
you have 2 losses like early on, you're fucking done. Like you're damaged goods in boxing. I believe that's how it's set up to get you 30-0.
Yeah,
Before you face
it's
somebody
fucking
good.
insane. I fell out of love with boxing. I was talking about Joe
30-0
Calzaghe.
sells a fight.
Yeah, I was talking about Joe Calzaghe earlier, and that he is why I fell out of love with boxing, because he was incredible. His last 2 fights were against Bernard Hopkins and Roy Jones, and he beat them both.
Yeah.
And Roy Jones was kind of a shell. Bernard Hopkins was still what he always was. Bernard Hopkins was just a fucking soldier, basically. But he took Bernard Hopkins' belt. He moved up from middleweight. He dominated super middleweight and then moved up to light heavyweight to fight Bernard Hopkins, beat him, and then fought Roy Jones after that and beat him. And he went, I want to say 32, anywhere between 32 and 35-0 with like 27 knockouts.
Right.
And it never even had a fight that was close to competitive.
See, that's sad.
And nobody knows who he is.
Yeah.
And nobody knows. He was trained by his dad his whole life.
See, and that's like you're wasting talent. Like the UFC is such a better model for just building like stars. Like
And it gives you a lot more depth to the stories of the fighters. Like you think about somebody like Anthony Smith, who lost 13 fights before he got to a title shot or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it humanizes him a lot more because it makes you think that this guy's
losing
been
a fight
shit.
isn't the end of everything,
Right.
though, in the UFC.
But what I have to say about Joe Calzaghe is one of the knocks they had against him when he was fighting was they said, well, he only fights in England. Well, the reason he was only fighting in England is that's the only place he can make money.
Your PC went off.
Because he's not it probably died. So he wasn't a draw in America, so he's not going to make any fucking money in America.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So why would he fight in America when he can make all this money in England? You can bring whatever fighter you want over here, and I'll fight him, and I'll beat the shit out of him.
It just goes.
It's not about home field advantage. It's about I'm not going to make money in Vegas.
Is he still fighting?
No, he retired.
Did he?
He retired after he fought Roy Jones.
But I mean, the red tape that's involved in boxing and like all these different promotions, and you take for granted in the UFC being under one umbrella, that it's like the fights get made more often than not in the UFC. They just do because they're all under contract with the same
with
promotion.
the same company, the
Yeah.
same promotion.
It's a professional nightmare in boxing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like-
the promotions fight against each other. They want to protect their champion and make sure he stays good,
And
so
there's
they
so many-
won't let him fight the champion from the other promotion.
It's so hard to gain all 3 of those belts and unify.
I think it's why Dana White doesn't even entertain the idea of fighting champion versus champion against other players.
what's
He's
it-
like,
'cause-
it's going to end up destroying it.
And what's he do? What's that do for Dana White? Like,
Nothing.
because
He's on top of the world.
That happened in Pride whenever
I'm
Trump
gonna lend credence to this lower organization. Like,
fucking Titan FC champion versus like who gives a shit? Like
I don't even care if they fight against the best in the other
Well,
promotion,
because
unless it's Mighty Mouse.
We know that champion at best is like number 10 in the UFC, maybe.
Right.
You know?
you look at somebody like Will Brooks, who came from Bellator. He was champion. He beat Michael Chandler. And Brooks came over and he fucking washed out as soon as he came over.
Or how about what's that black dude's name that fought at either welterweight or middleweight?
Hector Lombard.
Hector Lombard.
And yeah, he was a
He was dominant over there.
glass cannon, and you don't know because he's just beating up cans in Bellator.
Yeah, came over to the UFC and just got beat up.
Got
Michael
beat by
Venom
Neil
Page.
Magny. He got beat by Neil Magny.
Yeah.
Michael Venom Page is the only one that intrigues me from over there, just because his
He
style
crushed
is
it.
so different.
He's been crushing cans for like 8 years now.
Yeah, he crushes cans, but at least his style is so different that maybe he might be able to do something
He
against
could,
somebody.
yeah.
You know
He
what
has
I mean?
skills, but
Yeah.
I mean,
It's time to take that step if you're going to, though. With
Yeah,
him.
well, and he did with Lima, and
Yeah, it
Lima
didn't work
fucking
out.
cleaned his clock.
I mean, the steps you take in Bellator is literally like a fucking few front porch steps compared to the
Yeah,
UFC,
it's
which is like, multi-tiered,
yeah.
But there's not a lot of depth to this division. So it's either you fight cans or you fight killers. You either fight a Roy McDonald, who was a top welterweight or whatever.
Yeah.
Not as much anymore, but
It's just so
he's-
crazy how far his grace fell after he fought Lawler. He was never the
fight
same
took
fighter.
it out of him, man.
Yeah.
It was done. That was the biggest.
He has a
to
lot
me,
of
that's the
miles.
number one fight of all time.
It's
Robbie
amazing.
Lawler.
One of them,
Is Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald. That's
He-
the number one fight of all
he,
time. Those
he-
two dudes killed each other in that ring.
he's been fighting since he was like 16 years old, so he has a lot of wear and tear.
Same with Robbie Lawler. And
Robbie
they,
Lawler's been around forever too.
and,
But
they literally, he fought in the UFC on 2 different occasions. He left the UFC, went to WEC, and then came back. And I think he was
He
in
was
Strike
there
Force
he was in
for a
Strike
while,
Force. Yeah,
and then finally made his way back to the UFC.
Yeah.
And
He was
and
there
they're-
in a different era.
Those two
Yeah.
dudes in that fight put
That was it. That was
everything
their
out
careers,
there.
yeah.
They're like, we're gonna have the best fight of all time,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna call it a fucking day
And
because
then their
neither of
careers
them
were
were the
done.
same afterwards. Neither of them.
I think
Lawler had the a little bit left, maybe, but yeah.
I think Lawler.
I
has
think
a
Lawler
different-
had the better career.
He has a different mindset too. You compare somebody like Rory, who just doesn't seem to have the fire. I think Lawler's problem
a
now.
warrior.
It's just wear and tear in his body. Just been so long. He's lost a few steps physically.
Yeah.
McDonald though is mentally. It's a mental thing.
Yeah, it's a mental thing for sure. He doesn't want to fight.
I know he's really religious now.
Yeah.
I know he's. And
Jesus will take it right.
Yeah,
out.
Way to
it's
go,
hard to fight.
Jesus. You're just ruining fighters all over the place.
I mean, he fought me saucy, and I was like, he's gonna get killed by Gegard, just like not gonna be competitive, and it wasn't. And he lost to Lima his last fight, and just Lima though should be in the UFC. Lima's an amazing.
Lima should be in the UFC. I think Masasi should be in the UFC.
Yeah, well, because middleweight's kind of weak.
Misasi was making a little run. He was like making a little run there, and then he just left and went to Bellator.
It was about payday. I think he's a fucking assassin for hire. He's trying to
would
get
would they made the change to go to Reebok and you couldn't have sponsors on your shorts anymore unless you were a specific superstar? It's a big money difference for those guys.
I think that Bader said that he made like $65,000 a fight for sponsors. That's a lot of cheddar. For somebody who's making 65 in a contract.
Crazy the UFC never did anything to replace that money.
And I think when the Reebok contract runs out, they're gonna probably go back to some of the
some
you can
crumbs
get sponsors.
From it. It's like crumbs compared to what they used to be able to.
Why wouldn't you want those fighters to be satisfied with that little extra money that you don't even have to worry about? Like now they're not gunning for higher contracts now because they got that money on the side. It doesn't really help the UFC, I don't think.
No, I think it was actually a bad move by the UFC.
Like who's like watching MMA and was like, I would love MMA a lot more if they didn't have full tilt on their shorts. Nobody.
I miss the colorful.
Me too.
I miss the crazy shit on the shorts.
Me too. Yeah,
Venom
like
shorts.
Condom Depot on the ring.
Condom Depot. Dude wipes. I'll
Yeah.
never forget dude wipes. When the first time I ever found out about dude wipes was in the UFC, and it was always on the guy's ass in the UFC.
Well, that's where you fucking dude wipe it at,
That's
right?
where you dude wipe it at. Yeah.
I just the UFC shoots himself in the foot with stuff like that because it makes them people a lot more disenfranchised. They should be, you know.
They go for sometimes they've gone for short-term profit.
Yeah.
But it's worked out well. They bought it for like $1 million or $2 million, maybe $5 million at the most, and sold it for $1 billion.
Yeah,
fuck.
I mean, they
did something right.
But there's also a general discontent brewing with fighters. It seems a lot more
especially
more
recently.
Yeah, a lot more vocal. So I don't know how much that. I'm not privy to all this information.
Well, yeah,
we got to get through this pandemic thing before they
can start paying them more.
Stuff.
And no matter what, again, I think a lot of the money goes into the production value that makes UFC so great. Because again, if you watch one of the biggest fight cards, Tyson Fury versus Wilder boxing match,
fucking fair production.
Yeah, it's the production value is way better in the UFC than it is in any.
They make it a spectacle
in any other
not quite the level
fight
what
sport.
Pride did. Remember, Pride had a crazy entrance.
Pride has the fucking net. Everybody used to come out with a huge hammer,
just go
for
that.
That stuff gets a little ridiculous.
It does get a little ridiculous.
It's cool though,
but the UFC does it right.
Yeah,
they literally took a page from WWE with how they did some of that stuff.
Yeah.
But the shorts in this Reebok deal has diluted the characters a little bit more. You think about Chuck Liddell's iconic
ice shorts.
and that would never be a thing.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have the Iceman.
We just had a guy. I forget what his name is, but he's been fighting for camo shorts forever, and now they're finally going to give them to him.
Bryce, whatever. Yeah,
Bryce Mitchell or something like that.
Yeah.
Which had a crazy ground game in his last fight, dude.
Amazing.
That was insane. He just kept putting him in the same two submissions, left and right.
Yeah, and
what the fuck?
It was pretty entertaining too. It wasn't a boring grappling.
No, it wasn't boring at all. It was like constantly this dude's in trouble on the ground.
Charles Rosa, I think. Charles Rosa fights again next week.
What do we got coming up? Is there an official?
Actually, we will go to coming up. A couple things I wanted to touch on real quick was one, Sarah. Even though it happened a while ago, we were talking about Matt Serra earlier, and I love the video of him restraining that drunk guy in a restaurant.
I don't think I've seen that.
You never saw it? So
no.
This drunk guy in a restaurant was like harassing the waitresses and everything. So he eventually went up to just say like, "Hey man, just like relax." And he tried to fight Matt Serra. And Matt Serra
I think this happened like 2 years ago. It
was like a year ago maybe. Yeah. And he just took him to the ground and then got on top of him. And the video is just him
riding
in full mount, holding his hands, and he's like, "Hey man, just fucking relax, dude. Just settle down, bro."
See,
Matt Serra. End of your day here.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to hurt the guy. He was literally just like, come on, guys, settle down. Literally, that's how he was talking, like, settle down. And the cops came, and he was like, "Do you got him? Because he's fighting me. So do you got him? Because I'll let him go. Do you got him?" And then the cop intervened and got him. But Sarah was couldn't be more peaceful about it.
You just know, though.
Just
you're on top.
him.
You could kill that guy.
But that's what I'm saying. It's so cool that even though he knew he could have pummeled this man, He just restrained him. He's just like, come on,
what
guys,
shitty luck do you have to
settle
be in a
down.
restaurant to act a fool? And
Matt
UFC
Serra's in
fighter.
there.
Yeah, or like you just gotta think because you see him and like he looks like a grown man. He's kind of short, but like he's stocky and built.
Yeah.
He looks like a little Guido guy.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect he's gonna be a fucking UFC fighter.
The best fighter in
Any other night, you might have been the
town.
toughest guy in that bar. But
Yeah, not tonight.
I seen a video like that with Ryan Hall, that BJJ guy. He just fucking took the guy in the restaurant was acting up, and he took him down. And Ryan Hall looks like a goddamn IT nerd, you know.
And actually, Joe Rogan has a story that he told on one of the podcasts where they were on a hotel, and this drunk guy kept trying to get into his buddy's room, and his buddy happened to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he keeps trying to get in this room. So eventually, his buddy opens a door, but it became a loud scene because the guy like wanted to fight his buddy, and so they're all out there, and the hotel's out there. And the guy actually goes after his guy, and the hotel people are like, "Oh, we should break this up." And he's like, "Don't worry about it." Like Joe Rogan said, "Don't worry about it. Like he's just gonna choke him out real quick, and then he's gonna be mellow, and everything's gonna be fine." And he said, literally, my buddy wasn't even thinking about choking him out. He was just restraining him. He's like, "Oh, maybe I should just choke him out for a second, and then he'll be fine afterwards, because it's not gonna hurt him." Long term.
No,
like you just choke him out for a second, and then he's gonna wake up and be like, "What just happened?"
Talking about, I can't remember.
I can't remember who it is either, but yeah, that was a story he told.
You know the Anthony Smith intruder story? I know that John Jones tweeted afterwards. He was like,
some bullshit. He's a worse human being.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit. But he was like, good thing Glover's not in the market for a new TV or whatever. Like,
and even before,
I'm like, God damn it! Like, why are you gonna shit on
even
this
before
guy?
that, Jones said, "Good thing the guy that invaded your house wasn't me, because then you would have got beat up."
Yeah.
Like. Dude, why? Why are you saying that? What are you
like? Is there a chance you could have been the guy invading his house? Like,
yeah,
he probably could. If
and
he had
honestly,
enough
they
coke.
could. Like literally, well, yeah, he definitely could. He just literally got in trouble fairly recently. Like everybody was showing this video of him taking spray paint cans away from these people. I'm like, does that take away from him running into a pregnant woman and then running, then remembering he left his drugs and running back and taking the drugs and not ever checking on the pregnant woman that he hit?
I tried so hard to like John.
And then
he doesn't make it easy though.
And then just recently, he fucking was driving around in
Shooting
New Mexico drunk, firing off a gun
like
during quarantine.
And then the week before, he was like, "You guys could just stay home and help." And like he like posted like a sort of a, you know.
You guys do the thing. I'm gonna go out and shoot guns.
when my line was drawn with him, where I was gonna say he's the GOAT, but I hate him, was when he went on the Joe Rogan podcast, because it was after the wreck where he hit the pregnant lady and ran. And Joe, it seemed like Joe was literally trying to lean him into basically apologize and say, "Man, I'm a piece of shit for that," and things. But he literally was just dancing around it and was basically trying to say, like, well, I didn't know she was pregnant.
Yeah,
well, I didn't. Doesn't fucking matter. You check on the person you just wrecked your car into.
Either you're a sociopath.
I don't care how much trouble you're going to get into.
Exactly.
You check on that fucking person that you just smashed into.
Like either you're a sociopath or you're not. Like either you're a decent person who fucks up, or you're a heinous person who is a piece of shit and has a terrible character.
I think the most revealing thing about him is that he tries to put on that. He's got that Philippians tattoo, and he tries to put on that Jesus image, and it's like, dude, that's not you. And the fact that you try to be that guy so much is the most telling thing about
it. Would be better if he was just like, "Guess what, guys? I'm a piece of shit, but I'm gonna fuck everybody up.
Fuck strippers. I mean, like, I'd be like, this dude, he's the bad guy. I love it. Like,
I love
exactly.
He's Razor Ramon of the UFC. Like, I love the bad guy.
Yeah, if he leaned into that shit more and actually,
I wouldn't care. I'd be like, yes, dude. Fuck everybody.
Okay, you're a piece of shit. I get it. That's who you are.
The best John Jones moment is whenever he's on camera at DC, and after they start rolling, he's like, "Hey, you there, pussy?" Like that's that's the best version of him. It's like just like, I'm a most badass guy in the world, but I'm an asshole as well. Because that's more. I like him better like that. At least it doesn't seem fake. Like I wouldn't be friends with him.
I like him being the asshole, but when he like tries to hide it and act like he's not that guy, it just bugs the shit out of me.
Actually, Kyle, because the computer died, go ahead and pull up the recent stuff coming up on your phone while I throw out here. Other thing I want to talk about, because we were talking about weight cuts earlier, and we were talking about how detrimental we feel it might be for these fighters, is Rumble.
Oh yeah,
he started out at welterweight, 170.
Yeah, he fucking. I was looking at actually pictures yesterday showing my girlfriend's brother. I mean, we were bullshitting watching him, man. He didn't know he fought at 170. I was looking at him, and it's insane he even cut that much weight. He looks, especially when he's bodybuilding, like they have that compare contrast picture now.
That's really crazy. But even still, him compared to light heavyweight,
it's fucking insane.
It's insane. How did you ever make 170?
And he, it's his body was probably put through hell even getting down.
Well, we
there.
don't have much that's like official card. UFC Fight Night,
that fight-
versus Cavillo,
Terrible
and then UFC Fight Night Blades versus Volkov. That's a little more interesting. Beyond that, there's nothing like
Nothing exciting to talk
concrete.
about.
No, well, there's
A lot of
nothing
things up in the air.
scheduled. There's just
You're
yeah,
on the actual UFC website.
He's
Well,
on Wikipedia, which would updates pretty
the events
fast.
list.
Wikipedia is better than the UFC
better
website.
than
Yeah.
the site.
The UFC website is terrible.
So
they don't
this-
update at all.
The Jessica I. Calvillo card.
Terrible.
Carl Roberson and Marvin
Vittori.
Vittori is the co-main.
Terrible fight.
I'm gonna watch them because there's nothing else to watch.
Ray
But
Borg
Yeah.
versus.
I like Ray Borg.
Yeah.
He's fighting again. He just fought like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, same
Andre
with like Sean
Philly.
O'Malley.
Yeah, I mean these are all just,
So what about the next one?
no ranks.
There's no official main event for UFC 251. There's a few fights. I think that Kamaru Usman's supposed to have a title fight against somebody.
Well, hell, even the Curtis Blades, Alexander Volkov.
Literally, yeah. If you look at the Wikipedia, it's literally just that fight on there.
Yeah, they don't even have the rest of the card filled out, and that's
Jesus
supposed
Christ.
to take
I think
place
Blades is
June
gonna-
20th.
That shows you how much they're flying by the seat of their pants
Yeah.
right
Who
now.
wants a fight this week?
Yeah. Listen, we're taking
We
all
might
comers.
not even get some of these. You know what I mean? They might
Yeah.
not be able to.
You might
pull it
shuffle
together.
around, put that
Yeah.
Blades card on UFC 251
Yeah.
next month. But
So there's really not much coming up to talk.
but yeah,
about.
Kamaru Usman is supposed to be defending his welterweight title against an unknown challenger.
somebody.
Yeah, it's supposed to be either Leon Edwards or Gilbert Burns at this point. It looks like.
Yeah,
Mas-
well, it looks like
It
Masvidal's
should be
out.
Masvidal, but he
Looks
wants
like
more
he's
money,
out.
so.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just want to see fights. I don't give a fuck if it's
Yeah.
number 10 ranking. Whoever's ready to fight
But-
Kamaru.
I honestly don't care if you give me a whole fight night of all undercarders.
If we don't have,
just give it to me.
If we don't get Fight Island, we're gonna run out of fights pretty quick.
Yeah, because Fight Island, that's the only way we're going to get these people that are stuck in other countries
Yeah.
to be able to fight. And some of them probably are still not going to take
Yeah,
it.
because I think the UFC.
That's why, even though it's a nothing fight, it's a bullshit fight, I still would have been happy during this time frame
The
to
Silva
see
Conor.
Anderson Silva versus
Yeah,
Conor
yeah,
McGregor.
for sure.
And,
I would have just been happy to see it. Like, fuck it, yeah,
It's
let's throw a
spectacle.
fun fight out there. Let's throw a fun fight.
I think Conor
Yeah.
needs to either lean into being a fucking just random ass fighter who fights big fights like that, or he needs to actually put some work in a division.
Yeah, he needs
Well-
like how Diaz just comes back for big fights.
Right.
Yeah, well, I think the only reason Conor McGregor was entertaining the Anderson Silva fight was because they weren't offering him anything. And he's like, fuck yeah, okay, Anderson Silva, fuck yeah, let's do that.
Right.
And they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. Like, well, guess what? From what we just saw
That's what
on
me-
Kyle's phone, that there's not shit you're giving
That's what
us.
leads
So
me
give
to,
us that.
Leads me to believe that he's getting frustrated because he was willing to take it. Yeah, we'll do the Silva fight. Like he wants to fight somebody, and nothing's nothing's materialized.
It's a bad time to make any fight you
Yeah.
want. You know, you can't really make any fight you want right now. It's hard to. In his divisions, like what division is he gonna fight in? 170. He's supposed to fight a catchweight for Silva, but like if he fights 170, there's a bunch of fights. Really, you think about it.
Right, but
155
who's signing up for him?
But 155 is a little more log jammed. It's a little more like up in the air because these fights are paced weird in that division. You have
Because here's
Gaethje
my
winning.
question. So you're saying they're not going to pay Jorge Masvidal, but you're going to tell me that if he's fighting Conor McGregor, you're not going to give him a payday?
I don't see how they
You're
don't
gonna
buckle
give him-
and pay Masvidal.
You're gonna
because-
give
When the fuck else
Masvidal
are
a
you gonna
massive
pay? Yeah.
payday. You're gonna give Masvidal a massive payday if he fights Conor McGregor because you have the money, because you know you're gonna get the money. So why not make that fight? But I'm sure
I don't
Conor
know if
would take
Conor-
that fight.
Yeah.
I
He
think
would.
Conor would take that
I think
fight,
it's a bad fight for Conor, but
but I think he would take it.
But
yeah, for sure.
I think he would.
I mean, if the only thing that's really like, I think Masvidal versus Usman, should be the next thing on the docket, and that's a pay-per-view headline worthy,
Oh yeah, that's
fight.
easy.
So you might be in a
It's easy,
position where
buddy.
you have to pay Masvidal because you ain't got nothing left, and Usman
Having-
Masvidal is the biggest thing going.
And
But we say that, but then we see these undercard fights that end up being fucking spectacular.
Yeah, but
And
getting
now
me to
next thing you
pay
know, you
for
get the
it-
next,
you
the
just paid
next
for
big
Nunes or
star.
Spencer though a
Yeah,
little bit.
well, because I mean, they've exhausted the last few fights of guys that are in America that even make sense to put together. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on how fast they get Fight Island up and running. If it's up and running by UFC 251, they could do a lot more with these cards.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
for
but
sure.
he said he's announcing this week, so yeah. I mean, we might see the whole
They-
thing comes.
I
The
think-
whole landscape may
Yeah,
change
yeah.
very quickly.
The most frustrating title fight on the horizon that hasn't been made is Stipe versus DC3. Like this division moves so fucking slowly. The title is defended once a year. It's fucking maddening.
it
you know?
has to be made. It has to be made. That fight has to be made. I think that's the only fight to really make it heavy. Don't get me wrong. I want to see Ngannou knock out whoever wins that fight.
It's frustrating for Ngannou though because he's been just beating dudes up,
just fucking them up.
Yeah, like
he's definitely gotten better.
Yeah,
he's definitely gotten better.
Well, he's gotten more lethal.
He's gotten more confident.
Yeah,
is what I'll say. It is. He's gotten more confident in what he can do.
Can you wait? Because this fight's not even signed yet. So can you wait another 8 months? You know, like if they fight in August, maybe.
I don't think
well,
8
in
months is too
DC,
long,
DC even said, "I'll fight Ngannou for the interim championship."
Right.
Which I think is crazy for DC to say.
That's a bad fight for
DC. I think Ngannou balls that man.
If
Not just too old, too small.
Well, if DC,
just too small.
Especially if it's your last fight, why do you want to do that one? Like,
yeah,
you want to try to avenge the Stipe and walk off into the sunset. Like,
yeah, because that's a bad fight for you, man. He's got to try to take him down immediately. Even
if you fight Stipe and lose again, that means you've only lost to 2 fighters. Stipe, arguably the best heavyweight of all time, definitely in the UFC. And then there's Jones, the best fighter of all time. Yeah. So adding a third person you've lost to in your career, Ngannou, who also
at this point you walk away at least the second best in 2 divisions ever.
Yeah,
like,
and like because you think Ngannou beating DC makes him look bad, terrible because he couldn't even do what Stipe did to Ngannou. You know what I mean? He couldn't even overcome that hurdle that Stipe did. So it's like logically, don't take that fight.
It even removes question of Stipe.
But I love that he's willing to. But I love that he's willing to take it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see. I'm in a position where I want to see fights.
Right.
Like I don't
Just
give a fuck.
give me fights.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about. I barely care about titles anymore. If it's Kamaru versus Leon Edwards, I'll watch the shit out of that because I like Kamaru. He's a good fighter. Yeah. You know, if it's Edwards versus Colby, that's a fucking high level fight. It just any fight like that, I don't care really where the title falls.
Colby.
I'll tell you what I would really like to see it. I think they could sell the shit out of the fight and pay Jorge Masvidal is Masvidal versus Edwards because he fucking smacked that man.
Well, what about Colby?
Yeah, for sure.
You could even rematch Colby and Usman, and I'd watch it right now.
Yeah, for sure, I'd watch that right now. Even though that was domination, I'd watch it right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, Colby. He did well enough. Like he thinks he deserves a rematch. Yeah, so
they're offering. I think they just offered Woodley to fight Colby, which is a terrible fight for Woodley. I don't know why you want to fight another grappler heavy. Anyone who's going to put that pressure on him because it's a bad fight for him, and he doesn't look like he can even compete with somebody like Colby now. And I see that as somebody who hates Colby and wants to give him no credit, but has to give him credit as a fighter because
I mean he proved that even in his loss to Usman that he belongs up there. Like.
Well, now here's the thing. Here's 2 people that definitely want to fight. That maybe Conor doesn't deserve the fight, but they're both going to make a buttload of money.
Put Conor versus Kamaru.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Dude.
That's what I'm saying. It's gonna make a buttload of money. They're both gonna get paid, and you can't find a fight for either of these fucking guys.
Right.
So just fucking make that one happen. They're both gonna get fucking paid. I think Usman. There's a really good chance Usman just fucking manhandles that guy.
Oh yeah.
I love Conor, but it's Kamaru Usman.
Against everybody's interest because of that, though.
Yeah,
but he doesn't take too much of a hit, Conor, if he gets to beat Usman.
Because he's not supposed to be fighting at 170.
Yeah, it doesn't make me be like, oh, well, Connor's fucked.
Yeah, he's not supposed to be fighting at 170.
And easily reassert himself at 155.
Take the fight.
Yeah, take the fight. And I think Conor would take the fight. But the thing is, they're just not making those things happen. It does seem weird now.
I think that the UFC is trying to put off. They're trying to put on the bare minimum of like paying out fighters and making cheap deals because this isn't as profitable as it would be next year for any Conor fight. So if they could do it Edwards versus Usman, that they're getting paid by ESPN. They're going to pay sell some pay-per-views based on the fact there's only fight in town, only card in town, only sport in town.
They're tracking really well on every one of them anyway.
Yes. So why put on a high-level fight, a high-selling fight like that could do a big gate when you could put on an Edwards who's going to fight for $150,000 a show, $150,000 to win.
Meanwhile, you build other stars at this time.
Yeah, this is actually smart. There's a lot of eyes on these people. If Edwards can come out with a little more shine, Conor has the most shine he's ever going to have. Like he's as big as he's ever going to be. Yeah. He's maybe even downward trending in terms of his popularity. Not any disrespect to Conor.
Right.
You can't
maintain. You can't go any further than the highest.
You can't
he's the highest ever, and now he's not fighting, so he's definitely on the decline.
Yeah, like you can't maintain that level of popularity
without fighting.
Exactly.
You definitely have to fight if you're going to maintain it. Yeah. You have to fight and win, or at least be impressive.
So it's like, well, why not make a new star? Why not make somebody who's going to bump up a card a little bit?
Yeah.
So I don't blame them for trying to get a cheap deal. Like Gilbert Burns was not even a person on anyone's radar 3 months ago.
Yeah. He wasn't on my radar at all. I
can't remember a fight.
I'm sure I saw him fight.
He fought in March on the last card before the pandemic, and then he just now beat Woodley again.
Yeah,
he knocked out Damian Maia on that card.
Yeah, and I'm sure I watched that fight, but I don't remember it because I was like, this guy is fighting Damian Maia, and even though I don't know who he is, I expect him to beat Damian Maia just because Damian Maia is he's very one-dimensional.
Yeah, but it's actually a good. Damian Maia is still a good win. That's
still a good win. He's always going to be in like the top 10 or 15.
Right.
He's always going to be there because he's just that skilled.
But you think about somebody who took that opportunity and made themselves known in a division that was pretty well stacked. Gilbert Burns
to rise even in with those names is a pretty big deal.
Right. So why not push that Gilbert Burns? Like that train ain't gonna go that far. Let's be honest here. Gilbert Burns is never gonna be fucking household.
Do it now.
Yeah, like this is the time for Gilbert Burns to get as big as he's gonna get. The most eyes on him ever. So good for him and good for that. And
good for the UFC.
Exactly.
You might build a star right here in this fucking quarantine era.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He might be the next big thing.
And like I said, Connor's hard to replicate, and I think they try with certain things. Like the Sean O'Malley thing could get there. Someone like Israel Adesanya could get bigger than he is. Just based on how he talks.
Israel's got his hands full with Paulo. Where's Paulo Costa? There's a fight.
I think that's a very serious fight, and I think as much as I like Adesanya,
I think he has his hands full with Paulo Costa.
I think he has his hands full in general. Like honestly, his fight against Whitaker was not amazing.
What?
You mean
Romero?
Romero? You mean?
No.
Oh, you mean okay.
Whitaker? Like if you look at how he ended up knocking him out, literally. I know he's a style bender, so yes, he can bend, but he literally was throwing punches with his legs out in front of him and leaned way back. It wasn't good, strong, technical striking that he knocked him out with. He was literally leaned back way like this.
I think that's
throwing punches like
due to Whitaker, but Whitaker's plan was to just like try to haymaker above him. You know what I mean? He just kept running in.
I don't know.
I get it, but I did not see the technical striking that I anticipated from him in that fight.
Yeah.
Well,
he won it. He won it decisively.
Well, and then going on to Romero and seeing, I think if
that was a boring ass fight, but I think that was both of their faults.
Like with the way the Romero fight went, like Paulo Costa is going to do that, but he's going to bring it to you at the same time.
I think he might rip his head off.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess I'm seeing different things. Just that Whitaker fight was more impressive than any of his other fights, just based on how he won and how much damage he didn't take against Whitaker. Whitaker's a great fighter.
Yeah.
He has a good long game. He has a good entries. He's fast.
I think
as
Whitaker's
shit,
a great fighter.
He's fast as shit. Like it's underrated how fast he is.
But I do want you to watch that fight again, maybe before the next MMA Fools podcast we do, because I want you to see how he was leaning back and fighting very awkwardly. He was fighting very awkwardly.
I think he had the timing and the distance down pretty well. Did not get hit and actually put himself in a position to counter well. It's hard. He's a counter fighter.
I think it was hard for him to. I think even though he did counter well, I think it was hard for him to counter with the style that he was fighting because literally his legs were out in front. He was leaning very far back and throwing punches like that. Like I understand, like leaning back, like Anderson Silva used to lean back and then lean forward, but he wasn't leaning forward for the punch. He was still throwing him leaning back.
But he threw a hook, so he sort of had a little more torque. He could torque a little bit better than a straight punch. It's hard to throw a straight punch leaning back like that, but you could torque with a hook a little bit, and like I feel like.
But it was just very awkward.
But very awkward.
It was very awkward looking.
He has
very awkward.
I think he has the ability to pull off something like that more than most people. So
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, like that. I'll agree with that. Is not a prime position, but also. It's all about game of inches in the pocket there. And he timed it well, and he didn't get knocked out. So he
did well.
Yeah,
I'm not taking anything away from that fight.
He did have to lean away from Whitaker's flurries,
and he was just throwing punches, leaning back the whole time. It was so weird looking to me, and I think it is impressive because it's amazing that you were able to do what you did from that position. Yeah. And Whitaker's very high level. I have beating Whitaker. Anybody beating Whitaker is impressive, let alone knocking him out. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But I think Adesanya stands on some of the most shaky ground of any of the champions.
I think he does. Yeah, I think he stands on some of the most shaky ground.
But I don't think that Paulo Costa is the type of fighter to take advantage of his technical deficiencies that he presents. I feel like Paulo Costa is a pretty straightforward game that's hard to beat. Yeah. It's very
and he's just so much bigger than everybody else in that weight division.
Yeah, and but Paulo Costa, in my opinion, doesn't have one punch knockout power. He doesn't. He's a volume striker. It's deceptive.
He is volume.
His biceps are huge, so he looks like
you think you're like that's gonna kill me.
So you're saying he's not getting his whole hips and everything.
No,
into
but
it.
he TKO'd, not straight knockout, Johnny Hendricks. He TKO'd Uriah Hall with volume.
Well, Johnny Hendricks was never the same after USADA testing
right.
came
So
in.
like you think if he's gonna spark somebody out, he could spark out little Johnny Hendricks. Uriah Hall, he TKO'd him with volume, but Uriah Hall's also jabbing the shit out of his face right before that. Like he was giving him problems and busted his nose out.
And I think Romero kind of actually won the Paulo Costa.
That was a toss-up.
That was a toss-up. It was
and
a
he
coin
got
flip.
tired of shit too.
Yeah. It was a coin flip, but I was giving it to Romero.
Yeah,
I
was.
And he got so tired in that fight, like he was gasping for air after the second round, and he lost the last 2 rounds, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And like, you think Adesanya is gonna make him? He's not gonna stand against the fence. He's gonna use his movement. He's gonna pepper him. And like, could I see Adesanya get knocked out and sort of overwhelmed against the cage? Yeah, that's a big chance as well. But I don't think it's going to be as
I think if he's leaning back the same way he did against Whitaker, it's going to have more detrimental results with Paulo Costa. It's going to have more detrimental results because Paulo Costa is also bigger than Whitaker by a good bit, like length, height, everything.
Costa's reach is only 72 inches though. He has T-Rex arms. He has fucking little T-Rex arms. They're huge. They're a nice set of arms.
But they're short.
Yeah. And the difference though too is that Costa rips the body, and I feel like whenever Adesanya was fighting Whitaker, he shouldn't have been headhunting. He should have been going for the body strikes.
Yeah, I don't like Whitaker's game plan in the Adesanya fight.
Yeah, he could have hit the body a lot easier because the body was stationary. The head was moving because he was using his length. And
he was just leaning back.
And if he was leaning back, like you say, kick him in his gut.
Right.
Yeah, kick him in his gut, kick him in his legs. He could have mixed it up for sure.
After the first round, I think that Whitaker stayed stagnant, and then Adesanya was reading off his lunges a lot better, and Whitaker continued to lunge. He couldn't do that. And Adesanya got a little bit more comfortable in the pocket based off of the distance. But Costa rips the body a lot, so I think that he can't really approach that. And I don't think Adesanya is dumb enough to to get caught by the idea of do the same game plan. He's gonna fucking come in and have a different game plan. He's
definitely creative.
Yeah, and
he's definitely creative.
And he evolves every time.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You think about it, he got split decision. He won against Martin Vettori, who fights next week. So you think about that, knocking out Whitaker in a year and a half, that's a pretty good leap. The Kelvin one was pretty good. He got rocked a few times, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a fucking Adesanya not hugger, but I like him. I've watched his
Well, I'll tell you what, from the conversations that we've had tonight, if you're saying Adesanya is the truth, I almost have to believe it because you are literally like an encyclopedia of fight knowledge. It's like you're throwing out fights like, oh, this guy's fighting next week, and I'm like, I don't even know what that guy's name is.
Kyle announced it. You don't listen to Kyle. He announced Martin. Next week.
Listen, the reason I did this with Kyle is because Kyle has always been the guy that could talk UFC the most with me or MMA the most with me, but I feel like encyclopedia wise, you might have us both beat.
Yeah, he definitely can recall names that I
can.
Well, like I said, the one sport aspect of my brain, I literally like music.
You dedicate
and I like
to
MMA,
that.
So fucking.
I got football with 53-man rosters and shit in my brain.
And I have fucking four fantasy football leagues that I do. Yeah.
Yeah. See,
you're definitely completely absorbed in the UFC.
I don't understand about football because like I used to watch football and I could watch a game and appreciate it, but like there's no sort of pride in like a hometown game. It's always bothered me when someone's like, I'm a big fucking fan of the Eagles, and I'm thinking to myself, you just like this random 30
Philadelphia all the way over.
This random ass team with like 30 men on it. Like
I'm a Browns fan. I mean, I live in Ohio, so Cleveland. Like there's some. I'm not, but I don't live in Cleveland. But I don't live in Pittsburgh either.
Like they're not all from Cleveland, so who gives a fuck about what team they have?
It's not like it's like Cleveland's team.
I know. I get what you're saying.
They're guys from all across the country.
I get what you're saying, but I'm guilty of it.
No, I'm not. I can understand why somebody would be drawn towards that. But that aspect of me always like took me out of like the hometown. Pittsburgh Steelers is right
there. The passion for the hometown team.
It's
like there are a bunch of guys from Oklahoma and
they're just random dudes. It's like when people are like, I hate the Ravens. You hate all of those dudes on that team. Like how's that?
Why do you hate all of them?
And Reed's a good guy.
Well.
And like that's the thing. Like when your favorite football team loses, it is the worst fucking thing in the world. Is it? When your favorite fighter loses, it's great. It doesn't matter. Like you're like that was a great fight. I don't give a shit.
Not for me because
as long as it was a good fight, I am okay with it. I mean, I'm let down. But as long as it was a good fight, like my favorite fighter lost in a good fight, like Anderson Silva.
I don't watch Browns lose and be like, well, at least it was a good game. I'm just pissed.
Yeah.
Really?
And with Anderson Silva may have been the only fight both losses to Chris Weidman may have been the only fights where I was like, I'm just heartbroken completely because one was like, he caught him. He caught him.
Yeah.
Anderson was trying to be too flashy.
I think me and Kyle has had like.
And then the second one
talks about the Weidman Silva fight.
The second one, he fucking shattered his leg. Like, it's that's the most let down thing
because it's not definitive.
You would rather see him beat him thoroughly.
And from how it was looking, I think Anderson Silva was about to maul that man. I'm not saying he was already doing it. He got dropped
in the clinch, though, in the first round.
I'm not saying he was already doing it. I'm saying he was actually out there in attack mode. He was actually ready to fight.
And then especially
he was ready to fight.
Seeing what Weidman eventually became, it's like, man, that's the guy that
Silva, fucking tore down the legacy.
Weidman,
this fucking sucky fuck.
Dude, Weidman said that he's a bad matchup for Israel Adesanya. I'm just like, dude, you're gonna get knocked out. Like it's just like it's a foregone conclusion that Weidman's gonna get knocked out by somebody in the future.
Why don't you and Luke Rockhold just
go and be models somewhere?
Dude, Luke
you guys
Rockhold,
both work for Calvin Klein and just rock underwear.
I feel like Luke Rockhold takes a loss. The worst fight I've ever seen take a loss.
Yeah.
He literally is the most salty bitch.
He looks so mad.
Without a doubt.
And like,
without a doubt.
He's so arrogant. But like, I remember he's like, Jan Blachowicz is not even in my league. I don't lose to people like him. And then he just get knocked out.
Yeah,
I knew he was gonna get knocked out. Like
I
was like,
assumed it. I assumed it.
It's fucking crazy because Luke Rockhold has some of the best top game in MMA. Like if he gets on top of you, he's gonna beat the fuck out of you. But he has poor wrestling, poor head movement. Yeah, his hands are terrible. He has good body kicks and good kicks.
Yeah,
but like he just is slow now and like chinny and it's just like, dude, retire and go do something else.
It's kind of like Tariq Safdien in like the last Strikeforce pay-per-view.
What happened to him?
The last Strikeforce pay-per-view, he beat Nate Marquardt with leg kicks. And like literally,
amazing.
Dude, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. He never had a cut on his leg, but his leg was bleeding.
I remember that.
Blood was seeping out of his pores because he had taken so much damage to his leg. Ouch. And then he was never anything else.
I think I seen him at the last UFC event. I think he was working the camera or something like that. He was just like mopping up the apex. Fucking... just
and poor guy, he had like the best fight ever in fucking Strikeforce history, maybe besides Nick Diaz.
Yeah. And he was a good, like, he got beat by McDonald whenever he came to UFC, and that like it just like I think
just derailed him.
I think it's a mental thing. You know, a lot of these fighters.
But I mean, he beat Nate Marquardt with leg kicks. Like when you see somebody beat somebody with leg kicks, you're like, nah.
And Marquardt was a good win back then.
Yeah.
I feel like a fighters only really have about 3 years, and like that's when they're at their peak, and then it's like you could trend downward and still win and still be competitive.
You got to find the finesse at that point.
Yeah,
you got to find the finesse,
and you got to change your game up to be competitive. Like Glover is a good example.
And he's be measured in your fight to be able to fight 5 rounds of fighting. You know.
And you can't be stagnant too with like what you want to learn, and like your training has to be.
Got to keep adapting.
Yeah, you can't be fucking the same fighter you were 6 years ago. Like John Jones.
Yeah, he's not evolving. Is the problem?
Yeah, like he's so measured now that it's boring. It's first of all he's boring.
It's like GSP towards the end of his career. Yeah, GSP got boring. He was still awesome. He was incredible. Yeah. I mean, I think he lost that Johnny Hendricks fight.
As opposed to like exciting fights. You're just you come out and just nullify people. Like.
Yeah, he just wasn't exciting towards the end. He just wasn't, and I think I beat by Johnny Hendricks.
Yeah, I think he won that fight too. And
you think he won? You think he won the Johnny Hendricks fight?
I think Hendricks won.
Yeah,
I scored it for Hendricks.
Beat the fuck out of him.
It's always bizarre as a fan because I think to myself like I want these people to come out and give out these great performances in fights and put on a show for me, but I think like. What fucking incentive do they have besides like they need to win this fight? You know what I mean? Yeah. Think about someone like GSP. He got caught by Matt Serra, changed his whole prerogative on fighting.
Yeah.
And like, dude, he's the most winning person in welterweight. So like, yeah, he's boring, but like it's a competition. So like, I'm of two minds of something like that.
No, I agree. He has to be in the top 2 of all time. George St. Pierre. No matter how boring his fights were, he has to be in the top.
It's just like the Floyd Mayweather thing. Like. That Pacquiao fight,
maybe the best ever.
Yeah, like, but he's
definitely the best defensive boxer ever.
Exactly, and you can't even like knock him. Like, if you could get away with not getting hit, why would you take CTE and damage your brain?
Yeah,
because I want to see you slug it out with somebody.
Yeah,
and I feel like it's selfish.
And if you're a true fan of the sport, then you notice how good. To me, Floyd Mayweather in boxing, his defensive skills are way more apparent than they are an MMA fighter. pointing out a win.
Yeah.
Because it's so crazy how much he doesn't get hit. It's just insane.
That's like the Pacquiao fight whenever it was like signing shit and actually going down. And I think people were disappointed by it. But if you actually watched their fights, you knew exactly what that fight was going to be like. You knew that Floyd was not going to get hit. It was going to be boring. I mean, like, I think people have this prerogative of boxing that's like Mike Tyson fucking steamrolling random dude in a smoke hall or whatever. Like back in the 80s. And like it's just not really like that anymore. And it hasn't been. And there's people who are like fucking great. Like Lomachenko is fun to watch. I like watching his fights. Yeah. And like there's boxers I like to watch. But
took dance classes.
But it seems like me and Kyle also have talked about this. It seems like it's like an incomplete sport, dude. It's like watching football players do like 50-yard dashes. Like why? Like it's half the sport.
I want to see the rest of it. Now here's what I'm gonna have to do, and I am sad about it because I feel like we could probably talk for another 2 or 3 hours. But no, I'm not saying edit it. This is gonna go just how it is. But we got to call it.
That's fine.
Because we'll sit here forever, and every time I think we got a good ending point, then all of a sudden we jump into something, and if I keep letting that happen, it's never going to stop. So I got to end it. I'm excited to have you on future episodes, man.
For sure, I'll be back.
I think you were a great addition to the podcast, Kyle. Thank you for making sure you brought him, man.
Yeah, no problem.
That was a genius
I'll come back
move.
for not MMA.
I'm just tired of co-hosting, so I was like, I'll just bring somebody that can do it instead of me.
Well, honestly, I think there are talks. I think there are talks to be had about MMA Fools in the current situation, and also I do definitely with how articulate and intelligent you seem to be, I want to have you even on the Gathering of Fools. I really
I'll
do.
be on whatever.
Well, now even if one of us can't make it, you can still roll with it. If like
I'll
for some
come by
reason,
myself.
But what I was getting down to is I think whether it be the three of us or two of us or whatever, I think he's a good addition to the podcast, and I wasn't going to bring it up on air. I was going to talk to you about it separately, but you kind of brought it up.
It's fine.
I think he is good to have on. We'll plan for him every Sunday, and
I'll come.
And if you can't make it or you can't make it, then at least we have.
Yeah, I would rather see it go on than not be happen because I can't make it. Or something,
like I'll be on.
Yeah,
this is the only, I have no one else to talk to about.
Well, it's rewarding because man, like it sucks talking to people who don't know much about it. It's just like you can only get so much out of those conversations.
Yeah. Well, and I think he is you have people like I feel like me and you might be like the DC and Rogan where we're the excited and we're the this is what happened and this is the craziness, and even though he's excited about it the same way, he is gonna all of a sudden pull a reference back from 1996.
Right. Now there's pressure
to give it context.
Yeah,
I bone up and watch Fight Pass.
Yeah, I just think you have because me and Kyle focus on so many other things sport wise that you just have a recall that we don't have. And I think it's impressive. I think this is
sad. It's also sad. Pathetic. You could also go there.
I don't think so. I think this has been a lot of fun. I think this is this is going to go down as one of the better MMA Fools episodes.
It's a longer one for sure.
Oh man, it's going to be long. I'm pretty sure this is going to be like 3 or 4 hours. Yeah. But I loved it. We'll have to figure out how to cut it down. I'll try to gain
parameters.
I'll try to rein it in a little bit, but I wasn't prepared for the knowledge that this guy brought. Brandon,
so I'll let you know.
Good job
time.
on the knowledge,
Thank
man.
You.
I didn't.
Some content. You could break it up to 2 episodes, maybe. I don't know,
dude. Maybe we will. I didn't know that you had. I've seen you on Kyle's Facebook posts and stuff like that, and I wanted to talk to you. I'd even reached out to you for something besides MMA, and but I didn't fully realize how fully.
Yeah, my description was he's pretty knowledgeable about MMA.
Yeah, he's pretty knowledgeable. He might be more knowledgeable than some of the people talking about MMA on ESPN. Yeah. Who knew?
You guys are a stepping stone into more podcasts and a UFC deal.
Yeah. Don't leave us behind.
Yeah. Please, when you take off because you're a guru in MMA, don't forget that we helped you get there. All right.
Kyle and Jim Norton on the podcast together.
Jim Norton.
But anyway, I really enjoyed this.
No problem.
Brandon, thank you for coming.
I'll be back every time.
Yeah,
for sure.
If Kyle's okay with it, I'm totally every Sunday, us 3. And if one of you can't make it, we still have the other. So
I'm furloughed until I don't know when. So yeah, and I never work too late to do the podcast. I work mornings when I do work. So
okay,
I'm good to go.
And I know you have kids, so as long as you know that it's
He's in
every
the car.
Sunday.
He's good. Yeah, he's all right.
Windows are up.
Windows are rolled up. I got the
He's in
heat
the
player, and
car.
it's fine.
He got a tablet or
He's
something.
in the car. Oh, I hope people listen to this long enough to catch that. That was
You
fucking
gotta make
great.
it to the end.
He's like, please don't the Israel Adesanya talks, please. He's hearing me from the car. Once he gets started about Israel Adesanya, he knows.
I'm definitely going to die in this car now that he's started talking about Adesanya. That's fucking great. Well, good. I'm glad for this. Fucking MMA Fools, I think, is going to get taken to a whole nother level. I'm very excited.
Me too.
Kyle, thank you for sticking with me with MMA Fools, even though with my scheduling conflicts and my bullshit. And thank you for
having
coming.
me. Yep.
Kyle, thank you for bringing him.
Yeah.
I think we might take it to a whole nother level now.
Cool. All right.
Sweet.
See
All
you
right.
guys soon.
Hey, MMA Fools, thank you. We love you.
All right.
I'm with it. Let's see how long that was. Oh, the phone died.
Oh, wow.
So
Is that
it's
impressive?
not all going to be on video.
That's fine.
Wonder how long we got on the phone. It's gotta be. It's pretty long on the phone because you.